This girl has a rare secret. When she gets bored, Myongji can speed up time and skip the boring parts of life. If a cramped bus ride takes 18 minutes to get to school, she speeds up time and arrives instantly. When she speeds up time, her body goes on autopilot, so everyone thinks she's a weirdo. She has sped up time in class plenty of times and acted like a total robot. The only person who doesn't mind her being a weirdo is her best friend Seonju Lee, mostly because she is her only friend. The other girls are scared of Myongji. Then on this particular day, a handsome new student transfers in. All the girls get interested in him. Heck, even the boys get interested. You never know which holes he prefers. The new guy is named Young-ho Kim, and he gets curious about the one student who ignored him, but the others warn him not to talk to her because she is a freak. At the end of the day, Myongji has a headache. Her friend mentions the new guy was watching her all day, but she didn't even notice. Her friend says Myongji is cold as usual, caring about nothing. Then things start getting weird. Her nerd friend says she is annoying sometimes, acting like her time flows differently from everyone else's. That was suspiciously specific, but the MC just thinks, here she goes again with this nonsense, meaning it's not the first time. Then, almost out of habit, Myongji checks the GPS. 26 minutes to walk home. Time to speed things up. According to Myongji, she still interacts with others on autopilot while speeding up time, in this case, her friend. She tells her friend she has a headache and fast forwards the 26 minutes home. But when she opens her eyes, she isn't at her front door. She's not even close. She looks to the side and sees her friend sleeping on the ground in the middle of the street, taking a very, very long nap. Put yourselves in her shoes. Myongji looks at her own hand, realizes she is holding the murder weapon, and processes the crime scene. She falls to the ground in shock. Because she sped up time, she remembers absolutely nothing. Did she do this? Looking around, she spots a shadow under the streetlight. Terrified, she runs back home the manual way, just to make sure she doesn't speed up time and accidentally kill someone else. The next day at school, she is agonizing over not remembering anything. She would never do something like that, especially to her only friend, but the evidence is irrefutable. Friend on the ground, knife in hand. She also realizes she didn't even check if her friend was alive. She simply abandoned her at the scene. She is a terrible friend. The news doesn't take long. The teacher asks the class, "Hey, did you guys see Seonju last night?" "No, teach. Did something happen to her?" "Nah, nothing much. She just won't be coming to class anymore. She died." Everyone looked at the only girl who spoke to her. They walked home together every day. The professor said that a policewoman wanted to talk to her, so he should go to her now. Everyone wondered why, and the new student was also intrigued. A detective comes to the school to speak with the victim's only known associate. She introduces herself as Detective Myong from the Violent Crimes Division. She asks if they were close, if they walked home together, if they lived nearby, and if she saw who killed her. The detective knows Myongji's route goes right past the crime scene, so she cuts to the chase. "Where were you last night at 10 p.m.? What now? Lie or tell the truth?" Myongji's brain tries to calculate the best option, but she is screwed either way. Suddenly, the new student appears and says that yesterday at 10 p.m. they were together. 10 p.m.? You were together? Yep. The detective says that wraps up the questions and tells them to use protection. Her look says she didn't buy it, but she leaves without asking more. Now, why did the new guy lie out of nowhere to save her skin? Young-ho Kim doesn't waste time. He tells her it must be frustrating to speed up time and not remember anything that happened. And not only does he know her secret, Young-ho says he was the one who killed Seonju Lee. The reason is simple. She tried to kill Myongji. Young-ho tells her he was trailing the two of them last night because that's a totally normal thing to do, and caught the exact moment her only friend pulled a knife to go 1-0. Trying to stop her, Young-ho fought and took her blade. Seonju tried to jump him from behind but got one-shotted in the process. Myongji doesn't believe his story, so Young-ho drops the lore. If you kill someone who can control time, you steal their power. Her friend knew the MC had this ability and tried to steal it. Myongji then asks why the knife was in her hands. Young-ho says he put it there. Why? Duh. What would you think if you woke up, your friend was dead on the ground and I was standing there holding the knife? Myongji walks away thinking he is a lunatic. There is no way she believes that, but suddenly, the boy activates his power. Slow motion. He drops some pebbles so we can see them falling slowly and says, this was Seonju's power. Now that he eliminated her, he owns this power too. And there is more. If she has ever watched Mirai Nikki, she knows she is never the only person in the world with powers. There are others out there, and if she doesn't get ready soon, she will meet the same fate as her friend. She is going to die. Alone on another street, a man watches the night in complete silence. Checking his phone, he realizes the buses have stopped. He won't get home until dawn. Turning his head, he notices a taxi approaching. He gets into the vehicle and asks to be taken to the Jiheon district. The radio plays, and a news report states that the body found appears to be another victim of the ongoing serial murders. Commenting with uneasiness, the driver says, "This is already the fourth victim." The passenger looks at him, questioning. Explaining calmly, the driver states, "The killer doesn't seem to have a specific target, but only attacks young men." Tapping the steering wheel, wheel, he comments, "The criminal waits until the middle of the night to stab his victims." Turning to the passenger, he advises, "Be careful. You look like you're in your early 20s. Agreeing in silence, the young man hears the news confirm that all victims were men in their 20s. Lowering his head, he takes in the information. Announcing the end of the ride, the driver informs, "We've arrived at your destination." Stopping at the curb, the taxi concludes the ride. Handing over the money, the passenger attempts to pay. But the driver asks him to wait and reaches into his own pocket for something. The passenger stares at him coldly without moving a muscle. He stabs the driver with a sharp object. Reacting to the attack, the man tries to understand what just happened. Stating that he understood everything wrong, the young man lets a coin drop from his hand. Revealing the truth, he comments, "I also kill older men. The police just haven't found all the bodies." Remaining motionless, the car sits still on the dark street. The killer removes the memory card from the car's camera. He spots movement. A person outside hails a taxi. Looking at the device in his hand, he assesses the situation. Running towards the car, the woman tries to catch him. Tapping on the window to ask for a ride, she doesn't realize he simply vanishes. Fleeing quickly, he only hears the woman's scream behind him. Already far away, he pulls his cell phone from his bag. Looking at Myungji's photo on the phone, he declares, "She will be next." Myungji faces Young-ho firmly, asking if there are other people with powers. Without hesitation, Young-ho confirms, this doesn't end with Seonju. He calmly explains that everyone will start going after each other's powers. Questioning the reason, Myungji wants to know how he knows all of that. Young-ho asks back, "Didn't you check the USB you received?" Not understanding what he's talking about, Myungji hears Young-ho mention a package that arrived months ago. Young-ho runs a hand through his hair. "No wonder you don't know anything," he says. "How long has it been since you awakened your powers?" Down the hall, the school bell rings, announcing the end of class. "Go home and check," Young-ho says. "I'm sure you received one too." Myungji watches him for a moment, then turns to leave. The scene shifts to the city, an apartment building during the day. Myungji enters her room and closes the door. Recalling Young-ho's words, she wonders if she received the package while using her powers. Looking at her desk, Myungji tries to remember something she might have missed. She picks up a box and starts searching inside it. She finds a USB drive and wonders if it's what Young-ho was mentioning. Connecting the device to her computer, she clicks on the sole video file. The recording begins, and a figure named Gran appears on screen. Myungji is startled immediately. She recoils when the figure greets her by name. Then, the figure comments, "I should call you Fast Forward." Myungji questions quietly, trying to understand how he knows her name and her power. But the figure asks, "Don't be afraid." The video explains directly. Before, there was only one-time power. Showing old images, the figure describes how an accident split this power into pieces. Now, each person possesses a different fragment. The figure states the danger. Having time power scattered in fragments is not good. The timeline will slowly be destroyed. Fortunately, the powers can be reunited. As a result, they all converged in one place. According to the figure, the problem is that the power has merged with the body. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Myungji understands. The only way to obtain the time power is by killing its possessor. Exactly as he said, the figure states the possibilities. Whoever reunites all the powers could win the lottery, correct any mistake, or even remain young forever. In this way, that person would become the master of time. Concluding the message, the figure states that their position is neutral, and that the video was sent to everyone who possesses a power. The recording ends. The screen displays a message. "You will die first if you decide to do nothing." Shocked by the revelation, Myungji reads, "You cannot avoid this fight." Questioning the situation, she thinks, "I would have to kill others. My power won't help me fight." With her hand on her head, Myungji tries to understand what the Master of Time has to do with her. She believes she won't make it out alive. Her phone vibrates on the table, interrupting her thoughts. The professor's message informs the class. Seonju's funeral will be at the university hospital. Myungji stares at her phone and wonders, what should I do now? The scene changes. The exterior of a university hospital is shown. On a memorial altar, a portrait of Seonju is prominently displayed. Students kneel before the altar, paying their respects. An older woman sits nearby, watching in silence. Myungji sits alone in the reception area, remaining motionless. Someone approaches slowly and asks, "Is this spot taken?" Myungji looks up to see Young-ho standing beside her. Questioning his presence, she stares at him, but he simply replies, "I was in Seonju's class too." Cautiously, Young-ho asks, "Did you find the USB?" "That will speed things up," Myungji comments. She asserts he can't be there. Suddenly, Seonju's mother grabs the girl's arm and shouts her name. The woman desperately asks, "You were close to Seonju. Do you really not know who did that?" Insisting, the The mother says, "You know something." Kneeling before the girl, she asks, "Who killed my daughter?" The other guests watch the scene intently. One of them asks, "What did Seonju do wrong?" The classmate looks away and avoids answering. A man carefully approaches to help Mrs. Lee. He suggests, "You should rest." Crying non-stop, the woman just wonders why. Myongji watches in silence, taking in the whole situation. She returns to her own table and sits alone. Looking down, Myongji remains completely in shock. Firmly warning her, Young-ho says, "Wake up! Your friend tried to kill you. You can't just avoid the situation." Leaning over the table, he asks, "Did you find the kitchen knife?" With concern, Myongji reacts to what he just said. Myongji tries to pull back, quickly denying it, but he confirms his question. Looking away, she repeats in a low voice, "The knife." Opening his backpack without hesitation, Young-ho reveals the object. "I have it," he says. Young-ho informs her, "I wiped your fingerprints. You'll be arrested if the police find the knife. Would your punishment be reduced because you're a minor?" he asks directly. "Why?" she questions. Staring at him tensely, Myongji asks, "What do you want from me?" Bluntly, he replies, "It's obvious." Calmly wiping his mouth, Young-ho invites her, "Go out with me." Police cordon off a crime scene on the street. Officers investigate the scene, examining a car stopped in the middle of the road. An officer greets the newly arrived Detective Do. She immediately asks about the victim. The officer provides the details. He explains the victim was a taxi driver in his 50s. The man was still alive when the call was made, but died in the driver's seat shortly after. Detective Do questions the reason for her presence, reminding them she's on another case and the culprit hasn't been found yet. Her colleague mentions the progress. He states that the autopsy has been performed. He reveals the connection. The victim was killed in the same manner as the student in her case. The detective processes the new information, falling silent for a moment. Then, she concludes firmly, "It's a serial killer." Myongji questions the invitation, wondering about the idea of them going out. Young-ho calmly clarifies, "It's just the best excuse I found to keep us together." Myongji tries to back out, saying, "I don't want to do this," but he reminds her, "Others might come after us again." Young-ho states his intentions. "I don't care about becoming the master of time. I just want to survive, just like you." Myongji gives him a grave look. "You killed Seonju," she reminds him. She recalls the incident, remembering how he brought the knife to the scene. Understanding the situation, she realizes that if she does nothing, he'll keep dragging her into it. She looks him in the eye. "How can I trust you? How do I know you're not lying, since I know nothing about you?" Young-ho watches her in silence, remaining still for a moment. With a slight smile, he breaks the silence. "It's hard to trust me," he agrees. "Give me your hand so I can find out." Suspiciously, the girl asks, "What are you trying to do?" He takes her hand across the table, making contact. Reacting to the touch, Myongji feels his power activate. She sees the impossible. Numbers float above everyone's heads in the hall. Looking around, she asks, "What is that?" Young-ho explains matter-of-factly, "When I touch people, I can see how long they've lived, in numbers. It's like a video's timeline," he compares. "I can show this to anyone I touch." Young-ho continues to explain, "When I joined the class, I saw that most of the students had the numbers I expected." He glances away for a moment, recalling something. In a flashback, he saw her in the classroom. She had lived less than 16 years, even after repeating a year. At that moment, he realized the girl had the ability to fast-forward time. An older man interrupts their conversation. He asks Young-ho to help him move the wreath. Young-ho asks, "What is that?" Looking under the table, the man asks where the wreath is. He escorts the young man away, gesturing towards a door. Myongji understands why he approached her, but still doubts if she can trust him. Glancing at Young-ho's backpack, she realizes she has no choice because of the knife. Myongji lifts her head from the table. She glances to the side. The doorway where Young-ho had left is empty. She grabs the backpack left behind. She gets up from the table, clutching the bag to her chest. She heads for the exit, thinking she might be able to get rid of the knife. In the corridor, she decides she needs to wipe her fingerprints first. Just then, she bumps into someone. She watches the backpack slip from her arms with the impact. She watches the contents scatter across the floor. She glances at the fallen objects. She bends down to pick everything up and apologizes. "Don't worry, I'll get it myself," she says. But Detective Do calls her name, her gaze fixed on Myongji. Myongji asks, "What are you doing here, detective?" She hears that she came to offer her condolences about the case. Then she asks, "Why are you trembling so much?" Myongji clenches her fist tightly. The detective observes the gesture for a few moments. Then she picks up Young-ho's student ID and examines the ID. Holding the card, she states, "That backpack doesn't belong to you." Myongji gives an anxious glance. The woman orders, "Move aside," but the young woman insists on grabbing her items. Then the detective says, "I'll help you." She takes a slight step back. The woman's hand slides to the backpack on the floor. She picks up the fallen backpack. She stands up, holding the backpack, and offers the bag to Myungji. The young woman takes the backpack back and thanks her. She feels Young-ho's touch on her shoulder, coming from behind. The young man asks, "My backpack." Myungji turns to face him, a cold sweat breaking out. He simply asks, "Were you getting this for me?" Detective Du watches the pair from a distance, following them closely. She slowly approaches, closing the distance between them. Reaching out, Young-ho grabs the backpack strap. Taking back the bag, he greets the approaching detective. The detective questions the situation, wanting to know why Myungji had his item. Looking away, the young woman has no immediate answer. Holding Young-ho's hand, Myungji announces, "It's because we're dating." Staring at the girl, he reacts to the unexpected declaration. Facing the two, the detective asks, "Is this true?" Reprimanding the couple, she says, "Show some respect," then she walks away. Watching her leave, Young-ho observes the detective distance herself. Myungji abruptly releases his hand, breaking contact. Turning around, annoyed, she asks, "Did that make you happy?" Then, she questions, "What did you do with the knife?" Facing the young woman, Young-ho asks, "Are you talking about that item?" He reveals what happened, explaining that he used Seonju's power on her while displaying his ability. He quickly hides an object in her jacket pocket. Explaining the move, he states, "I put the knife in your jacket while you were distracted." Raising a hand to her head, Myungji stares at him as he says, "There won't be any more opportunities." Asking directly, Young-ho wants to know, "Are you on my side or not?" Remaining silent for a few moments, Myungji replies, "I am." The scene shifts to the Gungshang Police Department. Focused on her computer, Detective Du continues working. Two colleagues comment that she has been watching footage for hours, searching for witnesses. Interrupting the conversation, another officer mentions, "I heard she was demoted for a mistake." Approaching the two, a young man asks, "Where can I find Detective Myundo?" The officer points the direction for him, and the young man thanks him. Arriving behind her desk, the young man calls her name. Introducing himself, the young man says, "I'm Officer Tae-soo Ham, assigned to your case." Lamenting receiving a rookie, the detective orders, "Sit down." She instructs him, "Check the bottom half of the footage available on my desk." Tae-soo complains about how long that will take, but he is cut off when she orders him, "Stop talking and get to work." The officer remains standing beside her desk, waiting. Asking about her background, he wants to know, "Did you attend the police academy?" The detective confirms. Revealing his admiration, Tae-soo says, "I'm your fan. You were famous in college." He continues, "I heard you graduated first in your class and worked in Seoul." Facing the rookie, the detective orders, "Shut up and get back to work." Quickly agreeing, Tae-soo quiets down as she refocuses on her computer. Noticing something in the footage, the detective narrows her eyes at the screen. Leaning over the desk, the officer comments, "It's an honor to work with someone I respect so much." Shrinking back in his chair, Tae-soo says, "I'll be silent." Maintaining full attention, Detective Du continues staring at the monitor. The footage reveals a possible suspect, a young man outside a convenience store. The camera zooms in on his face, showing a close-up of the individual. Elsewhere, Myungji sits motionless, eyes closed. Suddenly, time distorts, rapidly speeding up around her. Myungji asks, "How was it?" "I advanced 10 seconds. Shaking his head, Young-ho replies, "I didn't feel a thing." He explains the limitation. You can't advance the time of people or your surroundings. The girl pays the price for trying to advance time. She loses consciousness whenever she uses her power. Complaining about the uselessness of the ability, Young-ho questions, "Why bother?" But she yells, "I know that." Handing her a notepad, he explains, "Here's our alibi for the night Seonju died." Myungji watches him, asking where he's going. He replies, "I'm going to lunch with friends." He adds, "I need to keep up the appearance of being sociable, unlike some people." He then bids her a cold farewell. Watching him leave, the girl thinks that if he wanted her power, he could have just killed her. Realizing she can't survive alone, Myungji remembers she was with Seonju after school. Deciding she has no choice but to work with him, she overhears someone comment on her closeness with Young-ho. Startled by a figure appearing before her, the figure says, "Don't be afraid." Outside the school, Young-ho checks his phone while the others chat, until someone asks, "Is the meeting over already?" Approaching with a firm stride, Young-ho says, "Our meeting isn't a coincidence." This makes Detective Du wonder how he knew. Inquiring about the statement made on the day Seonju died, the investigator asks, "Why did you claim you stayed behind to talk to Myungji?" The detective reveals what she found, commenting that she saw something curious in the security footage near Seonju's house. She states, "The young man was alone, 10 minutes from the crime scene and wearing a shirt." Back in the classroom, Officer Tae-soo Ham introduces himself to Myungji, showing his ID. Explaining his presence, he says, "I'm here to investigate Seonju's case." Myungji realizes he waited until she was alone. Realizing the obvious, the girl understands that if the police came for her, they must have gone after Young-ho too. The officer carefully asks, "May I ask you some questions?" Questioning the investigator, the student wants to understand, "What are you implying?" Directly accusing him, the detective states, "You killed Seonju Lee." She questions his change of clothes. Did you take off your jacket on the way home because of Seonju's blood? Young-ho remains silent, taking in the accusation without reaction. He begins to deny it, trying to refute her assumption. He explains their encounter. I met Seonju for the first time the other day. We just exchanged numbers before heading home. He justifies taking off his jacket by saying it was dirty. The detective asks him to recount everything that happened that day. Young-ho begins his account. He followed Myungji after school, and Seonju left them alone. He says they talked for a few minutes in a park. The detective records every detail on her phone. She asks another question. Where were you around midnight last night? He replies that he was home and confirms his father could vouch for him. Putting her phone away, she admits she might have misinterpreted everything. Turning to leave, she apologizes and explains that her job makes her distrust people. Young-ho questions the relevance. The question about midnight has nothing to do with Seonju. Thanking him for his cooperation, the detective walks away without looking back. Continuing on her way, she leaves Young-ho standing in the same spot. Getting into the car where Officer Tae-soo Ham is waiting, Detective Mayan Do refocuses on the case. She asks what Myungji said. Officer Tae-soo Ham replies that there was nothing suspicious. Comparing her notes with those on her phone, she puts the two testimonies side by side. He comments on her handwriting. The officer receives a new order to shut up. The officer suggests the stories match up and perhaps she was mistaken, but the detective insists something doesn't add up. She explains the procedure. It's common for some parts to coincide during a cross-check, but upon deeper analysis, she questions, how can the words and sequence used by both of them be so similar? Falling silent for a few moments, Officer Ham finds no immediate answer. Concluding her reasoning, the detective states, they coordinated their stories before talking to the police. Recalling every detail, she remembers Myungji seemed more surprised than relieved when she approached to help her. Remembering the funeral, she notes the girl was trembling and questioned her presence there. Myeon-do's gaze sharpens. The two of them are hiding something. Meanwhile, Myungji approaches Young-ho to find out what happened. Telling her not to worry, Young-ho says, everything will be fine if you told them about the notebook. He shows her a news article on his phone. There was another murder last night. Questioning the possibility, Myungji asks, was it you? But Young-ho states, I wouldn't have the guts to kill two people in a row. Theorizing about the case, Young-ho comments, if the victim died the same way, the killer must have seen the previous scene and copied it. Concluding quickly, Myungji says, it must be someone else with powers who approached us after realizing one of us was special. But remembering the night, she realizes there was no one else with them. Myungji has a sudden memory. The memory flashes through her mind. Recalling the moment, she sees the shadow of someone moving in an alley. Young-ho asks if she remembered something. Myungji questions, was that you behind the lamppost? He denies it. Slowly processing, she tries to organize the facts. Myungji asks, who was standing there? She plunges into a panic, realizing they already know who we are. It's only a matter of time until we're caught. Pondering for a moment, Young-ho silently reorganizes his thoughts. Suddenly, Young-ho says, this is good. He leaves Myungji confused by his reaction. Explaining his reasoning, he states, since the modus operandi is the same, we can use this person to divert police suspicion. Finalizing the plan, he says, we just need to find out who this person is. Reacting to the suggestion, Myungji stares at the audacity of the idea. Questioning his capability, she asks, how can you think of something like this at a time like this? Continuing to observe him, she ponders the nature of Young-ho's personality until someone catches their attention. Announcing that class is about to start, the man asks, why don't you two go inside? Myungji replies, we'll be right there. She tugs on Young-ho's sleeve. As Mr. Shin walks away down the hallway, she calls his name. Turning calmly, he searches for something in his pocket. Taking out a phone, Mr. Shin examines the screen carefully. Staring at the image, he fixes his gaze without blinking. The photo captures the scene, a dark street lit by a lamppost. The image remains frozen, revealing Myungji over a fallen body. Observing from a distance, Young-ho appears in the background of the scene. He remains still, holding a pointed object wrapped in cloth. The young man moves slowly, approaching Seonju's body lying on the ground. Hidden in the darkness, Mr. Shin watches the entire scene replay before his eyes. Clearly seeing the girl and the boy present on the night of the crime, he grasps the full picture. Clenching his phone tightly, his fingers tremble. Breaking into a wide smile, he savors the discovery. During the night, the Hana Textiles factory keeps its machines running. Inside, the workers remain busy with their tasks. A man analyzes the annual production report and confirms the company's numbers. Closing his clipboard, he finishes the verification. The manager warns that no one will leave until the quota is met. The employee nods in agreement. Going to the warehouse warehouse exit, the manager walks with tired steps. Trying to light a lighter, he seeks some light in the darkness. Why isn't this lighter working? He wonders, persistent in his attempts. Emerging from behind, a hooded person attacks him without warning. Turning urgently, he faces his assailant. As he meets the gaze of the mysterious figure, he realizes the imminent danger. His consciousness fades, and he loses control of his body. Waking up abruptly, the manager regains his senses. Seeing himself in the middle of the tracks, he tries to understand where he is. Sitting on the ground, he questions how this could have happened. Reacting to his own condition, he shows growing panic. Looking at his legs, he tries to comprehend what he's seeing. He screams, "Who did this?" A voice responds, "Your leg is broken." Shin calmly approaches, stating he called him to talk. Shin explains that the trains run without a conductor. The manager asks, "Who are you?" Wanting to know why this is happening, the man is accused of manipulating accounts and denying overtime. Continuing with the accusation, the young man accuses him of harassing and assaulting the female accountants, all while pressing down on his injured leg. Shin reveals that an employee lost an arm 4 months ago and was fired without compensation. Then he calls the manager disgusting. The man admits his mistake and offers money to be released, but Shin reveals the former employee took his own life. As a train approaches, the young man declares, "It is time for you to repent." The manager yells, "We can't stay here," and tries to move. He warns, "We're both going to die," as he watches the train approach. Thrown off the tracks, the man screams, "We're both going to die." Realizing the train passes right through the young man without touching him, the manager stares at the situation in disbelief. Now, on an overhead structure, the young man dissolves into particles above the tracks. Watching the scene, he finds the moment simply magnificent. Concluding he is the only one capable of making the world more beautiful, he reaffirms his conviction. Remaining paralyzed on the ground, the manager doesn't react. In a video, a chained figure named Gran warns, "You will die if you do nothing." Gran continues the warning, "You cannot avoid this fight." Meanwhile, the young man watches on his computer. Realizing he can obtain more powers, Mr. Shin lets the idea take root in his mind. Clenching his fist, he shows his determination to enhance his strength, so he no longer needs to act in secret. Vibrating on the table, his phone interrupts the atmosphere. On the other end of the line, someone apologizes for calling late to discuss the requested transfer. Informing him the transfer should happen next week, the person tries to reassure him. Mr. Shin questions the timeline. The caller explains an urgent opening has come up. Mr. Shin asks, "Where is it to?" Walking toward the SH High School gate, 2 students walk side by side. As they cross the courtyard, Myungji and Mr. Shin overhear other students commenting on a special transfer. Recalling the video where Gran said, "Everyone has been gathered in a specific place," the young man confirms his suspicions. Deciding he needs to obtain all the powers to eliminate evil from society, he continues watching the students running through the courtyard. Accidentally bumping into him while running, a student loses her balance. Stumbling, she lets her phone slip from her hands. Touching the device with her fingertip, she tries to prevent it from falling. Floating in the air, the phone defies gravity. Slowly descending, the phone approaches the ground without impact. Watching the scene, she finds herself facing the unexpected. Quickly picking up her phone, she regains control. Turning around, she tries to understand what just happened. Standing still and looking at his own phone, Mr. Shin keeps his attention focused. Remaining silent for a moment, the girl hesitates to say anything. Running into the school building, the student disappears from the courtyard. Smiling, the young man concludes his first target won't be difficult to capture. Dusk begins to fall, and the day slowly loses its light. Displayed on a phone screen, Seonju Lee's school record appears prominently. Locating Gongwon Street, Mr. Shin confirms the address listed in the document. Analyzing a map with all the security cameras in the area, he studies each position. Counting his steps as he walks down the street during the day, he adjusts his pace. Maintaining the measurement, he proceeds until he completes the 10th step. Drawing new routes on the map, he adapts his path to avoid surveillance. Retracing the route at dusk, he starts counting once again. Finishing the count already at night, he completes the 10th step. Plotting the plan, he decides he can get rid of Seonju Lee the next day. Recalling the scene where he finds her body fallen in the alley, he relives the moment. Returning to the classroom, Young-ho calls out to him. Mr. Shin responds distractedly. "Did you solve the problem on the board correctly?" The student tries to confirm. Staring at the student in silence for an instant, the teacher evaluates the answer. "Good job!" Mr. Shin congratulates the young man and asks him to return to his seat. Handing over the marker, Young-ho's hand brushes against the teacher's. Observing Mr. Shin, the young man keeps his gaze fixed. Suddenly widening his eyes, he recognizes something unexpected. He has a vision. The teacher is wearing a digital watch displaying the exact date and time. There, he realizes the revelation. Young-ho makes his way to his desk. The teacher then refocuses on the lesson. Young-ho questions why the numbers are red. He remembers that having powers shouldn't affect the timeline. He looks at the digital clock behind the teacher and then checks his own wrist. Noticing a change, Young-ho wonders if the teacher just used his power. He notices that only the seconds remain red and tries to understand the pattern. With his special vision, Young-ho follows the time count. He realizes the teacher's timeline changes every 10 seconds, identifying a repetitive pattern. Myungji reacts with surprise. Does the math teacher have powers? She tries to process the information. At the top of the stairs, Young-ho confirms to her, "I'm sure because I saw his timeline." He admits the red numbers bother him and reaffirms, "The teacher has powers." Myungji reflects, "I didn't know that. Is everyone being gathered here like in the video?" She considers it positive that they found out about the powers, believing they can thus avoid him. Turning to her, Young-ho asks, "How should we kill Mr. Shin?" Myungji stares at the young man. He suggests the teacher's power is related to 10 seconds. Stopping him from going down the stairs, she asks, "How are we going to find that out? Why do we need to go that far?" She questions. Young-ho replies, "It's because Mr. Shin has powers." Myungji argues, "We don't need to kill him to get the powers." He states, "That's the obvious thing to do." Explaining that everyone starts with a single power, Young-ho continues to reason. He says everything becomes more dangerous when someone steals powers and reveals, "I myself have two." Myungji insists, "We don't know what kind of person Mr. Shin is. He might not want to fight." She suggests, "At least try to talk to him." Young-ho questions, "How could we trust him? What if the teacher is evil and tries to kill us first?" He reiterates his fear. Myungji expresses that she doesn't want to take the risk and end up getting hurt, trying to avoid the confrontation. Giving up on the discussion, Myungji says, "Do what you want." She turns to leave. Walking away, she reminds the young man, "You said you weren't interested in becoming the master of time." Turning back again, she states, "Young-ho, you have the courage to kill everyone and become the master." Walking down the stairs, Myungji leaves him behind on the landing. Watching her leave in silence, Young-ho remains motionless. Inside the classroom, a student comments, "I still can't believe it. A flower rests on an empty desk." Other students recall that they were all laughing together just a few days ago. They mention that Seonju's mother fainted at the funeral. Questioning how Myungji can be doing so well, one of them suggests, "She's a psychopath." Hearing the speculation that she might have killed Seonju, Myungji tries to keep her composure. Standing up, Myungji walks past the group of students. The group falls silent as she approaches and discreetly backs away. Stopping in front of the flower on Seonju's desk, she observes for a moment. Laying her head on her desk, Myungji seeks some refuge. Remaining there with her friend's flower beside her, she tries to compose herself. In a residential neighborhood, life goes on. Myungji stops in front of a door in a building hallway and hesitates. Reaching for the doorbell, she considers pressing it. Deciding to leave, Myungji steps back, but then stops once more. As a woman climbs the stairs, she spots Myungji there. Recognizing her, the woman calls her name. Inside Seonju's room, her mother apologizes. "I haven't cleaned this place yet." Asking Myungji to make herself at home, the woman tries to be kind. Myungji thanks her. Alone in the room after the door closes, Myungji observes her surroundings. Sighing, she comments, "In the end, I did come all the way here." Approaching Seonju's desk, she examines the objects on it. Picking up a photo strip showing her beside her friend, Myungji holds the captured memory. She remembers how Seonju had forced her to take that photo even after she refused, and relives the memory. A tear falls onto the photograph, marking its surface. Crying, she states, "It wasn't fun at all." Wiping away her tears, she says, "I need a tissue." Pulling a tissue from the box on the shelf, Myungji tries to compose herself. Spotting a USB drive next to the box, she feels a jolt of surprise. Picking it up, she realizes it's exactly like the USB drive she herself received. Holding the object in front of the bookshelf, Myungji tries to understand what she's found. Focusing her eyes on a specific volume titled The Time Rift, she keeps her gaze fixed. Her curiosity grows as she stares at the book. Pulling the volume from the shelf, she prepares to open it. Flipping through the contents, Myungji lets the pages run between her fingers. Her eyes widen at what's written, and she gasps. The book turns out to be a diary filled with detailed notes and investigations about her, exposing secrets. Staring at the information, Myungji absorbs the shocking discovery. Walking outside now, she realizes she had been mistaken the entire time. Deciding she can't stand by just because she doesn't want to fight, Myungji understands that the desire for more power doesn't disappear. Considering the possibility that Seonju might have been one of those people, she questions everything. Concluding that she can't trust Mr. Shin either, she reevaluates her thoughts. Continuing on her way, Myungji regrets having been so hard on Young-ho the day before. Wondering if she should apologize to him, she considers her actions. As she's grabbed by a hooded figure in a dark alley, Myungji loses control of the situation. A masked figure advances without hesitation, moving closer to her. Myungji watches the scene unfold, unaware of the danger surrounding her. The assailant's silhouette appears projected on the ground. Noticing another masked figure running, the young woman becomes alarmed. She turns to escape, trying to flee the menacing presence. The masked figure, observing every move, follows her steps. She turns her face and asks, "What's happening?" Recognizing the figure in front of her, Myungji calls out to him, "Mr. Shin." He remains motionless, staring at the girl in silence. Looking away, she tries to collect her thoughts. He holds a wrapped object in his hand, maintaining the tension in the air. Young-ho's words about the professor echo in her mind, returning as a warning. Hesitating for an instant, she weighs her options. Deciding she needs to escape, Myungji breaks into a run. Running with a pounding heart, she thinks, "I need to reach the main road where there are other people." As she sprints forward, a cloth is swiftly thrown at her face. Grabbing her from behind, Mr. Shin presses the cloth against her mouth. In shock, she remembers he was far away just moments before. Her consciousness begins to fade as she tries to understand how that was possible. Feeling an intense pain in her head, Myungji completely loses consciousness. Waking up, Myungji tries to comprehend her surroundings. She finds herself seated in a chair on top of a building under construction, struggling to breathe. Noticing that she's bound, her body trembles. "Don't move abruptly or your headache will get worse," Mr. Shin warns. He explains that sudden movements will cause severe discomfort, keeping his voice calm. She asks where they are. Mr. Shin replies that it's a construction site near Seonju's house, a quiet place for them to talk. The professor states that there's much to discuss, mentioning that they both possess powers. Myungji questions, "Were you the one watching me that night? And did you also kill the taxi driver?" He confirms it. Mr. Shin replies without hesitation, "Those people were better off dead." He recalls an old scene visualizing a taxi driver driving drunk. He remembers another moment, a taxi driver arguing with a passenger over overcharging. He also mentions a case of premeditated domestic violence, explaining that the police had no evidence to act. "The law cannot help the victims of the pain caused by these people," he states firmly. "Shouldn't someone intervene to stop them?" he asks, showing his unease. He concludes that he only does what needs to be done with the powers he possesses, ending his reasoning. Myungji listens to everything in silence, remaining bound to the chair. She realizes the tape is loose and sees a chance to free herself. Deciding to buy time, she observes his every move. Mr. Shin unfolds a sheet of paper, revealing a handwritten letter. Myungji reacts as she recognizes her own handwriting. It's a suicide note about Seonju's death. He asks rhetorically, "Doesn't the handwriting look identical to yours? No one will find anything strange. You've always had a lot of problems," he mentions. Realizing he plans to fake a suicide, Myungji's blood runs cold. Trying to stop him, she pleads, "Wait a minute, listen to me." Mr. Shin reaches into his coat pocket, his gaze fixed on her. He pulls a cell phone from his pocket and raises the device in front of her. Showing the time on the screen, he unlocks the device with ease. Mr. Shin suddenly appears behind her. Myungji questions, "What are you doing?" He types a message and states, "I'll take this chance to get rid of that rude punk too." Sending the location, he says, "The boy will understand when you die." Grabbing the chair, he starts dragging her while Myungji pleads for him to stop. Myungji screams, "I don't care about the powers. I'll die if this continues," trying to make him back off. Then, a message arrives from Young-ho Kim. The text asks, "Is it time?" Concentrating with all her might, Myungji prepares to act at that instant. Tearing the tape on her wrists, she creates the necessary opening. Freeing herself from her bonds, she gasps for air. Pushing herself backward with the chair, she shoves the professor and tumbles off the building. Falling into the void, she reaches out to him while thinking of her powers. On the edge of the building, Mr. Shin smiles and declares, "I'll use your powers to transform the world into a better place." Plummeting from the building, Myungji felt the wind tear around her. As she fell, she wondered if she would truly die this way. Reaching out, she exclaimed, "I don't want to die, I'm scared." A scream called out to her, making her eyes lift. A young man was watching her from below. Shouting, he pleaded, "Reach out your hand!" Running towards her, he begged, "Hurry!" Even under his gaze, she continued to fall without stopping. Their hands almost touched. Leaping, he managed to grab her hand. Pulling her into his arms, he apologized. "I'm sorry I arrived late," Myungji questioned. "How did you know?" He explained his suspicion about Mr. Shin, revealing that he had been watching him. But upon seeing her captured, he understood the whole situation. Safe on top of the building, the young man caught his breath. Then, he explained explained that Mr. Shin's power was teleportation. Turning to Myungji, he said, "I'll ask again." He took a deep breath while Myungji watched him in silence. Then, the young man questioned, "What should we do to kill Mr. Shin?" Down below, Mr. Shin found them and commented, "I was wondering where you two were." Then he stated, "It doesn't matter. I'll kill both of you anyway." The young man simply declared, "His power has many flaws." Even under Mr. Shin's cold gaze, he remained calm. Calling Myungji closer, he requested, "Listen very carefully," he explained. "The place where you fainted is 100 meters from the construction site. Mr. Shin carried you there. Furthermore, he didn't ascend to the top floor in a single go." Revealing the pattern, he continued, "Mr. Shin used his power every 10 seconds to climb. He can only use the ability every 10 seconds, limited by a short distance." The young man concluded, "The enemy's power has at least 2 weaknesses." Myungji questioned, "The power of time?" He confirmed, "My assumption about the 10 seconds was correct." Smiling, Mr. Shin simply maintained a calm expression. Then he began to laugh loudly. The girl's gaze fixed on him. The young man also watched him. Mr. Shin admitted, "You're clever for figuring everything out." He challenged him, "Attack me." The young man analyzed the situation. Realizing the enemy showed no sign of being rattled, turning to Myungji, he tried to say something, but the girl suddenly collapsed to the ground. Holding her, the young man realized the drug's effects hadn't worn off yet. The young man stared firmly at the enemy. Then, he advanced alone against Mr. Shin. Mr. Shin watched him approach with a relaxed smile. Extending his hand, the young man stated, "I just need to touch him to slow him down." But as he tried to grab him, Mr. Shin dodged the attack. Provoking him, Mr. Shin said, "You're all talk." Pulling out a knife, he questioned, "Was that all you had?" Advancing with the blade, Mr. Shin tried to hit him, but the young man managed to dodge the blow. Mr. Shin observed the movement calmly. Attempting a new attack, Mr. Shin lunged forward again. Prepared for a counterattack, the young man maintained his stance. He landed a kick to the stomach. This made Mr. Shin recoil. With that, he teleported away. The young man caught his breath, stating, "I need to hurry before the 10 seconds are up." Observing intently, Mr. Shin analyzed the approach. Then, the young man ran towards him again. Stretching out his hand, he tried to touch him. Finally making contact, he declared, "I got him." Fallen on the ground, Mr. Shin commented, "That was a powerful kick." Turning quickly, the young man sought to understand. Revealing his trick, Mr. Shin said, "You would have hit me if your power was to advance 10 seconds. Then, the young man questioned, "Can you use your powers consecutively?" Mr. Shin stabbed him without hesitation. That's when he revealed his true ace. "I can also go back 10 seconds in time." Myungji watches. Mr. Shin comments that the young man's attack would have landed if his power was to advance 10 seconds in time. But Mr. Shin reveals that he can also go back 10 seconds. The young man recoils, wounded. Then he realizes his enemy can manipulate time. Mr. Shin explains that he can move as much as he wants by advancing 10 seconds. And he states that he also returns to where he was 10 seconds ago by rewinding. Thus he declares that he can move freely by using both powers at the same time. Mr. Shin concludes that even if hit, he would simply escape. The young man notes that the cut isn't deep, but his ability has become useless, so he grabs a metal pipe to continue fighting. He attacks Mr. Shin with the pipe, but Mr. Shin dodges and comments, "You'll need to be faster than that." Wounded, the young man gasps. Myungji understands that Mr. Shin is just buying time for Young-ho to bleed out. She also realizes that Young-ho can't touch him if the enemy keeps moving like that. An idea sparks in her mind. The girl stares at the fight before her. Young-ho keeps attacking Mr. Shin with the pipe. Mr. Shin provokes him. "Attack me like before." Then Young-ho lunges forward, leaving an afterimage of himself. Mr. Shin turns towards the afterimage. Young-ho uses the distraction to attack again. Myungji follows the scene. Then she picks up a metal pipe. The girl hits Mr. Shin from behind. He turns at the last second. Myungji raises the pipe to attack again, but Mr. Shin kicks her. Young-ho screams, "Myungji!" as she falls. The girl collapses to the ground from the impact. Young-ho glares at Mr. Shin. He stares fixedly at the enemy. Then he runs towards him. He attacks, but Mr. Shin dodges. Mr. Shin states, "You should give up." But Young-ho runs, grabs Myungji, and takes her with him. Mr. Shin watches them. The young man then jumps from the building with Myungji. He clings to the edge of the floor below. Young-ho uses his power to slide safely down the wall. From the top of the building, Mr. Shin watches them. He continues to look down. The young man manages to reach a balcony with Myungji. Finally safe, the two rest. Young-ho comments, "The pillar was cut. We need to go back inside the building." Myungji helps him up as he holds onto a pipe. Once inside, they walk away from the entrance. Myongji notices Yongho is bleeding. She presses her hand against the wound on his stomach. The young man assures her it's not as bad as it looks, but he warns, at this rate, Mr. Shin will catch up to us. Yongho wonders what to do since the enemy is much stronger. Myongji then begins to speak. She reveals, I think I know the weakness of Mr. Shin's power. The girl explains that she watched the enemy use his ability. He alternates, advancing 10 seconds and then rewinding 10. Myongji concludes, Mr. Shin can't use the same power twice in a row. The warehouse remained silent and empty. Suddenly, Mr. Shin appears in the middle of the hallway. He finds their escape pathetic, but he soon spots a blood trail on the floor. Mr. Shin smiles, following the trail. He turns to observe the hallway. Yongho was waiting for him at the end of the path. The young man was panting, but held his position. Mr. Shin asks, is he really trying to save that girl? Yongho retreats behind some boxes, pressing his wound. Mr. Shin walks towards him. He stares at the spot where the young man hid. Then he quickly advances and asks, where do you think you're going? But Mr. Shin's attack stops before hitting Yongho. The young man takes the chance to get closer. Blood dripped from his hand, and Mr. Shin glared at him. Then Yongho grabs him, raising a brick to strike him. Mr. Shin realizes it was all planned, but he asserts, I can simply use my power to go back in time. Yongho swings the brick to hit him. Mr. Shin disappears before being struck. He decides he needs to buy time to deal with the young man slowly. Mr. Shin looks behind him as he notices something. At that instant, he finds himself cornered. He stares at the scene, completely shocked. Myongji was pushing the structure. Mr. Shin stares at her and utters her name. Then the entire metal structure collapses on him. Myongji stands amidst the rubble. Yongho confirms to her, it was exactly as I said. Lying on the ground, Mr. Shin was alternating between advancing and rewinding 10 seconds. He explains, that's why the enemy waited 10 seconds to use his power when he climbed the building. Myongji asks, what will we do? He'll wake up soon. The young man states, we need to kill him. He then asks, weren't you prepared for this after crushing him? The girl justifies herself, saying, I just didn't want him to get hurt. The young man retorts, we'll both get hurt if we don't do anything. Then he picks up his cell phone. He calls emergency services asking for help. Someone is chasing me with a knife. Yongho ends the call, stating, the assailant found me. Then he turns to Myongji. The young man picks up Mr. Shin's knife from the ground and comments, there's still one thing left to do. Myongji watches him. Then he hands the knife to her. Yongho simply asks, stab him. Meanwhile, a car approaches the location. In the vehicle, the driver comments, the dash cam is gone. There are no security cameras in the area. The detective says, it's a relief nothing else happened. But her phone rings. She then answers the call. Surprised, she questions, where are you? She yells for the driver to turn the car around. He asks, what's happening? The detective reveals, it's the killer. The construction site remained dark and silent. The car speeds up and breaks through the security barrier. The vehicle skids to a halt inside the site. The two detectives get out in a hurry. They stare at the building ahead. The driver points upwards and yells, detective! The detective looks at the top of the building. Two people were falling from the sky. Something crashes to the ground. The driver asks, what was that? The detective stares at the scene. She watches two people falling from the top of the building. Then she recognizes one of them as Young-ho Kim. The driver questions the noise he just heard. He tries to understand its origin. Thinking about the impact, he wonders, was that a person? The detective tells Tae-soo to call an ambulance. She runs towards the location. Advancing without hesitation, she ignores the warning that it was dangerous to go alone. Quickening her pace, she weaves through the construction materials. Spotting something ahead, she fixes her gaze. A body lies fallen beneath a pile of rubble. Just ahead, Young-ho appears slumped over cement bags. The detective tries to identify the face. She asks, who is the person next to him? Hearing a noise from the stacks of boxes, she turns. Pointing her gun, she aims towards the sound. Myongji raises her hands. She stares at her, gun still pointed. Tension hangs in the air. Calling her name, she tries to confirm, is that really you? Before that, Young-ho requests, stab me. Myongji reacts with surprise, questioning his request. He explains that Mr. Shin is the serial killer. We'll say it was self-defense, he says. But he states that might not be enough. He insists the situation needs to look critical. Asking her to hurry, he wipes her fingerprints from the knife before handing it to her. Holding the knife in her hands, Myongji hesitates. Looking away in silence, she tries to decide. Exchanging glances for a moment, they both remain still. Dropping the knife, she refuses to obey. She tries to comfort him, saying, I understand what you're saying, and I know it must be frustrating. But she backs away, stating, I don't want to hurt someone else just so I can live. Watching her, Young-ho remains quiet. Smiling shortly after, he eases the tension. He reveals, that's why I decided to join you. He simply asks for her help. Starting to stir on the floor, Mr. Shin tries to get up. Grabbing the knife, Young-ho walks toward the balcony. Myung-ji watches him advance. Looking up at the top of the building, he assesses the situation. The view from above reveals the height of the fall. Myung-ji asks, "What is he going to do?" She watches as the young man leans over the body. Lifting the body from the ground, he puts it on his back. This surprises her. In the distance, a car squeals its tires as it approaches the scene. Turning to Myung-ji, he asks, "Pay attention." He explains the story. "We'll say we fought with Mr. Shin and fell without knowing the reason for the attack." He asks if she understood. Myung-ji questions, "What are you doing?" With the body on his back, Young-ho throws himself from the building, gaining momentum. Falling together, the two plummet. Myung-ji watches the scene. Looking down during the fall, he stares at the approaching ground. From the ground, the two detectives look up. A large amount of cement appears scattered on the ground. Young-ho and the other body plunge through the air. Hitting the ground with a thud, the bodies stop falling. In front of the medical center, an ambulance was waiting. Lying on a stretcher, Young-ho says, "I'll be fine." "Don't worry." Saying goodbye, he tries to reassure them. "I'll see you later." Silently agreeing, Myung-ji watches him being taken away. Rushing over, a paramedic asks, "Get out of the way." The detective informs Myung-ji, "You can leave once your guardian arrives." She warns her, "Don't leave town. You're not off the hook yet." Rushing up to the detective, Tae-soo talks about Seol Shin. He describes the report, revealing that the cause of death was blunt force trauma, likely sustained during the fall. Reprimanding his partner, the detective tries to contain the situation. "Don't say that in front of other people." Turning to Detective Do, he states, "We need you at the reception desk." The detective suggests she go to the restroom first. "Your family will be surprised to see you," she comments. Pointing the way, the restroom sign directs the path. In the hospital restroom, Myung-ji stands still in front of the sink. She realizes that Mr. Shin actually died. She processes the shock, and that meant Young-ho had taken his powers. If that were the case, he now possessed 3 powers. Leaving the restroom, she questions herself. Was that right? But realizing she forgot her phone by the sink, she stops in her tracks. Turning back, she admits to herself, "I was distracted." Suddenly, time around her begins to rewind. Surprised, she asks, "What just happened?" A doctor tries to reassure Young-ho, informing him that the wound isn't very deep. He warns that Young-ho might feel dizzy from losing a lot of blood and advises caution. The doctor explains he gave him a large room because of his father and asks Young-ho to say hello. Leaving the room, the doctor tells the young man to rest and concludes his visit. Sitting on the bed, Young-ho sighs and states that Mr. Shin's case is closed. He wonders if he should try to use the power and assesses the situation. Deciding to fast forward 10 seconds first, he tries it out, but nothing happens, and he questions what went wrong. Getting up, he tries to understand how he should use his newly acquired power, searching for a clue. He has a sudden revelation and fixes his gaze. The image of Mr. Shin's body under the debris returns sharply to his mind. Realizing something, he utters Myung-ji's name. In the hallway, the girl finds herself back outside the restroom and wonders what happened. Realizing that this is Mr. Shin's power and that Young-ho didn't take it, she takes a deep breath. Staring blankly ahead, she tries to process the information. She remembers that the only way to obtain the power of time is by killing its wielder, and she faces the truth. Standing in front of the mirror, she realizes what happened. This means she had killed the math teacher. With the revelation, she stumbles backward. Being pulled out of the restroom by the power itself, she loses her balance. She wonders why the power seems to have a will of its own and tries to understand its flow. She has a sudden revelation and looks down the hallway. Starting to understand how the power of time works, she connects the pieces. Finally discovering how to use it, she tests her own control. To fast forward 10 seconds, she needs to walk forward. To rewind, she must walk backward. She concludes that she discovers how to use powers as soon as she obtains them and accepts the logic. A small boy appears in front of her and interrupts her train of thought. Staring intently at her, the boy frowns. Staring back at the boy, she remains calm. Startled to see her disappear, the little boy backs away as his mother approaches. The boy tries to say the girl vanished and points. Hidden, Myung-ji thinks she had a narrow escape. Parked in front of a residential building, police cars block the view. Commenting that Seol Shin truly was the serial killer, Tae-soo breathes a sigh of relief. Observing the case investigation board, the two analyze the final clues. Getting chills at the thought that the killer was a teacher, Tae-soo grips the folder tighter. Staring thoughtfully at the board, the detective reviews every detail. She says there's something strange and catches Tae-soo's eye. Questioned by him, the detective tries to organize her thoughts. She explains that the killer murdered all those people and managed to escape, but then she frowns. But Tae-soo wonders, puzzled, how Shin was caught by two high school students, reporting that, according to Myungji's testimony, the two attacked him at the same time. Tae-soo quotes the report. The detective remembers that all the victims were adult men who had committed some kind of crime and crosses her arms. Pointing to the markings on the map, he indicates what appear to be security camera locations. Passing through the hallway, a police officer carries a box with the suspect's computer. Asking the officer to let her take a look, the detective raises her hand. Handing the box to the detective and telling her to return it when she's done, the officer continues on his way. Inside the box, there was a hard drive and a small camera. Questioning if he'll have to check the footage again, Tae-soo sighs. The detective, however, merely comments that she thought he liked it. Telling them to head back to the station, the detective ends the discussion. Taking the camera from the car's dashboard, she says she'll look at it later. Peeking out from the bathroom, Myungji wonders if the boy has already left. She steps out, thinking that even though she's practiced, she fears the power might activate on its own. Myungji controls her breathing. Walking down the hallway, she wonders if she should tell Young-ho, but she concludes he must have already found out. When her name is called, she turns around immediately. Standing there, a girl named Yeonji complains, "It's annoying when people call me by my first name." Myungji asks what she's doing there. The girl explains, "The police called me because of an accident." Yeonji crosses her arms, complaining, "This situation is annoying, especially since you seem fine." Turning to leave while Myungji thanks her for coming, Yeonji maintains her impatient tone. Yeonji says, "I'm leaving now, text me later," and she continues on her way. Yeonji asks, "Do you need a ride home?" Myungji simply says, "The police called me." Ignoring the answer, Yeonji starts to walk away while Myungji remains silent. Stopping and turning around, the girl says, "There's something strange." Myungji asks, "What do you mean?" Yeonji narrows her eyes and comments, "You're different from last year," and asks firmly, "This time you're not going to pretend to be mute, are you?" 2 years earlier, a woman joyfully announces that everything is ready. Holding up a piece of paper, she informs the family it's time to choose their summer vacation destination. The rules are clear. Everyone must write down the place they want to visit on a piece of paper. On the table, 4 destination options await the family's choice. Myungji remembers that last year they went to the beach. Yeonji, for her part, asks, "Where do you want to go?" Yeonji suggests an alternative. "We should visit Tutuland. All my classmates have already been there." She asks Myungji to write down the park's name and promises that if it's drawn, she will go. While the father insists his fishing trip could still be the choice, the mother moves to pick one of the papers. The drawn paper reveals the destination, the beach, Myungji's suggestion. Dropping his fishing rod on the floor, the father expresses his disappointment with the result. Yeonji stands up and questions, "Why do we have to go to such a boring place every year instead of Tutuland?" Her father interrupts her. "Are you done talking? Your sister also wants to go somewhere." Continuing his scolding, he criticizes her behavior even before they've left the house. Lamenting the situation, Yeonji complains, "All the other kids have already gone there, and I'm the only one who hasn't seen the place yet." She turns and leaves, saying she doesn't care. "You can go to the beach or wherever you want." Closing her bedroom door, Yeonji leaves the rest of the family standing in the living room. Night falls over the apartment building, covering the area. Later, Myungji sleeps peacefully in her bed. Suddenly, she opens her eyes and wakes up. Myungji finds her mother in the kitchen and asks, "What are you doing?" Her mother simply comments, "You're awake." Her mother works in silence, preparing gimbap for the next day's trip. She describes the different fillings for each, continuing the task until Myungji interrupts her. "Can we go to the amusement park?" Turning slowly, her mother looks at her daughter for a moment. Sitting down with her, her mother asks, "Wouldn't you be disappointed?" Myungji replies, "But Yeonji really wants to go." The girl insists, adding, "We already went to the beach last year." Her mother rubs her face, trying to ease her tiredness. With a slight smile, her mother comments, "Yeonji must be lucky to have such a sweet sister." Agreeing to change plans, her mother says she'll talk to their father about saving the beach for next year. Recognizing her daughter's behavior, she states, "You're very reliable, I'm proud of you." Finally, she asks Myungji to keep looking after her sister, receiving only a nod of agreement. During the day, the scene shifts to a schoolyard. Inside the classroom, Myungji remains seated at her desk while other students chat. A classmate taps her desk, trying to get Myungji's attention. She's watching a Frieren Manhwa video on her phone. The boy asks, "Do you know why Young-ho didn't come to school? You two seemed close." Myungji replies that she doesn't know but promises to ask. The classmate thanks her. Wondering if he was too hurt to have missed school, Myungji decides she should call Young-ho. Suddenly, she has an idea and adjusts her phone. Analyzing the video carefully, Myungji begins to explore every detail. She fast-forwards and rewinds the video in 10-second intervals, searching for something specific. In the USB video, it's revealed that people with powers were spread out, and that Young-ho could see their lifespans. Media player functions appear distributed among each person. Noting everything in her notebook, Myungji wonders what other abilities might exist. She lists pause and rewind abilities, imagining what others could be useful. Suddenly, her phone vibrates. Myungji receives a message from the teacher. The principal wants to see her immediately to discuss a recent incident. Standing before the principal's office door, she wonders what's happening, as she's never been there before. Upon entering the room, Myungji says she heard he was looking for her. The principal then invites her in and tells her to sit down. Once seated, he comments, "This must be difficult. I don't know what to say about the recent incident." Expressing surprise, the principal states, "I had no idea Mr. Shin was like that. How could he do something so atrocious?" He informs her that he has already spoken with the police and explains the case's progress to Myungji. Revealing the decision, the principal says they will not disclose the criminal's identity, which surprises Myungji. Clarifying the reason, he comments, "Students would be shocked to learn that one of their teachers was a serial killer. Nothing good would come of that." Declaring the next steps, the principal states, "The police will announce possible accomplices and keep the investigation open." Young-ho will be away from school for a few days. Placing great responsibility on Myungji, he asks, "Be careful not to say anything to anyone." Agreeing silently, Myungji receives the principal's thanks for her understanding before being dismissed. Immediately after Myungji leaves, the principal closes the office door and the room returns to silence. Picking up his phone, the principal starts a call. When asked what happened, he replies, "I did as we agreed." Continuing the conversation, he hears the other person reassure him, promising to take care of the rest. Walking down a street outside, Myungji wonders, are they really going to cover up the case? Reflecting on the matter, she considers that perhaps it's for the best, because if the news spread, other people with powers would pay attention to them. Admitting to yet another concern, she feels the weight of her worries. Spotting a shadowy silhouette in an alley, she forgets to breathe for a moment. The memory of the attack flashes back to her mind, and she questions if she'll survive next time. Realizing that if she does nothing, someone will come back for her, Myungji concludes that they need to take the initiative. But as she tries to decide what to do, Myungji hears someone calling her name. Standing there, Young-ho looks at her, leaving Myungji confused. Myungji asks, "Why aren't you at the hospital?" Young-ho replies that he's fine, as long as he's careful. He says it's the weekend and explains, "We need to go somewhere." When Myungji asks where, he turns the question back to her. Revealing his intention, he states, "We need to find the other people with powers." Startled by the idea, Myungji reminds him, "Mr. Shin was the only one we knew." But Young-ho assures her, "We have a big clue." Taking a USB drive from his pocket, he shows the object to Myungji. Explaining what he discovered, Young-ho says, "That device has a normal serial number. This means there's a record of its manufacturing and delivery." Concluding his reasoning, he states, "Nobody knows more about these people than the person who sent the USB drive. We need to find them." Myungji and Young-ho are standing in front of the elevator. Myungji asks Young-ho if he knows where they need to go. Young-ho explains what he discovered. He researched the USB drive's manufacturer, a small company with an office about 2 hours away. Myungji is surprised by the distance. Young-ho states there's no time to lose and that he did the research as soon as he got the device. Myungji hesitates for a moment, watching the elevator doors close. The doors suddenly open, revealing Yeonji standing before them. Myungji turns and looks at her sister, Yeonji. Young-ho asks who the girl is. Myungji explains that she's her younger sister. Yeonji accuses Myungji of bringing a boy home, pushing her aside as she passes. Keeping her head down after the encounter, Myungji tries to compose herself. "Don't worry," Young-ho says, trying to lighten the mood. Young-ho comments that the two of them probably don't get along. Myungji, while typing the door's password, explains that they had a big fight. Once inside the house, Myungji asks what the plan is for when they arrive at the company. She argues that the company won't simply reveal who they sent the USB drives to, and asks what their strategy is. Suggesting a strategy, Young-ho proposes that they pose as college students for a while. Myungji greets with a big smile, adopting a cheerful tone. Sitting at the table, a man asks, "Are you the students who called earlier?" The employee scolds them for coming on a weekend. Myungji assures him it's fine since they came at the last minute. He asks if they're there for an assignment. The girl confirms, explaining that the visit is worth extra credit. The man explains the office is small because most of the work happens at the factory, and then continues the conversation. He goes on to say that here, they only verify sales and net profit before moving on. Guiding them to a file room, he mentions that the most they do there is print records or track where orders were sent. Myungji asks if there's a list of all products sold. The employee denies it, explaining they only keep records from the past few months. Intervening, Young-ho states, "I recently bought a company USB drive and would like to see the record for my presentation." Hesitating for a moment, the employee glances at the files. Young-ho stares intently at the employee's reaction, his focus unwavering. But the man refuses the request, stating that the records are confidential, even if they don't seem like it. Young-ho then asks him to explain more about the sales distribution process. The employee agrees. Stepping away to retrieve the information, the man leaves the two young people in the file room. Young-ho signals to Myung-ji, who nods back. He whispers that he'll give the signal when he finds the documents. Young-ho watches her turn to the man and ask if she can use the restroom. The plan is deception. Myung-ji will pretend to go to the restroom and use her power to go back 10 seconds in time to the file room. Stepping away little by little, she begins the 10-second countdown. She turns around as she continues the count, preparing to use her ability before time runs out. Rushing down the hallway, she completes the count and transports herself back to the file room. Confirming the plan worked, Myung-ji breathes a sigh of relief. She rushes towards the filing cabinets, quickening her pace. Opening one of the cabinet doors, she examines the contents. She finds a device with the serial number she was looking for and recognizes the clue. Grabbing a binder, Myung-ji begins flipping through the documents. She finds a spreadsheet of orders and shipments from the fourth quarter of 2020 and moves through the pages. Searching carefully, she finds the product code that matches the device's serial number. Following the line of the document with her finger, Myung-ji looks for the corresponding shipping information. Looking back, Young-ho watches the office entrance. A man enters the premises. He asks Mr. Hong what he's doing. Mr. Hong explains he's showing the space to some college students. The newcomer asks where the other student is and hears that she went to the restroom. Questioning if there's something to hide in their company, the man seems to grow suspicious. Typing the code to open the file room door, Mr. Hong prepares to enter. Opening the door, he looks into the dark room. Entering the file room, Mr. Hong finds no one. Raising a hand to his face, he tries to make sense of it. "I must be really tired," he comments, noticing an open filing cabinet. Waiting on a station platform, Myung-ji and Young-ho await the train. "It's already dark," she comments, looking around. Young-ho wonders if they'll catch the last train home. He says they'll spend the night out and argues, "Since we came all this way, we should find the man." Myung-ji agrees with the suggestion and accepts the idea. Myung-ji explains she didn't tell anyone about staying out all night. Young-ho suggests she just call them. Going down the escalator at Sujeon Station, she tries to say it's not exactly that. Myung-ji explains that since they met Yeonji earlier, it would be a bit strange to call and tell them. Staring at the girl, Young-ho tries to understand the situation. "I didn't imagine the person behind the USB drive would be in a place like this," he comments, sharing his surprise. Myung-ji finishes his sentence. They're in the countryside. Walking along a dirt road in the countryside, Myung-ji and Young-ho proceed in silence. Arriving at a fenced building, they find what appears to be the old Sujeon Station. The sign displays a notice. The station was closed on January 1st, 2021. Now, people must use the new Sujeon Station. Observing the abandoned site, Myung-ji takes in the scene. Night falls over the small town, covering everything. Sitting in a cafe, Young-ho uses a laptop while Myung-ji looks at her phone. She shows him her phone screen. The only information she got is that the delivery was made to Sujeon-huli. Myung-ji looks out the window, observing the dark road outside. Turning to Young-ho, she asks, "Would the person we're looking for really be here?" He replies that he's reviewing the video from the USB drive. "Maybe we missed something," he comments. Turning the laptop toward her, he explains he increased the image brightness. She comments that the image looks the same and narrows her eyes. Young-ho points to the right corner of the screen. In the corner, the phrase, "staff only," catches Myung-ji's attention. She wonders what that means. "It's a public place," she concludes. "Nobody would put a sign like that in their house." He says he tried to restore the voice on the audio. "I can't hear anything, no matter how much I turn up the volume." Young-ho yawns and concludes, "We'll have to infiltrate the delivery company." Myung-ji agrees. "I only hear static. There will be a lot of people there." Myung-ji ponders. "It won't be easy." Suddenly she asks, "Do you hear a sound at the end of the video?" She tries to check something, but he replies, "I don't know what you're talking about." Myung-ji brings her hand to her head, trying to remember where she heard that sound before. Standing on the station platform, a train waits. She realizes the source of the sound. It was the train. The scene shifts to the Gunseong police station at night. Someone throws a file folder onto the table, showing irritation. Flipping through the file, an officer concludes, "The case ended in vain." Another officer enters the room. The first officer muses that all the evidence was very solid. The newcomer claps Tae-soo on the back. "Congratulations! Your first case was a big one," he comments. "It's a shame you can't talk about it because of the gag order." "I can't take the credit," Taisu states. The other officer invites him to the first company dinner of the year. "I can handle my liquor," Taisu states confidently and smiles. Looking at Detective Doe, who is still working at her desk, he observes her concentration. "Isn't Detective Doe joining us?" he asks, awaiting a response. But the other officer intervenes. "Leave her alone. She needs to finish something," his colleague insists. But Taisu has already checked all the files. Remaining at her desk, Detective Doe stays focused on her computer screen. Her gaze remains fixed on the monitor. She watches the video from the USB drive. Gran's image appears on the screen. Detective Doe then understands the nature of that power, the ability to fast forward and rewind 10 seconds. Back at the abandoned station, Young-ho tells Myong-ji, "You were right," he explains. "The USB drive arrived near Christmas last year, when the station was still open. That's why the train sound was recorded." Myong-ji asks, "Did he also fast forward time during Christmas?" "Anyway," Young-ho suggests, "let's hop the fence to investigate." She climbs over and jumps the wire fence. Young-ho advises her, "Don't feel guilty. Myong-ji doesn't understand what he means." Young-ho continues, "Knowing you, I'm sure you're blaming yourself for what happened to Mr. Shin." He reassures her, "There's no need for that. It wasn't your fault," he says. Myong-ji agrees quietly. Young-ho lifts her and helps her over the other side of the fence. She starts to thank him but hesitates before continuing. Myong-ji grabs his arm and confronts him. "This time, you took Mr. Shin's power." He explains, "I was only cooperating with you because I didn't see you as a threat." But Young-ho warns, "If you take all the powers, I don't know how your way of thinking might change." She lets go of his hand. He asks, "Is everything all right?" Myong-ji looks around and questions, "Is this really the place? We only came for the train sound." Young-ho affirms, "We need to search anyway. The information from the USB drive's owner is valuable." He continues, "If we find out what the powers are and where they're located, we'll practically be the winners." She observes that there are no other buildings nearby. Myong-ji stops and looks at a sign with a circular logo. She illuminates the sign with her phone and recognizes the logo from the video. Myong-ji calls Young-ho. "Look what I found." She looks up. Under the starry sky, she concludes, "We've arrived at the right place." Myong-ji points to an arrow on a sign. Young-ho agrees to follow, but he's emphatic. "We can't turn back now." Walking along the tracks, Myong-ji comments on the number of signs. Young-ho observes, "Whoever did this has been busy since January." Myong-ji asks why there are so many signs and adds, "They draw a lot of attention." Young-ho finds it strange that someone in neutral territory wouldn't hide their location. He mentions the USB drive left so obviously. He concludes they could have simply scratched off the serial number and expresses his distrust. "The reason doesn't matter," Young-ho says. "All that matters is they answer our questions." He adds, "I'll kill them if I have to find out the truth." Young-ho asks if Myong-ji knows the attack plan and begins a new explanation. He explains they'll use slow-motion playback and 10-second fast-forward. He states they'll have a chance to win if they get close. Myong-ji illuminates a train crossing sign with her phone and moves forward. She notices they've reached the end of the line and slows her pace. Before them, a shipping container. Young-ho confirms, "This is the place." Young-ho opens the door, steps inside, and illuminates the dark interior with a flashlight. Following him, Myong-ji observes the messy room. Young-ho comments that the place looks abandoned for a while as he examines the surroundings. Myong-ji agrees. "It doesn't look like anyone's been here recently." A sudden noise startles her. "Did you hear something?" Myong-ji asks, trying to understand. But Young-ho didn't notice anything. Myong-ji approaches a closed door and reaches out to open it. Taking a deep breath, she prepares before turning the doorknob. Her phone's light reveals a cat on the floor. Myong-ji stares at the scene. The animal jumps from a box towards her, making her flinch. "It was just a cat," she comments. Suddenly, she feels something bump into her from behind. She's terrified to find a mannequin standing right behind her. Screaming in fright at the figure, Myong-ji loses her balance. Young-ho rushes to her. "What happened?" Helping her up, he says, "It's okay." They both look at the fallen mannequin and analyze the figure. Myong-ji recognizes it from the video. She realizes it was just a mannequin. Young-ho turns, illuminates the area with his phone, and continues his search. He finds the filming equipment and the mannequin, putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Turning in another direction, he shines the light on a new door. Opening the door with the sign, "Authorized personnel only," he states, "I found it." He concludes that's where the video was recorded and adjusts his flashlight. Young-ho sees a door open and hears a voice, "Your noisy guests." Myong-ji watches the cat walk towards the newly opened door and holds her breath. "Fast forward the video," Myong-ji orders, and focuses. "Give me the timeline," Young-ho asks, preparing his phone. They see someone pick up the cat and then realize who sent the video. A child with short hair appears holding the animal. "I am Record," the child introduces themselves, ending the suspense. Young-ho and Myong-ji stare at the child, who yawns. "Was it you you who sent the video? Myungji questions, staring at them. Record murmurs, don't judge a book by its cover. Record, with a calm voice, explains that they record everyone's memories with their ability. They state that these memories will be passed on if their body dies. They state, I am much older than both of you, and practically immortal. Record lets the comment hang in the air. And having lived so long, they say they noticed the collapse in time and sent the video before it was too late. How did you know who we were and where we lived? Myungji asks. Record replies, that's another one of my abilities. Record reveals, I can see everything you do or say. The statement leaves them both tense. Praising Yongho, Record comments, you're doing well and have already taken care of two. The young man, however, ignores the praise. Approaching Yongho questions, how many more are there? When and how will time collapse? But Record merely asks, why would I answer that? Questioning them back, Yongho states, the choice of the Time Master should be fair. There's no reason to give that information, Record replies, sighing. Do you think I'll just give you answers just because you found me? Record asks, staring at Yongho, who holds his phone. Myungji gives a nod, and Yongho readies himself. The two prepare to advance. Charging at Record at high speed, they initiate their attack. Seeing them approach, the child turns to watch them. You left me no choice, Record states, her gaze hardening. Myungji and Yongho feel an invisible impact hit their eyes, sending them off balance. Myungji is suddenly bombarded by fragments of countless memories, barely able to react. Struggling to process the deluge of information, she gasps for air. Falling to the ground alongside Yongho, Myungji's strength gives out. Clutching her head, Myungji gasps. It feels like my head will explode. She hears Record declare, I already knew how you would act. Yongho also hunches over, trying to bear the pain. The child asks, are you going to try and kill me to steal my power? How dare you say such a thing? Record asks, raising her voice indignantly. Record raises her voice, questioning if they would dare kill her to seize her power. Myungji and Yongho writhe in pain, reacting to the mental assault. With a firm expression, Record reveals her power to force memories onto others. She advises them to give up, warning that their brains might melt. But Yongho glares at her from the floor, gasping for breath. Observing his reaction, Record remains still. Reaching out and touching the ground, Yongho tries to collect himself. Of course, Record replies, confirming his suspicion. Record sighs, stating that she didn't want to do this to them either. The two slowly stand up, watching Record. She steps back and says she'll tell them something. Gesturing to a diagram of connected blocks, Record presents her next explanation. She explains that she can predict the future using the collected memories, claiming that everyone is her eyes and ears. Telling Yongho that his questions were useless, she leaves him confused. She changes the state of some blocks on the diagram, altering the projection. She reveals the verdict. The questions were useless because they will both die soon. In disbelief, Myungji questions if they will really die, trying to comprehend. She argues that one can't be certain, but hears Record assure her, it's a fact, like a film that cannot be changed. Record takes a deep breath, revealing that there is only one way to survive. And that way is for one person to take all the powers for themselves. Yongho concludes that this means one of them has to die. He receives confirmation that this was already in the video. Record states that only one person can become the master of time, and says they are merely delaying the inevitable. Turning to Myungji, Yongho sees his companion with her head bowed. Record shows the memory of their handshake, and the scene shifts. The vision deepens, revealing Myungji's doubt about Yongho's intentions. No, Myungji says, raising her face. Standing up, Yongho asks, should we simply accept that our fate is decided? He hardens his gaze, stating that regardless of what she saw, he will keep fighting. Watching him in silence, Record doesn't react. Record warns them that they will soon be in danger. She emphasizes that they should consider the proposal, as it's the only way to survive. Staring at Record in silence, Myungji and Yongho hold their breath. Record bids them farewell with a goodbye, ending the encounter. Suddenly, a figure flashes past the window. A shot rings out, and Record's silhouette vanishes in a flash. Turning towards the sound, Yongho reacts. Myungji flinches at the sudden sound, losing her breath. Grabbing his companion, the young man throws himself aside as multiple projectiles pierce the container. Pushing her to the ground, he yells, "Get down!" as more shots hit the spot. Shattering under the continuous impact, the windows give way. Looking back towards the shattered window, Yongho tries to understand. The shots continue to embed themselves in the same spot on the floor, perfectly aligned. Realizing they aren't the target, he takes a deep breath. Outside, the attack ceases, leaving the night quiet once more. Yongho straightens up, commenting, "Everything stopped." Carefully approaching the window, he tries to look outside. Pointing to a distant building, he says the shots came from there. Remaining silent inside the room, the two observe. Realizing Record knew she was going to die, Yongho speaks softly, and Myungji agrees. The young man connects the dots, recalling the explanation that memories are transferred to the next body after death. Myongji takes a deep breath, concluding that Record simply moved to another body. Turning towards the abandoned building where the shots originated, the scene shifts. A tied-up person struggles to move, trying to wiggle her fingers over a circuit board. Twisting in the chair next to the recently fired weapon, the woman tries to free herself. Gagged, she continues to struggle. Tears stream down her face, mirroring her trembling. Suddenly, she opens her eyes, revealing Record's gaze. Breaking the ropes binding her to the chair, Record regains movement. Snapping the wire connecting her to the circuit board with her free hand, she breaks free. Tearing the gag from her mouth, she takes a deep breath. Standing up, Record comments, "It's been a while since I was in a woman's body." Staring straight ahead in her new body, she adjusts her breathing. She comments on the 10-second forward and back tactic and finds their calmness concerning. Announcing, "It's time to begin." Record picks up a small device. The next day, routine attempts to settle back into school. Myongji walks silently through the corridors. Although little time has passed since Record took her own life, the memory still weighs heavily. The tragedy of the building they were in exploding left deep scars. Narrowly escaping, the two survived. Returning to the present, Myongji looks to the side. Feeling a pang, she brings her hand to her mouth. Entering the restroom, she realizes something has been burning inside her body ever since Record inserted the memories. Standing before the mirror, Myongji pulls down her eyelid to examine her eye. She finds nothing wrong and tries to take a deep breath. Suddenly, she stops. She feels the ability activate. Her vision shifts to a basketball court. Myongji observes the scene as a ball bounces in front of her. Picking up the ball, she recognizes one of the memories Record showed her. A light-haired young man appears before her and asks, "Who are you?" As she shoots the ball towards the hoop, the memory advances. The image of a smiling young man becomes clear in her mind. Myongji recognizes Yongho, but realizes she's never seen him smile like that. She tries to understand. Realizing the young man on the court must have been Yongho's friend, she stares at the memory. The scene abruptly changes. The same friend is shown being strangled. Myongji wonders what's happening. She sees a timer appear over the image. Time runs out, and the young man's body goes limp. Returning to reality, Myongji gasps in the restroom. Leaning on the sink to catch her breath, she feels the gaze of another student emerging from a stall. Myongji questions, "Did Yongho kill his own friend to steal the power of the timeline?" She freezes. Exiting the restroom, she hears someone call her name. Yongho approaches, inviting her to lunch. Meanwhile, another classmate complains, "Is he eating with her again?" The young man just smiles and calls out to her to come along. Myongji stares at him, still paralyzed by the memory of the vision. In the cafeteria, the two sit down at a table to eat. Myongji stares at her tray, not touching her food, trying to compose herself. Leaning across the table, Yongho moves closer to her face. He asks, "What's wrong?" He tries to understand her silence. Myongji doesn't hide her discomfort and accuses him. "You're avoiding me." He reassures her, saying they couldn't get any information from Record. A girl approaches with a tray, interrupting their conversation. She asks, "Is this spot taken?" Myongji stares at her for a moment, assessing the situation. She asks, "Who are you?" Myongji notices the girl's disappointed expression at not being recognized. The girl introduces herself. "I'm Ga-in Kong, from the school newspaper. We're in the same class." Ga-in sighs, complaining, "Myongji, how can you not know my name after all these months?" Myongji apologizes. The newspaper girl insists, "I'll forgive you if you follow me on social media," she explains. "My goal is to be followed by everyone at school. I handle publicity." "I don't have any kind of account," Myongji denies, leaving Ga-in silent. Myongji gets up to leave, stating, "I'm busy," but Ga-in stops her, saying, "I have something to ask." Stopping, Myongji turns to hear the question. Ga-in questions her about Mr. Shin, who transferred right after Seonju. "I believe you know something." Myongji apologizes. "I can't help." Turning away, she walks from the table, leaving Ga-in and Yongho behind. Yongho sighs, commenting, "You shouldn't have asked." He says he also wants to join the school newspaper and asks, "Is there an opening?" Walking through an outdoor area of the school, Myongji tries to calm down. Stopping as she hears someone approach, she holds her breath. The detective calls out, "I found you." Myongji waits, asking, "What do you want?" The detective replies, "The case is closed and Mr. Shin is Seonju's killer." She observes Myongji's reaction. "I understand." Myongji tries to close the subject, but the detective states, "There are too many unanswered questions." The detective frowns. She finds it strange that the police haven't released a statement about a serial killer attacking students without motive. Concluding that everything is very bizarre, the detective takes a deep breath. She reveals, "I found a USB drive inside Mr. Shin's house." The detective watches Myongji intently. Myongji recognizes the object. The detective continues, "The contents describe people with temporal abilities who kill to steal each other's powers." The detective stares at her and asks, "Do Do you know something? Myongji clenches her fist. I don't know anything, Myongji states. It's probably just someone messing around, the detective agrees. She reaches into her jacket pocket. Pulling out a small USB drive, she displays the object between her fingers. Myongji is surprised to see another USB drive and freezes. The detective warns, you won't escape so easily. Taking the object in her palm, Myongji tries to understand. Suddenly, the detective points a gun at her head. I also have powers, she reveals. The detective asks with a firm gaze if Myongji didn't expect a police officer to have powers. The detective concludes that Seonju, Yongho, Mr. Shin, and she herself possess powers and have killed one another. Then, she pulls the trigger. Closing her eyes, Myongji braces for impact. With an empty click, the gun doesn't fire. The detective, with coldness, deduces that Myongji can't use her powers without being in motion. She warns that the next bullet is real and threatens Myongji not to say anything foolish. Myongji reveals that she can fast-forward time, but admits she doesn't remember anything when it happens. Lowering her gun, the detective takes a deep breath. She sits next to Myongji and asks, was it Yongho who killed Seonju? Myongji hesitates, thinking he wouldn't be capable. But then, she remembers that Yongho transferred on the day of the incident. The detective leans back slightly, recalling the expression she saw on Myongji's face during the funeral. The detective says Myongji seemed to be under Yongho's threat and didn't know how to act. Myongji remembers Yongho's friend being killed and questions if she should endure this until the end. She considers there's no reason to protect Yongho. Myongji concludes that he killed his friend to steal his powers. Receiving a memory from the past, Myongji assumes she's been deceived by him once, and that's enough. It's true, Myongji confirms, ending the uncertainty. Myongji reveals that Seonju was going to stab her while using her power. She recounts that Yongho killed her and threatened her with Myongji's fingerprints on the knife. The detective leans in and asks, what will you do now? Myongji raises her face, deducing that the shot hadn't come because there was still something to say. The detective comments, you're more composed than I imagined. Then she invites her to join her team. The girl asks, a team? She waits for the answer, and the detective confirms. Tapping her finger lightly on the gun resting on the bench, the officer maintains the gesture. Sliding a USB drive across the seat, she continues her explanation. She reveals that her power is called Shuffle, and she admits she can swap two predetermined objects. Admitting that her ability isn't enough against the pause and rewind powers, the detective shows frustration. The girl tries to retort, we don't even know if those powers exist. But the detective says her ability has another function. She explains that she can be caught by other powers, leaving Myongji confused. Showing an illustration, the detective points out that when the power to stop time is used, everyone stops. And she adds, stating that when the power to rewind time is used, everyone goes back to the past. The detective assures her she's certain because she's experienced both powers. She says, it's better if we join forces against these monsters. She states she knows it's hard to believe and comments that there's something she can do for Myongji. Offering to take care of the knife Yongho took, she asks, what's your decision? Myongji grapples with doubt, remembering the detective's warning that she could be caught by others' powers. She tries to understand, asking, what happened when you used the fast forward? The detective questions, are you referring to the year that passed? The detective states, time didn't accelerate. She suggests Myongji might be using her powers incorrectly. Myongji takes a deep breath, wondering if she truly was misusing them. The investigator narrows her eyes and asks, how did you manage to skip an entire year? The girl remains silent, looking down. A flashback begins. A car drives down a sunny road. What beautiful weather, her father comments, driving steadily with his family. From the back seat, Yeonji complains, please hurry up with this trip, I have homework. Glancing at the mother beside him, the father tries to compose himself. Closing a deck of cards she was holding, the mother puts them away. The mother says, we're not going to Tutu Land anymore, even with the tickets bought. She changes the subject. Leaning forward, Yeonji reacts with surprise. The mother teases her about her homework. What about your homework? Yeonji quickly denies, I don't have homework. She claims she doesn't need to do it. Taking the tickets from her hand, the mother takes charge. Her mother smiles in the rearview mirror, keeping the mood light. Observing the scene from the back seat, Myongji remains quiet. Leaning forward, Yeonji asks, are we going to Tutu Land? Her father says they'll go to the beach first. Trying to press a button on the dashboard, Yeonji insists, I memorized the address. Her mother warns her, that's dangerous. Her father loses his patience, shouting, Yeonji, sit back down. The mother points to the road, alerting, danger ahead. A white truck appears directly in front of their car, occupying the entire lane. Staring at the approaching vehicle, the driver holds his breath. Swerving sharply to the left, he tries to avoid it. Skidding on the road and narrowly missing the truck, the car sways violently. Veering into the other lane, the vehicle struggles to stabilize. Braking suddenly to avoid another obstacle, he tries to regain control. After the sudden stop, the father asks, "Is everyone okay?" Turning to scold Yeonji, the mother raises her voice. Speeding towards them, another car appears at the last moment. Waking up dazed amidst the wreckage of the accident, Myungji awakens to chaos. Looking to the side, Myungji calls, "Yeonji!" Turning forward, the girl calls, "Mom!" Her eyes wide, she stares at the scene before her. Exploding without warning, the car's front compartment tears apart. Completely consuming the parents' seats, the explosion devours everything. Left alone in the back seat, Myungji and Yeonji watch the fire spread. Myungji stares at the destruction, paralyzed. Pulling everything backward, the world around her begins to rewind. Slowly, she opens her eyes. She finds herself floating in a dark, shapeless void. The girl tries to understand her surroundings. Looking around, she asks where she is. She calls out for her parents into the vastness, her voice echoing in the darkness. Suddenly, she turns and calls Yeonji's name. Her vision blurs, filled with visual static. Wandering aimlessly through the darkness, Myungji tries to find a point of reference. She raises her face towards a distant light, wondering if it's a screen. An ambulance appears above her. Myungji tries to comprehend the scene. She is pulled downward at high speed, feeling her body plummet. Rushing past the side view of the emergency vehicle, she faces everything uncontrollably. Falling through a scene of a hospital entrance, she asks what's happening. Repeating the question as she crosses another image, she tries to stay calm. Reaching out her hand, Myungji questions what that is. At a table, someone uses chopsticks to pick up food. Suddenly, she finds herself alone, having dinner in her apartment. Myungji tries to remember how she got there. Confused, she looks around and asks where she is. Noticing something, she touches her own hair. Holding the long strands, she asks, "When did it get this long?" Myungji turns and calls for her aunt. The older woman stares at her and says her name, surprised. Myungji feels a pang in her chest. Her aunt asks if she just spoke, but Myungji answers without understanding. The woman rushes towards her, closing the distance in an instant. Hugging her, the aunt says, "You're back!" Myungji just asks, "What's wrong?" The scene shifts to a photo of her parents' funeral. Myungji stares at the portrait in silence. She approaches the photo, touching the air as if seeking contact. Beside her, her aunt brings a hand to her face. The aunt says, "Myungji, you're here to see them. A year has passed." The woman takes a deep breath. She continues, "Myungji is doing well now, and they can finally rest in peace." Back at the apartment, the girl calls for Yeonji. She turns to her aunt and asks, "Where is my sister?" Walking towards an apartment building, Yeonji moves along the sidewalk. Stopping for a moment, she observes her surroundings in silence. Getting out of a freshly parked car, the aunt quickly closes the door. Shouting her sister's name, Myungji's voice carries with urgency. Running out of the building, she hugs Yeonji tightly. Myungji apologizes, saying, "It must have been so hard for you," but her sister pushes her away violently. Myungji falls to the ground and hears Yeonji curse at her. Yeonji questions, "What do you want now?" She then brings up the year Myungji pretended to be sick. Yeonji asks, "Did you think I'd appreciate that? I pretended not to know anything this whole time." Trying to intervene, the aunt steps forward, but Yeonji yells, "What do you want me to do about it now?" Looking down, Myungji remains silent. In a classroom, a teacher introduces her. He explains that she's back after a one-year break. Asking the class representative to look after her, the teacher receives the students' immediate agreement. Standing in the middle of the room, Myungji observes her surroundings without reaction. Whispering, two students mention her parents' death and her hospitalization. Myungji hears the comments, absorbing the words in silence. Throughout the room, rumors spread about her being hospitalized and pretending not to know her own sister. Other voices question, why would anyone be friends with her? They comment on her audacity. Someone approaches, asking, "Can I sit next to you?" Remembering a girl covered in blood with a wide smile, Myungji's body trembles. She wakes up with a scream, trying to regain control. Remaining lying in bed, she breathes heavily. Slowly sitting up, Myungji still tries to recover from the nightmare. Her cell phone vibrates on the nightstand. Myungji turns to pick it up. She sees two messages from Detective Myeon-do. On the screen, the detective says she'll take care of what they discussed and asks for Young-ho's address. Swallowing hard, Myungji knows. Either way, only one person will survive this fight. Typing on her phone, she accepts that it's now every person for themselves. Hours earlier, in the school newspaper room, Ga-in asks, "This place isn't bad at all, right?" Young-ho agrees, surveying the mess around them. Rushing to clear a space, Ga-in organizes the table. The boy asks, "Is there a place for me to sit?" Ga-in finds his interest in the newspaper unexpected and comments, "I thought you preferred the band." He explains that he needs to think about college. As he examines the room, she observes him. He leafs through an old article, searching for someone who stands out and might have powers. Turning to him, Ga-in asks, Did the detective call Myungji for a chat? Young-ho confirms and asks, why? She replies, there are some rumors. Ga-in recounts that she heard the detective accidentally shot someone. That's why she came to Gunsong. She comments that, as a result, they all gathered in a specific place. Closing the book he was reading, Young-ho asks, is that true? On a normal day, some students play soccer in the schoolyard. During the game, Young-ho turns and asks what they plan to do. Sitting with Myungji, he shows her an article he got from the school newspaper department. The article details the story of Jong Soo-yoon, a second-year student who became the soccer team captain and participates in regional championships. Young-ho suggests that for now, they approach talented or conspicuous students. He states that those who use powers in their daily lives will soon reveal themselves. As the match ended, he commented, it must be over. A teammate called out to Jong-soo, trying to get his attention. Approaching with a smile, Young-ho offered him a drink and asked, are you the team captain? Explaining he was a transfer student from class 2, Young-ho asked if there was an open spot on the team. Jong-soo replied, without elaborating, you can ask the coach directly. Young-ho thanked him for the drink and invited him to play against his class. Meanwhile, Young-ho thought to himself, he's nothing special. Aren't you being reckless? Myungji questioned, showing concern. Worried that someone with powers might discover them, Myungji listened to Young-ho. We can't keep our heads down, he said. He continued, explaining that their chance of survival increases if they find out who has powers and come up with a plan. Myungji stated that they had already analyzed half of the students and that they should filter the names to decide what to do next. Myungji received a message from Detective Myeon-do. She read the question, are you with Young-ho? Looking at her phone, Myungji typed a short reply. The detective asked Myungji to stall him and warned her, I'm going to look for the knife today. Suddenly appearing, Young-ho asked about the detective. Questioning her about their conversation from the previous day, Young-ho listened to Myungji. The case has been closed and there's nothing to worry about, she said. Standing up, Myungji changed the subject to the school newspaper, stating she was only there to get information. Complaining that Ga-in wouldn't stop talking about them, Young-ho asked, who started it? Diverting her attention to a group of students talking, Myungji noticed the commotion. Gathered and whispering among themselves, several students seemed excited. Myungji asked, what's going on? Young-ho then asked, do you know Suhan Park? Young-ho showed her an article about the famous fencer and explained that he would have a match against a student from another school. Myungji felt a slight bump as someone bumped into her shoulder. The guy who passed by her was Suhan Park himself. Recognizing him, Myungji commented, he seems pretty popular. Approaching, Young-ho tapped Suhan on the shoulder to get his attention. Turning around, Suhan asked, what do you want? Demanding an apology, Young-ho stared at him. Suhan ignored him and replied, it was her fault for being in the way. Trying to calm him, Myungji assured him she was fine, but Young-ho continued to insist on an apology. Suhan apologized sarcastically, commented on Young-ho's temper, and walked away. Walking away, Suhan left the two behind. Later, Young-ho and Myungji were sitting in the bleachers of a gymnasium for the fencing event. They observed the activity around them. Leafing through the event brochure, Myungji reads the foil competition rules and Suhan Park's profile. She reads that he's known for counterattacks and reflexes that make up for his physical prowess, and scrutinizes every line carefully. Young-ho questions if someone like him could have powers. Myungji replies that there was nothing unusual in his past. Young-ho speculates Suhan might be using his powers differently. He comments that perhaps it's happening even now. Young-ho grabs his phone and announces, it's starting. He sets up a stopwatch, zeroed out and ready to go. As the fencing match begins on the strip, the focus shifts to the competitors. The camera shows one fencer's eye through the mask, revealing tension. Positioning themselves a certain distance apart, the two adversaries await the signal. As the referee gives the signal, the match begins. Advancing to attack, the opponent makes their first move. Facing his approaching opponent, Suhan adjusts his stance. Launching forward in a swift motion, he closes the distance in a flash. Hitting the target with the tip of his sword, Suhan finishes the thrust with precision. Watching the move conclude, Young-ho follows everything intently. With Suhan's victory declared, the gymnasium erupts. In the stands, everyone comments on Suhan's incredible speed. Myungji points out that he moved the instant his opponent initiated the attack. Confirming on the stopwatch that the match lasted only 5 seconds, Young-ho frowns. Superimposing Suhan's image on the strip with another time count, the screen reveals hidden data. The timer exposes the impossible, showing that his actual time had increased by 7 seconds. class. Young-ho fixes his gaze and states, "I found him." Looking to the side, Soo-han notices the attention. Young-ho simply says, "Pause." The scoreboard shows a wide margin, heavily favoring Soo-han over his opponent. On the sidelines of the strip, the opponent's coach shouts, "Why are you letting yourself be beaten by a rookie?" He tries to motivate him, urging a comeback. But the fencer wonders how he could possibly beat Soo-han. He feels Soo-han reads his every move, struggling to understand what to do. Both competitors reposition themselves on the strip, assuming their combat stance once more. The match resumes after the referee's signal. The opponent advances with determination, attempting a direct attack. Soo-han swiftly moves to the side, neutralizing the lunge. With his eye visible through the mask, he displays total focus. As he dodges his opponent's attack, Soo-han creates an opening. He executes several precise thrusts, hitting the opponent's chest. The final score marks the end of the bout, confirming Soo-han's victory. As the audience applauds, Soo-han removes his mask. He receives compliments on his skill. Observing the scene, Myung-ji states, "He's impressive." Young-ho explains, "Soo-han uses his power to cut seconds." Concluding his analysis, Young-ho says that Soo-han stops time to assess his opponent's position. Then, he uses the power again to counterattack. Reacting to the revelation, Myung-ji takes in the discovery about Soo-han's power. "It's a terrifying power," Myung-ji comments. She notices Soo-han's wave on the fencing strip. Outside, students chat as they leave school. Ga-eun Kang approaches from behind, catching up to Young-ho and Myung-ji. Ga-eun asks excitedly, "Did you two come to watch the fencing match together?" Young-ho replies that he's also part of the school newspaper and came to gather material. This impresses her. Ga-eun comments, "Soo-han is the face of the school." She says he's completely different from last year. Myung-ji asks why. Ga-eun explains, "He used to be a delinquent." She reveals he used to get into a lot of fights. Now, he seems focused only on fencing. Ga-eun adds, "I still find him charming because he fences so well." She emphasizes her point. She waves goodbye excitedly. "I'm going to take more photos before heading back to the club room." Myung-ji asks what they'll do now. Young-ho confirms, "Soo-han is powerful because he can stop time." He states that to survive, they need one of two abilities. Young-ho shows concern. Concluding his line of thought, Young-ho says, "We need the power to pause or rewind." Inside the newspaper club room, Ga-eun remains seated at a desk, typing on her computer. She celebrates that the article about Soo-han will guarantee the front page of the newspaper. Ga-eun beams at the result. Noticing the time on her phone, she's startled by how late it is. Rushing out, she asks herself, "When will Soo-han follow me on social media?" In the hallway, a girl calls out to Ga-eun, stopping her. The girl asks, "Are you Ga-eun Kang from second year class 2? Ga-eun confirms. Drawing closer, the girl asks, "By any chance, do you have time powers?" Ga-eun questions the question, trying to grasp what time powers would be. Then, the other student pulls out a pen and states, "I'll just check." Ga-eun tries to stop her, backing away, but the girl advances. With her hand seized tightly, Ga-eun loses control. The unknown student doesn't hesitate, stabbing her own hand with the pen. Staring closely at Ga-eun, she maintains a cold expression. Reacting in shock to what she just saw, Ga-eun flinches. An object is thrown at her. Ga-eun follows its trajectory without blinking, watching it fly across her vision. The unknown student holds a bloody wrench, making the danger clear. Ga-eun lies on the ground, severely injured. The aggressor approaches, calling her name. Taunting Ga-eun, she says, "If you really have powers, you'd better use them quickly." Ga-eun tries to resist, replying, "I don't understand what you're talking about." The other student loses patience, declaring, "I'll make you use them." Attacking repeatedly, she shouts, "Use your powers or die right here." She stops her attack and realizes she was mistaken. After this atrocity, she simply puts the pen back in her pocket. The scene resets. We return to the door of the newspaper club room. Sitting at the table, Ga-eun celebrates again. Soo-han's article is going on the front page. She checks her phone and notices the time. Rushing out, she thinks once more, "When will Soo-han follow me on social media?" And again, she's stopped in the hallway by the same student. The student asks again, "Are you Ga-eun Kang, second year, class 2? Ga-eun confirms. Starting a new question, the girl hesitates for a moment. Glancing quickly to the side, she changes the subject. Changing the subject, she asks, "Do you know Young-ho?" Ga-eun tries to understand why, questioning her interest. Showing her injured hand, the student says, "It's because I'm interested in him." The scene now shifts to the front of Young-ho's house. The detective watches Young-ho leave for school. She knows the house will be empty until 7 in the evening. She concludes she'll have plenty of time for her plan and prepares to act. Scaling the concrete wall, the intruder lands silently in the backyard. Inspecting the untouched lawn, she concludes nothing was buried there. Taking a small object from her pocket, the detective throws it onto the grass. Approaching one of the side windows, she begins examining the structure. Lightly touching the glass, she tests the surface. The thrown object returns to her, and the detective catches it mid-air with precision. Inside the house, she begins inspecting the living room. Walking through the rooms, she searches for something with determination. Bending down, she checks under one of the pieces of furniture. Continuing through the residence, she keeps searching with her phone in hand. In the bathroom, she feels her phone vibrate as she examines the toilet flush. Answering the call, she hears the question, "Where did he go?" The detective replies, "I'm skipping class." The person on the phone asks, "Did you investigate Young-ho?" She confirms, "Yes, there was an incident." She explains that one of Young-ho's friends disappeared before he moved and still hasn't been found. She then resumes her analysis. Continuing her report, she comments that Young-ho was the main suspect but was released due to lack of evidence. She asks for a photo of the missing boy. The voice on the other end questions, "Why investigate a closed case?" The detective replies, "It's a follow-up investigation," and warns, "I might be late." Ending the call, she puts her phone back in her pocket. Finding a picture frame with a photo of Young-ho and another boy, she wonders who the other one is. Her phone vibrates again. She notices a new message has arrived. Detective Du immediately looks at the screen. Receiving the photo, she sees it's the same boy who appears in the picture frame next to Young-ho. Meanwhile, in the newspaper club room, the girls chat. Looking at her phone screen, Myung-ji follows the message exchange. Reading what was sent, Myung-ji asks, "What happened?" The detective replies, "I didn't find anything, but I'll keep looking." Myung-ji questions, "Was the object hidden somewhere else?" She concludes the risk of being caught would be too high. Approaching from behind, Gain comments, "They seem close." Myung-ji, however, keeps thinking about where he hid it. Young-ho says, "You didn't need to come along." Gain interrupts him, stating she was bored and asks, "Let me see too." Confirming Suhan is on the front page, he says the local newspaper can use their article as a reference. Reflecting on the knife problem, Myung-ji states she thought everything would be resolved. But another person with powers appeared. Believing he won't be killed yet because of the other person, Young-ho decides he needs to feign cooperation until they find the knife. Planning his next step, he says he needs to get Suhan's attention. That is, the one who has the power to pause time. Teasing Myung-ji, Gain asks, "Aren't you looking at another guy's picture for too long?" This makes Myung-ji flustered. Offering to move a pile of papers for Gain, Young-ho hears her comment. "You don't seem like the jealous type." Taking the stack of documents, he prepares to hand it over. As he does, he discreetly touches her hand. Reacting to the touch, Young-ho shows surprise. With wide eyes, he stares at the unexpected revelation. A countdown appears over Gayen's image. Falling onto the table, the newspaper pages scatter. Struck with shock, he suddenly grabs Gayen's wrist. Reacting in fright, she asks, "What do you think you're doing?" and adds, "That hurts." Approaching, Myung-ji asks Young-ho, "What's wrong?" Ignoring the question, he demands to know, "Where was Gayen last night?" She replies that she was alone in the club room, writing the article. Young-ho insists, "Did anyone show up?" Recalling a detail from last night, Gayen mentions she talked to a first-year girl but doesn't know her name. Asking him to let her go, Myung-ji tries to intervene. "Let her go!" Turning to leave, Young-ho pulls Myung-ji along with him. Left behind, Gayen doesn't understand what's happening to him. Once outside, Myung-ji pleads, "Let go of me first." Releasing her hand, Young-ho asks, "Listen," and reveals, "Gayen died last night." Confused, Myung-ji says, "She was fine," but he counters, "Her timeline is strange." Explaining what he saw, he says that instead of the expected 16 years, her timeline showed less than a day. Concluding his reasoning, Young-ho states that Gayen died 13 hours ago, right after saying goodbye to them. Explaining why, he says Gayen died once. Her time was rewound. That's why she's alive again, and her timeline has reset. Realizing the implication, Myung-ji reaches the only possible conclusion, and Young-ho confirms, it's about the power to rewind. He asks why the rewind power user would kill Gayen so suddenly. He calmly responds, explaining that it wasn't sudden, and calls her closer. Pointing to the students from the other class in the yard, he hears her question, "What's with them?" Seeing a teacher organize the students into a line, Young-ho asks for her hand. He takes the initiative and holds Myung-ji's hand. Staring at him in surprise, she can't hide her reaction. Young-ho reveals the truth. He explains that the rewind power user killed each student following the roll call to test if they had powers. He concludes, their mistake was getting distracted trying to find someone else with powers. Recalling a crucial detail, Myung-ji remembers that Ga-in is the first person on their roll call list. Realizing the gravity, she understands. They started killing people from their class. They will be next. She interprets the meaning. The girl Ga-in found is the rewind power user. She despairs, not knowing what to do. Young-ho simply responds, "I don't know." He collapses to the ground. He laments, "You have the strongest power." I believed we would have more time to prepare. He states the limitation. Our powers aren't enough. We can't face the rewind power user now. Observing the scene, Myungji realizes she had never seen Young-ho so scared. Although she also fears this power, Myungji wonders why he is even more shaken. She links his reaction to the past. This connects her to the memory of his disappeared friend. Deciding to avoid the subject, she concludes she can't ask anything about it. Choosing another focus, she suggests, how about we look for Suhan Park? She argues firmly. Even with the power to pause, Suhan would feel threatened by the rewind power. It would be good to have him as an ally. She adds, it would be easier to talk to him than to a random killer like the rewind power user. Getting up from the ground, Young-ho agrees to think about it. He instructs her, go straight home after class. It's dangerous. Myungji just watches Young-ho walk away in silence. Later, sitting in a coffee shop, the detective waits for someone. Arriving, Myungji sits at the table and comments, you're early. The detective informs her there's something to ask before explaining the reason for the meeting, then prepares her phone. Showing a photo of the missing boy, she asks, do you know him? Recognizing the boy from Young-ho's memory, Myungji wonders why the detective has that photo. Deciding not to reveal the truth, she responds, I've never seen the boy before. Explaining the case, the detective says, his name is Jingyu Bei. He was Young-ho's friend and disappeared before the move. Reacting to the confirmation that Young-ho was released due to lack of evidence, Myungji absorbs the information. Changing the focus, Myungji asks, why did you want to meet me? Revealing the situation, the detective states, Suhan Park has the power to pause, and another student with a different power is killing everyone. Myungji asks, what should we do? She waits as the detective presents her idea. Suggesting the first step, the detective proposes, let's approach him directly. Referring to Suhan Park, she directs her attention to the school locker room. Receiving a pat on the back from a classmate, Suhan hears the question, are you really Suhan Park? The guy praises his speed and asks, what kind of training do you get? Holding his bag strap, Suhan replies, it's nothing like training. Turning to his classmate, he states, I was born with this ability. There's nothing to tell. Not understanding the comment, the other student looks confused. Walking away alone, Suhan ignores the insult thrown by his classmate, who is held back by another guy. Walking along the pedestrian bridge over the highway, he continues isolated. Walking while reading an article about himself on his phone, he maintains a satisfied smile. Called by Myungji's name, he turns to face her. Approaching with the detective, Myungji says, we need to talk for a moment. Recognizing her as the girlfriend of the guy with an attitude, he receives confirmation from the detective. Suhan states, I already apologized. I'm not interested in her. He asks, why did you follow me? Turning to leave, he states, I'm a very busy person. Being stopped, Suhan hears Myungji say, I saw you leave. You managed to avoid your opponent in such a short time. She concludes her observation. It was as if you had paused time or something similar. Seeing his reaction, the detective carefully observes every detail. Turning again, Suhan faces both of them. Who are you, really? He seeks to understand the situation. Staring at him seriously, Myungji doesn't look away. Come talk to us. Suhan stops walking and asks what they want. Myungji says she'll get straight to the point. She reveals, the rewind power user is after you. Suhan looks surprised. Myungji explains that he uses his power to hunt them down one by one. He will kill them when he finds them. She warns that at this rate, Suhan won't be safe either, but she's cut off. Firmly, Suhan asks, how would we be found? Where did you get this information? Myungji explains that there's a power that shows how long someone has lived on a timeline. This timeline resets when a person dies. She continues, saying they've seen students whose timelines have reset, yet they're walking around as if nothing happened. Myungji declares without hesitation, the rewind power user is killing the students. Suhan asks, are they killing people without knowing if they have powers? Myungji confirms. Suhan concludes there's no point in talking. He asks, what do you want to do? Myungji invites him to fight with them. She argues it will be difficult for the enemy to face all their powers at once, especially someone who can stop time, like Suhan. Suhan calmly agrees. It would be difficult for most power users to face the rewind user. Myungji insists, if we join forces it would be different, but she's cut off. With a smile, he declares, I want to stay out of this. Myungji asks, what did you say? Suhan is already walking away from them on the walkway. The detective comments, the ability to turn back time is scary, but Suhan turns around and states, my time-stopping power can face the rewind user. He then suggests, instead of joining you, it would be better to just kill them right here and take their powers. He watches Myungji's silent reaction after the threat. Suhan just says, I'm kidding, and calls her a scaredy cat. Explaining his position, he comments that his future as a fencing athlete is secure. He doesn't want to take the risk. Myungji replies, to be honest, we're the desperate ones in this situation, not you. Suhan then says, I don't care. You two should handle this yourselves. The detective shoves Myongji aside and says, forget about it. Pulling out a revolver, she cocks it. Turning around, Suhan asks, what's that? Are you going to shoot? The detective points her gun at Suhan, saying, this is a waste of time. Let's just get rid of him. She continues, explaining that Suhan stopped time at least a dozen times during the match. She then recalls a wounded, screaming woman. The detective states, either way, we'll simply take your power if you don't plan on joining us. Suhan taunts her, you must not know my powers. The detective threatens to put a hole through his head. Smiling, Suhan tells the detective, shut up, the bullet's speed won't matter if I just pause time. The detective challenges him, try it. Suhan grows serious and glares at his opponent. They are seen falling from the catwalk. The revolver clicks into place. Suhan focuses his gaze, aiming at his opponent. Soon, a gunshot rings out. Myongji watches the scene with a shocked expression. Suhan wonders, did she really shoot? I can't believe she's a police officer. Looking at the mark on the ground, he realizes the bullet was indeed aimed at his forehead. He reveals that he can't move freely, even when pausing time, but he claims he can dodge a moving bullet. The scene shifts. Suhan leaps away from Myongji and the detective. Suhan smiles and says, you'll never be able to shoot as long as I can pause time. The detective agrees and points her gun at Suhan again. Myongji tries to intervene, pleading with the detective, stop so we can talk. Suhan questions the detective. Are you going to shoot again? I warn you, I won't just dodge the bullet anymore. Myongji realizes neither of them will stop. Considering it all a waste of time, Suhan sighs. The detective thinks, I won't get hit as long as I avoid the barrel of the gun. Preparing herself, she aims to shoot once more. Commenting on the situation, the detective says, he really does have the power of pause. This must be the first time I've seen anything like it. She then reveals, my power is shuffle. I gain the same effects as whoever uses their power. Describing the tingling sensation in her body when using the power, the detective leaves Suhan surprised. She challenges him, unleash your power and try to dodge, since you only need to move your arms. I'm grateful for your power, the detective says, watching as Suhan uses his pause ability, but her gun remains pointed directly at Suhan's face. The revolver fires. Myongji manages to save Suhan from the shot. She pulls him back, causing him to fall as he's dragged. Myongji takes down the detective's gun, ending the firing. Suhan questions Myongji, how did you manage to move during the pause? Myongji replies, it was exactly as he said. Revealing her fast-forward power, Myongji admits, I was using my ability the wrong way the whole time. Youngho, reflecting on her words, questions, aren't you using your powers the wrong way? As she wonders if her power is useless or if something is missing, she feels a gun pointed at her, but then she remembers. Something changed after watching Suhan's match. Beside her, Youngho watches the start of the competition. She then decides to try using fast forward in a different way. The judge gives the signal for the start of the fencing match. She carefully observes the competitors' movements. One of the fencers quickly advances on the other. Suddenly, time seems to freeze around the victorious athlete for an instant. Turning, she asks Youngho, did you manage to see that moment? Confused, she doesn't understand what happened and calls out his name. She turns to the side. It's at that moment that she finally realizes what happened. She remains silent for an instant, processing the information. She is Myongji, who can't use fast forward alone, but needs to combine it with other people's powers. The fast forward user states, if I activate my powers beforehand, I can move during the pause. I'll have more freedom than the two of them, who can barely move. Myongji, on the ground, tells him to choose. Cocking the gun, she demands, decide if you'll fight rewind. Then, she points the gun at him and asks, do you prefer to die by my hands? Night falls over the city. In a notebook, notes detail the powers of Suhan Park and Haiyunju, with a mention of Myongji Yang. Sitting at his desk, Youngho runs a hand through his hair. Suddenly, his phone vibrates on the table. The screen displays a message from Myongji with a request, meet me at the park for a conversation. Arriving at the park, he finds her. Myongji says, I'm here. Youngho asks, what's going on? I told you not to go out alone. Myongji then reveals, I just met with Suhan Park. He questions, did you go alone? Myongji replies, I was with Detective Do. He stares at her asking, since when have you been meeting with the detective? What have you been doing behind my back? She lowers her head as he asks, aren't you tired of everything that involves powers? Myongji confronts him, asking, are you also planning to take away my powers? Showing her phone, she questions, how could you say that? Youngho's eyes widen as he sees the screen. The device displays a photo of Jingyu Bei. She asks, how do you know Jingyu? I already know everything. Myongji states, when Record showed me the memories, I saw you kill your friend. Confronting him, she echoes her own words. How was it easier to take the blame? Whose side were you really on? She continues, you hid a knife to threaten me. I don't know what to think anymore. Facing him, the young woman declares, I can't trust you anymore. Breathing heavily after the confrontation, Myongji tries to compose herself. Young-ho remains silent, looking at her. Myung-ji says, "If you won't say anything, then you will speak." Looking down, he finally admits, "I killed him." The scene shifts to Jing-yu. He denies, "The timeline didn't belong to me." A young woman in front of him shows her ID, insisting, "I'm already in college." The young man turns and stares at her in silence. Jing-yu states, "That ID is clearly fake. I'll be fired if I accept it." The girl calls him annoying and leaves the store, walking past another student. The student smiles and asks, "Happened again?" Jing-yu replies, "It happens at least once a day." Then, Young-ho looks at a bill on the counter. He tells Jing-yu, "The girl left money here." Jing-yu finds that annoying. His friend suggests, "Keep the money if she doesn't come back." But he smiles, saying, "I can't keep the money since I denied her ID." Jing-yu says goodbye. "See you on the basketball court." His kindness was almost frustrating. The basketball hits the rim while the power of the timeline was considered useless. Alone on the court, Young-ho bends over to catch his breath. He wonders, "Where is my friend? Why is he taking so long?" Picking up the ball, he thinks of calling his friend when he notices someone approaching from behind. The young man turns to ask, "Why did you take so long?" But his expression suddenly changes. The scene unfolds to the moment Jing-yu finally appears, clutching a stab wound in his stomach. With effort, Jing-yu calls Young-ho's name. He stumbles forward, tripping. He urges his friend to hurry just before he collapses. Supporting Jing-yu's body, Young-ho asks what happened and who did this. Grabbing his phone, he says he'll take him to the hospital and call an ambulance. But Jing-yu's hand closes over his, preventing any call. Demanding his full attention, Jing-yu asks his friend to just listen to him. Forcing out his voice, he says he needs to ask a favor. Not understanding anything, Young-ho stares at his wounded face. Then Jing-yu pleads, "Kill me." Confused, Young-ho asks, "What are you talking about? Why would I do something like that?" Moving his hand to his friend's arm, Jing-yu reveals his altered eye. Explaining the urgency, he states that he's out of time on his timeline. Young-ho remembers their previous conversation. Jing-yu had told him someone tried to kill him to steal his powers. In that memory, Jing-yu runs as fast as he can. Turning back, a look of surprise crosses his face. Telling the truth, he says, "They found me no matter how hard I tried to run. It was like my pursuer knew exactly what I would do in the future." Not hiding his fear, Jing-yu admits, "I don't know what they'll do with my powers, but someone like that shouldn't have them. Please, Young-ho, hurry." Refusing the plea, Young-ho insists, "You're not going to die. We need to go to the hospital." Holding his friend's arm, Jing-yu explains, "It'll be too late to wait for an ambulance." Pleading weakly, he asks for his wish to be granted. Frozen, Young-ho stares at the impossible choice before him. Reluctantly, pushing past his limit, he brings his hands to his friend's neck and squeezes firmly. With no other choice, Young-ho fulfills the final request. With his life force completely drained, Jing-yu's time on his timeline comes to an end. Thus ends his life with Rewind never captured. Young-ho plunges into despair for months. During that period, he barely went out or ate, wondering, why did my friend have to die because of a power? Near Christmas the previous year, a USB drive arrived carrying a new message. Finding a new purpose, Young-ho finally discovers a reason to keep living. Emerging from that void, he sets his sole goal, to find and kill Rewind. With his pain evident, Young-ho declares, "Rewind made me kill Jing-yu. I'll never forgive them." Myung-ji asks, "Why didn't Rewind kill Jing-yu that night? I've thought about it countless times." Young-ho, determined, states, "Rewind's power can't be perfect. I'll do whatever it takes to find that flaw and kill them myself." Admitting he's not acting as he should, he says, "I don't care what happens to me as long as I can kill Rewind." Myung-ji confronts him, reminding him of the things he's done the moment he threatened her with a knife. She recalls what happened. "Seonju tried to kill me by raising the knife against me." The force of that memory overwhelms him for an instant. Explaining his impulse, Young-ho comments, "I thought of Jing-yu and ran to you without hesitation." In that critical moment, he stops Seonju Lee from attacking her. To him, people like Seonju and Rewind kill for power. That's why they deserve to die. But he assures Myung-ji, "You are different." Remembering what he saw, he comments, "You felt bad for Seonju's mother, even though you were completely innocent." The woman was screaming, asking who killed her daughter. Responding calmly, Myung-ji says, "I understand what you mean, and I recognize the frustration, but I don't want to hurt anyone else to keep living." Turning his face away, he just listens to her words. Remembering Jing-yu, Young-ho thinks of the moment his friend said he couldn't keep the girl's money. Young-ho then explains, "I got rid of the knife after that day." He adds, "The knife was the quickest way to convince you. I assure you, I won't betray you, nor will I force you to cooperate." Myung-ji stares at him in silence for a few moments. After that, she says, "I'll believe you for now. Meet me at the cafe near the park tomorrow." Revealing her plans, Myung-ji comments, "I'll be meeting with Suhan and Detective Do." As various faces cross her mind, she stares at him with determination and declares, "We will capture Rewind together." As Myung-ji gets ready, ready, her sister asks, "Where are you going?" Calmly, Myongji replies that she's going to the cafe down the street. Yeonji asks what time she'll be back, but Myongji warns that she might be late. Yeonji just watches her sister leave. For an instant, she remains silent, finding the question strange. As she leaves the house, Myongji reflects on her sister's behavior. Finally, Myongji enters the cafe. One of the guys at the table remarks, "You're late." Yongho and the detective are also there. Suhan invites her to sit. Myongji pauses for a moment, looking at everyone present. Then she approaches the table. Suhan asks, "Are you thinking this place might be dangerous?" He comments that nothing bad happens in a cafe in broad daylight. Detective Myeon-do informs them that they've checked the date and time of Jing-Yu Bei's death. She explains that time was rewound at that moment. His friend's death can't be a coincidence. Myeon-do confirms what Yongho said last night was true. Myongji listens in silence without reacting. Yongho then suggests they talk about rewind. He reveals her identity, Hae In-ju, a freshman at the school. Her mother is the CEO of the NV Group's bio facility. He continues explaining that she moved to Gunsong shortly before high school. In the last 2 months, Hae-in discovered something. Yongho states without hesitation, she killed all the first-year students. Myeon-do adds that by analyzing the timelines, Hae-in was killing 4 to 5 students a day. Now, it's their class's turn. She informs them of the details. Ga-in is at the top of the list. Myongji repeated a year, and Yongho transferred to the school. Myongji concludes, "Considering the roll call order, we have about 3 days until Hae-in finds us." Yongho comments that they need a plan. Myongji, however, reminds them that rewind can go back in time as much as she wants. She observes that they can't use normal methods since any attack would be undone. Myongji suggests they must find a way to kill her in seconds. Next to them, Suhan yawns. Suhan interrupts. "I find this conversation pathetic. I can't stand listening to nonsense anymore." He states that there's no reason for them to meet like this, leaving Yongho confused. Then Suhan reveals, "I've already fought Rewind and won." Myongji questions Suhan, expecting an explanation. He reminds her, "I'm the school superstar, and Hae-in sought me out because she suspected me." Calmly, Suhan explains that it all happened at the beginning of the school year. He recounts that he had barely started using his power, just as he was gaining fame. Suhan was in the gym when he turned around. Hae In-ju appeared there, walking towards him with a smile. At first, Suhan thought she was just a fan, but he soon realized something was off. Suddenly, a bruise appeared on Hae-in's neck. He noticed the mark hadn't been there before. A fencer like Suhan, however, would recognize it. It was a small, round bruise, exactly the mark left by the tip of a fencing sword. Suhan deduced, "Even though I don't remember, she attacked me, and I must have reacted by using my time stop." Confidently, he says, "She can't do anything if I stop time." But Detective Myeon-do intervenes. Firmly, she comments, "That only proves you didn't die, not that it's a way for them to win." Suhan asks them to let him finish, revealing there was one more detail. He explains that Hae-in put her hands behind her back as if hiding something. Turning to Yongho, Suhan calls out, "You're still slow to understand this." Yongho explains that when using their powers, there are always 2 conditions. The first is the will to activate it. The second is a specific action, which for him is clenching his fist. Therefore, whenever he uses his power, he needs to think about pausing time and clenching his fist at the same time. He demonstrates and explains, without clenching his fist, he can't use his powers, even if he wants to. Suhan asks if it isn't the same for everyone. From this, the triggers for Yongho, Myongji, and the detective are revealed. Noticing the pattern, Myongji concludes that Hae-in also needs a specific action. She is hiding what it is. They conclude they need to prevent her from performing this action so she doesn't go back in time. Myeon-do reminds them they only have 3 days until Hae-in reaches Myongji. The only chance is to find out what that action is. Later, in an evening study room, Hanbin Shin sits at her desk. From afar, Hae-in watches her thinking, when will she go home? Walking down the hallway, she thinks she needs to check numbers 19, 20, and 21 by the end of the day. Hae-in stops for a moment and looks through a classroom window. Inside, she observes student number 20 and student number 21. Watching each face, Hae-in confirms they are all there. She thinks it will be hard to remember so many at once. Then, she rolls up her sleeve and holds a small object between her fingers, affirming to herself, "This will do." The study room door opens. Hanbin Shin looks up. She sees Hae-in step inside, addressing everyone. Holding a wrench, Hae-in asks, "By any chance, do any of you have powers?" A new day dawns, and the schoolyard begins to stir. Inside the classroom, Myongji remains pensive, ignoring the chatter of her classmates around her. She feels a subtle relief, believing everything ended well the previous day. With Detective Do and Suhan's help, Myongji imagines the situation is bound to improve. But Hae-in's obsession with finding people with powers makes this search predictable. Myongji considers considers herself safe, knowing her turn on the roll call hasn't come yet. Sighing, she tries to find a solution before that moment. Suddenly, her name echoes from Youngho's voice. Youngho approaches the desk with a serious expression. A problem has arisen, he warns, grabbing her attention. What happened? Myungji asks, trying to understand the urgency. He takes her hand, making her jump. Myungji follows Youngho's gaze to a classmate wearing glasses. The girl's timeline has already reset to 0. Why did number 22's timeline end? She asks, trying to understand the risk. She was probably with number 21, Youngho explains. Hei-in sped things up. At this pace, both realize their turn will come as early as the next day. A student holding a small card between his fingers seems uneasy. Myungji identifies him as number 28, watching him walk away. Number 27's timeline has been reset, she comments to Youngho. Hei-in will go after the next one. A taxi screeches to a halt by the sidewalk next to a student. Detective Du jumps out of the car and closes the door. Myungji and Youngho exchange glances, recognizing the woman approaching. Sorry for the sudden arrival, she begins, hurried. I need to go to Seoul, she informs, leaving Myungji confused. The detective reports that in a previous case, she was chasing a suspect. During the chase, she ended up shooting someone. Recalling the moment, she sees herself pointing the gun at a man holding a woman hostage, but due to the pause and rewind powers, the hostage was hit. I was demoted because of that, she reveals, and I received a letter of complaint. It won't take long, she assures, but I can't stay with you now. With her gaze lowered, she says goodbye. I have to leave. It's okay, Myungji replies. We wouldn't be doing anything about the rewind right now anyway. The car drives away as the detective continues to apologize. Myungji tries to calm down, concluding that with Youngho and Suhan, they just need to be careful about Hei-in's trigger action. Her phone vibrates, showing a call for Suhan. He answers, not understanding why. Where are you? Myungji asks, trying to understand his refusal. I'm not coming, Suhan replies. Why? She questions. He explains that he received a sponsorship offer from a big company and has a meeting. Think of it as a date, Suhan suggests. We wouldn't be doing anything today anyway. He reminds her that his life is more important and hopes she understands. Suhan is called for the meeting with the CEO. I'm on my way, he announces. I promise I'll go next time, he says, ending the call before Myungji can reply. With the call ended, Myungji feels like someone is purposefully interfering with their plans. We can't trust anyone else, Youngho comments. Everyone has their own interests. Deciding to leave that for later, Myungji agrees to first find out more about Hei-in's powers. At that moment, Hei-in appears before them, walking past on the sidewalk. Myungji fixes her gaze on her, following her movement. Youngho stares at the girl, remembering she was the one who killed Jing-yu. Calm down, Myungji requests. We'll just follow her from a distance. He takes a deep breath, agreeing with the plan. Myungji holds Youngho's hand as she observes the timeline of the student walking ahead. Hei-in turns the corner and disappears from view. Then, the young woman pulls up her sleeve. She's heading into the alley, Myungji warns. We need to hurry. The two follow in the direction the girl took. Hei-in slows her pace, approaching student number 28. Myungji watches everything carefully, without looking away. In seconds, the boy's timeline runs out. Hidden, Myungji asserts, his timeline was reset just moments ago. She tries to control her breathing, concluding that the girl just used her power. Hei-in glances at the student and keeps her hands behind her back. Behind her back, she uses a pen to pierce her own palm. Seeing from afar, Myungji notices the injuries and questions what they signify. Youngho connects the dots, concluding, by the number of wounds, this is the rewind action. It turns out she can't remember the moments she rewinds time. When she uses her powers, her memory rewinds in time, but her body remains. That's why Hei-in leaves a mark on herself to record the use of the ability. Understanding this, Youngho realizes why she left Jing-yu behind. In her haste, Hei-in forgot to mark her own body. Remembering Hei-in was holding a fountain pen, Myungji questions if that is the trigger for the ability. Finding the object unusual, he suggests observing carefully when she goes after the next target, but he is interrupted. Suddenly turning around, Hei-in walks in their direction. Asking why they keep watching, she shows irritation. Caught by surprise, the two freeze at the direct confrontation. Hei-in states, "It's not your turn yet, but since you're here, it doesn't matter anymore." As she speaks, she reaches into her pocket. Panicking, Youngho realizes they don't have enough information to confront her. With a smile, she approaches and starts to speak. Looking to the side, he desperately searches for an escape route. Turning his attention back to passing students, he tries to think fast. A classmate calls out to Young-soo, the captain of the soccer team, asking him to come play. Young-ho then asks if he can join him. With her attention diverted by the commotion, Hae-in hesitates. Remaining silent for a moment, the two observe the outcome. Turning to Young-ho, Jung-soo says, "You can go, but aren't you on a date?" Then he puts his arm around Myung-ji and states, she's also a big fan of soccer. Knowing Hae-in can't recall events after rewinding time, Myung-ji figures she won't cause trouble with so many guys nearby. Watching the interaction, Hae-in remains silent. Then she turns and walks away from them. Calling out to Myung-ji, Young-ho signals they should leave. "We need to be careful until Detective Do returns," she says. "We should talk to Suhan again. It'll be difficult with just the two of us." He sighs. As night falls over a modern house, the atmosphere shifts. Stopping before the front door, Hae-in hesitates for a moment. Hearing a sound, she glances aside. Appearing in the hallway with a cat in her arms, a woman stares at the young girl. Confronting Hae-in about the time, the woman reminds her of the important meeting. Then she blames her daughter if the deal isn't closed, and Hae-in lowers her gaze. "I don't understand how things work in this house," the mother says. "You're just like your father," the mother continues. "You're still irresponsible, even in high school." Meanwhile, Hae-in activates an object, but before her mother finishes the sentence, a swift movement strikes her face. Swaying from the impact, the living room chandelier swings above them. Fallen to the floor, the woman brings a hand to her bleeding face. The daughter states, "Your mouth has always been the problem. You can't go a single day without forcing me to do this," Hae-in says, her voice hardening. The mother pleads, "Wait!" Hae-in then promises, "I'll go back to being your sweet girl." Resetting the scene, she appears standing before the woman, hearing about the important meeting once more. Hae-in lowers her gaze as her mother blames her if the deal isn't closed. Continuing to criticize her, the woman doesn't notice the blood trickling from Hae-in's hand. Asking if her daughter is listening, the mother tries to get her attention. Hae-in replies, "Yes." She apologizes, promises to do better, and asks, "Have the guests arrived yet?" Moving through the neighborhood, night envelops the streets. Sitting in front of his computer, Young-ho stays focused. Reflecting that Myung-ji seems to have had a difficult day, he takes a deep breath. Thinking things have worked out thanks to her, Young-ho concludes he can't leave her in danger alone. He decides he needs to try harder to uncover something. On the monitor, an article details Suhan Park's career as a fencing prodigy and his meeting with the NV Bio president. Young-ho considers him conceited, always acting on his own will, and wishes Suhan wasn't the user of the paw's power. Suddenly, a detail in the article catches his attention. Young-ho, wondering what he just read, tries to confirm the information. Elsewhere, Hae-in's mother comments, "I saw the announcement that today's deal was a success." Arriving on a terrace, Hae-in apologizes for her lateness. The young man waiting for her says, "No problem." Reviewing the information that Hae-in Ju, the Rewind, is the daughter of the NV Group's bio facility CEO, Young-ho leans back in his chair. He realizes the truth and gets angry with Suhan. The line in the article about Suhan's meeting with the NV Bio president confirms his suspicions. On the terrace, Suhan says, "I just arrived." In the schoolyard, Young-ho and Myung-ji exchange a few words. Then, Suhan approaches the two from behind. He tries to start the topic, asking if anything had happened the previous night. At the same time, the two turn and face the young man. Suhan steps forward, asking them to try and understand him, but Young-ho says that's enough. Young-ho confronts him, stating that they know he's on Hae-in's side, and questions, "Are you acting as a double agent?" Suhan reminds them that he had already said he puts his interests first. He declares that he's not on anyone's side. He states, "I'm on my own side." Myung-ji frowns, arguing that Hae-in is trying to attract him with sponsorship. She tries to make him understand, warning that after Hae-in kills them and steals their powers, he'll be next. But Suhan denies it. Suhan changes his tone, revealing that he's actually the one using Hae-in. He looks away, explaining that becoming an athlete is expensive, something impossible for a family like his. Suhan states that, just as Hae-in offers him money, the two of them are also using him to stay alive. He finishes by saying he never passed information about them to Hae-in. Then Suhan asks, "Isn't this the best for all of us?" But Young-ho questions, "Are you kidding?" Angrily, Young-ho steps forward and shouts that because of Suhan's attitude, they could have died. Then he lunges at Suhan, but Suhan merely stares at him with a smile. Then Young-ho stops time and grabs Suhan's neck. Young-ho says, "I never liked that look in your eyes." Challenging him to try whatever he wants, Suhan asks, "Can you get past me?" Warning that he can break his wrist, Young-ho asks, "Want to keep this up?" But Suhan reminds them that he's not on anyone's side. Myung-ji then asks Young-ho to drop the matter. Myung-ji cuts Suhan off, calling him pathetic for thinking his single power makes him special. Taking him by surprise, the statement leaves him motionless. He then starts to laugh and asks, What are you talking about? Suhan questions. Isn't that what's expected when you have power? Myungji stares at him in silence, without backing down. She pushes him against the wall, reminding him that he only gained recognition for his fencing skills because of his power. The young woman asks, "Am I wrong?" Suhan asks, "Do you really think you can do this without me?" Suhan tells them to do whatever they want and walks away. Youngho lowers his voice, apologizing for how things ended, but Myungji says it's for the best, as they can't trust Suhan. Myungji insists that Hye-in will try to kill them today and will follow them. They need to decide where the confrontation will take place. Remembering they could also steal Suhan's power if they wanted, Youngho narrows his eyes. From a distance, Suhan simply says, "I know," but Myungji questions, "How would that make us any different from Hye-in?" The scene shifts to the school gym, the environment silent. In the locker room, a student sits on a bench, fiddling with his phone. The young man looks up from his device and notices someone standing in front of him. It's Suhan. Remembering he'd told the student he was simply born with his power, Suhan takes a deep breath. The student retorts without hesitation, calling Suhan an arrogant idiot. Suhan, surprised to be called that, asks, "What do you want?" The student, dressed in fencing gear, questions why Suhan is there, since he doesn't usually practice in matches. He warns, "I won't fall so easily this time." Recalling what he'd heard, Suhan decides to prove something to himself. Suhan claims he can win without using his power. He says he just wants to improve his skills. Agreeing to the condition, the student prepares alongside Suhan for the match. The referee gives the start signal. The opponent believes it will be an easy win, but Suhan quickly strikes him in the back with a precise blow. The student turns and asks, "Suhan, haven't you warmed up yet?" From behind his mask, the student wonders if fencing was always this fast. Knowing that the effective striking time is only 0.3 seconds, he adjusts his focus. In a series of instants, he is hit repeatedly. The opponent's mask falls to the ground. The student questions the 12-0 score. Approaching Suhan, who is now sitting on the ground, the student says, "I won't let you mess around like this." Threatening to tell the coach what happened today, the student ends the conversation. The scene shifts to a bustling city street, following the flow of people. Walking together through the crowd, Myungji and Youngho remain watchful. Moving through the crowd, Hye-in observes her targets. Remembering Suhan mentioned a second-year student with powers, Hye-in quickens her pace. She then follows the two, knowing they are the last ones left from Class 2. Watching them from a distance for a moment, she assesses every move. She continues to follow them as they climb a staircase, her gaze fixed. Realizing they're heading somewhere deserted, Hye-in speeds up. Running towards them, she tries to catch up. Entering a narrow alley, Hye-in finds no one. Looking around, she wonders what happened. Rushing through the alley, Hye-in exclaims, "They were just here!" A voice behind her says, "Looks like you don't like surprises." Calling her by name, Myungji says, "Hye-in-ju." She stops her advance, but Hye-in retorts, calling her rewind, as Myungji and Youngho corner her in the alley. Throwing the report card on the table, Hye-in-ju's mother questions her grades. Her mother scolds her for her behavior, reminding her she'll be in high school next year. Hye-in merely apologizes. Asking if that's enough, she slaps the girl across the face. It was at that instant Hye-in began to think about killing her mother. At another moment, the woman scolds her again, yelling non-stop. Looking away, Hye-in remains silent. One day, she noticed wounds appearing on her body whenever her mother confronted her. Broken nails and cuts on her fingers would suddenly appear, without warning. Observing the injuries, she felt calm return. Then, she'd apologize and promise to try harder. But this happened before she watched the video on the USB, which gave her a new idea. She strives to remember every detail of what happened, trying to organize everything in her mind. Seeing herself as a master of time, Hye-in is determined not to lose her chance. She will do whatever it takes. In an alley, Hye-in-ju observes two students and uses her ability to go back in time. A subtle smile appears on her face, making her intention clear. The scene repeats, but now the girl suddenly appears before them. With surprised looks, the two students stare at the unexpected apparition. Winking an eye, Hye-in says, "I'm happy to finally find another person with powers." She comments that she now understands why the girl acted that way the day before. Raising a wrench, Hye-in advances and declares, "I'm taking your powers!" Running towards the two, she intensifies her attack. Observing the scene, the young man tries to understand what triggers her power, but he remembers. The girl always held a fountain pen when she used her abilities. Advancing quickly, the other student rushes forward. Realizing which object she needs to grab, the student focuses on the target. Attacking with the wrench, Hye-in initiates the confrontation. Dodging the blow at the last second, the girl escapes unharmed. Then she charges towards Hye-in. With an outstretched hand, she tries to reach for the pen her opponent holds. Watching her adversary approach, Hye-in keeps a watchful eye, and the student finally rips the pen from her hand. Advancing quickly, the young man moves towards Heian. Grabbing her wrist, he manages to disarm her of the wrench. The pen falls to the ground. With the impact, Heian loses her balance. Looking down, she shows surprise at his sudden action. Then the young man turns and prepares for a new move. With a sweep of his arm, he pushes Myungji away, creating space. The fountain pen flies from Heian's hand and rolls across the alley floor. Turning, Heian asserts, "Now the girl can't use her power anymore." Positioning himself between the two, the young man glares at Heian. Questioning her, he asks, "Do you remember Jing Yu?" Confused, Heian asks, "Who is that person?" Showing a photo, the student shouts, "He's the friend you killed!" With a smile, she replies, "The name doesn't sound familiar." She asks, "Do you know how many people I've killed? I can't remember all of them." Grabbing her by the collar, he declares, "I'll make you remember." The security cameras installed on the alley buildings are destroyed, ceasing to record the scene. Holding Youngho's fist, Myungji pleads, "Stop!" insisting, "This won't make Hai-in remember." She hears him reply, "Maybe not," commenting, "What you've done is nothing compared to everything I've pulled off." Hai-in taunts, stating, "You two really went to great lengths to get here." She maintains her smile. Young-ho watches her as she continues, "You even figured out what my trigger was." Wiping the corner of her mouth, Hai-in makes a date appear in the air and congratulates them. "Congratulations." Realizing her timeline extends for 30 years, Young-ho is astonished. Suddenly advancing, Hai-in knocks him to the ground with a push. Picking up the wrench, she prepares to strike him. Reaching out, he tries to use his slow-motion ability to stop her. Watching the scene unfold before her eyes, Myungji barely breathes. Hai-in stands and reveals, Young-ho's head has been completely crushed. Falling to the ground at the sight of her friend's body, Myungji loses her strength. Amidst several numbers floating around, a figure different from Hai-in takes shape. Widening her eyes, Hai-in absorbs the new ability. She realizes that was Young-ho's power. A reset timer appears before her. With this, Hai-in concludes that it will now be much easier to obtain information. Crying beside Young-ho's body, Myungji calls out for him. Approaching with a smile, Hai-in asks, "What is your power?" Trembling on the ground, Myungji realizes Hai-in didn't just kill Young-ho, but also stole his power. Hai-in approaches. Myungji must be shocked. She admits she was surprised too. "I didn't expect you to know my trigger," Hai-in comments, keeping her tone light. Crying uncontrollably, Myungji whispers Young-ho's name. Recalling his words, she remembers Young-ho said they would only get hurt if they did nothing. He had declared he would keep fighting, no matter what, and seemed unwavering. Clenching her fist, Myungji agrees she would only get hurt by standing still. Determined, she lunges toward Hai-in, resolved to fight. Tauntingly, Hai-in asks, "Where do you think you're going?" Touching Hai-in's forehead, Myungji activates an ability. Using the power of slow motion on her opponent, she tries to gain an advantage, but Hai-in just smiles and asks, "Myungji, did you really think I'd let my guard down? Is your trigger taking a step forward?" She questions. "You can't do anything in slow motion." Something slams against the wall behind Hai-in, the impact making her turn to look. Lying on the ground and trembling, an unknown man tries to understand the situation. Staring at him, Hai-in complains, "This is so annoying." She picks up the fountain pen from the ground. "I'll leave a wound so I don't forget you," she says, preparing to use the pen and go back in time. Her intention is clear. Staring at her opponent, Myungji reacts with surprise at what she intends to do. Hai-in pierces her own hand with the tip of the pen, revealing her decision. Myungji's eyes widen as she watches what happens next. Stepping into the alley, a young man in a black jacket interrupts her. Turning, Myungji sees who just arrived. Something heavy plunges from one of the buildings above, the impact cutting through the air. Rewinding time in an instant, the alley's situation resets. Letting out a sigh, the newcomer relaxes his shoulders. "That was close," he comments. Returning to normal, the alley scene shows Young-ho standing, and the man paused at the edge of the building. Myungji questions the young man's presence. She receives another question in response. "Why do you think I came to help?" Stating that she won't give up her sponsorship, she assures them she's found a way for everyone to win. Explaining the plan, he says, "For it to work, both of you need to appear powerless." Myungji argues that Hai-in doesn't know who has powers and only pursues them because they're on the call list. If she doesn't think they have powers, she'll just ignore them and move on. "How can we do that?" Young-ho asks, trying to understand the next step. Myungji points out the problem. If Hai-in leaves a wound and goes back in time, she'll discover we have powers. Having a sudden idea, She looks up. Running toward them, she takes the initiative. "What are you doing?" the young man questions, watching her rummage through his jacket, not understanding. Myongji makes her reasoning clear. Hae-in has the will to go back in time. The young man finishes her thought. To use powers, there are always two conditions. The first is the will to use it. She shows the object she took and says, as long as you meet the trigger conditions. The second condition is a specific action, and we can go back in time before Hae-in leaves a wound. The plan might work, he agrees, taking a deep breath. Sensing something in the air, his expression changes. Tears stream down Myongji's face as she gives in to the moment. Apologizing, the young man says, "I didn't want that to happen." He looks away for a moment, remaining silent. Myongji tries to ease the tension. "I'm only telling you this because you won't remember any of it." He admits his fault. "You were right. I only relied on my power without putting in any effort." But an unpleasant experience the day before made him rethink his actions, and the change finally came. Myongji looks at him, responding, "It's not cool if you can't do anything without your powers. Thanks to you, I finally came to my senses and understood the situation." Wiping her tears, Myongji takes a deep breath. Turning to him, she says, "What you said was really cool." A smile appears on her face. Capping the fountain pen, the two activate their time reversal ability. Then the young man releases the pause he had created. With that, they manage to escape Hae-in. Running alone through a city street, Myongji distances herself. Confirming he knew Hae-in would follow them through the alley, Young-ho requests, "Let's stick to the plan." Bidding him farewell, Myongji turns to leave, but Hae-in stops her, holding her hand. "Wait a moment," she asks. Watching her in silence for a moment, the tension hangs in the air. Her palm suddenly opens, and a cut appears on Hae-in's hand. Pushing Myongji aside, she continues walking. Watching her leave, Young-ho and Myongji try to understand. He asks, "Why is she leaving?" "Young-ho!" Myongji looks at him with concern. Realizing his timeline has been completely reset, he gasps for air. The man on the rooftop tries to comprehend the situation. "Did I just die? Did Hae-in discover our powers? Why isn't she chasing us?" he questions, looking around. Approaching, the young man in the black jacket suggests, "Maybe she doesn't know we have powers." In the journalism club room, Myongji questions, "Was it you who sent Hae-in away?" Smiling, the young man confirms, "Exactly." He explains the situation. "It would be a problem if the powers fell into her hands. She would try to kill me. I don't know what happened after she went back in time, but I knew what I had to do. My goal was to act at the exact moment Hae-in was preparing to go back in time. With time paused, I managed to control her trigger. This way, she went back in time before she could leave a wound. Now, she has no idea that both of us have powers." Myongji voices her doubt. "We can't just trust him. You might be jumping to conclusions." But Young-ho interrupts her. "The guy's right." He recalls Soyoung Kang, the top student from the class next door. Her timeline was also reset, as a digital timer shows. Pointing to the fact, the young man says, "This proves Hae-in ignored us and moved on to the next class." He adds, "I heard Young-ho's timeline was also reset. This means Hae-in killed him." He concludes his reasoning. "If she knew about our powers, she wouldn't have just let it go. Although it's a bad situation, it's over now." Myongji reflects on the situation and wonders, are there more people with powers out there? Myongji asserts, "Even if there are other people with powers, they won't go around killing indiscriminately like Mr. Shin and Hae-in." Suhan jokes, "Unless it's someone attention-grabbing like me." He adds, "That was harsh." Changing the subject, Suhan asks, "What will we do when Hae-in is the last one left?" Myongji replies, "We haven't resolved anything yet, and we don't know what Record is thinking." But Suhan interrupts her. He states, "We can't keep fighting forever. We need to think about what happens next." Young-ho declares, "I'll keep studying to go to medical school." Surprised, Myongji asks, "Is he really that smart?" A phone screen displays a report card with high grades. Young-ho explains, "The tests here are easy compared to my old schools." The others are impressed. He asks Suhan, "What do you plan to do?" Suhan replies, "I'll keep playing sports and training." Suhan adds, "I'll try to find another sponsor before Hae-in betrays me. She'll be furious if she doesn't find anyone with powers in the second year." The question is directed at Myongji, who doesn't know what to answer. Interlacing her fingers, Myongji wonders, "What will I do when all this fighting is over?" Myongji admits she had never thought about it before. Questioning her own future, she remembers a simpler time and wonders, will things go back to how they were? Gain Kang announces, "I have practice." She says goodbye and leaves the journalism club room. Opening the door, she's startled by Suhan. He reassures her, "Go ahead, I was just leaving." Returning to the room, Gain asks Young-ho, "How did you get close to Suhan?" But he evades the question. She then scolds him. "Our department is the busiest this time of year." Outside, several students set up tents and decorations for an event. Gain explains, "It's the school's summer festival, the biggest event in the neighborhood. We can get a month's worth of articles." Young-ho comments, "I didn't know about the event, but my old school had something similar." Myongji suggests, "Let's prepare for the festival together, since you're practically part of the newspaper club." Explaining the plan, she says, says, if there's another person with powers in the area, it'll be easier to investigate by pretending to cover it. Young-ho agrees, adding, as Suhan said, we should prepare to go back to our normal lives. Smiling, Myungji agrees and states, we started this fight to get our normal lives back. An image of her normal life with her family flashes in her mind. Walking through the schoolyard, she wonders, what is Yeonji doing right now? At night, a group of students gathers in an open area of the high school. A student complains, I'm tired of walking the streets with nowhere to go. He calls out to another boy, cafeteria! The boy replies awkwardly. The student asks about the boy's house. Is it empty? But the boy explains, my parents are there. Another youth slaps the boy on the head, while the others explain, the nickname cafeteria is used for easy targets. Complaining again, the student says, there's nowhere for us to go. Yeonji looks at her phone in silence. Approaching her, the boy asks, can we go to your place? No one comes home until late. A girl hugs Yeonji and says excitedly, I want to go! I've never been there! But Yeonji firmly refuses. Don't even think about it. The group of students watches the interaction in silence. Yeonji crouches down and asks, how many times do I have to say no? While another girl pleads, don't be so rude. Insisting, the boy questions, why does a friend wanting to see your house bother you so much? Then he insults her. You don't even have parents. He shoves her to the ground. He asks, do you think you're one of us just because we let you hang around? The student declares, from now on, Yeonji's house will be the new cafeteria. Two fencers train in an empty gym. One of them, poised and ready, awaits the next move. He focuses entirely on his opponent, his gaze fixed. He lunges swiftly and delivers a direct strike. The other takes off his mask and praises the decisive strike, as well as his partner's counterattack. He comments that he'll restart with basic skills, and states that his partner will improve greatly at this pace. Later, people walk down a busy street. Suhan walks along the sidewalk holding his phone. He stops suddenly, noticing an acquaintance next to a girl. Suhan calls out his name, showing surprise at finding him there. Smiling, Jongsu says, it's been a long time since we last saw each other. He informs Suhan that Seungtae is looking for him, and comments that Seungtae seems annoyed he can't get in touch. Suhan turns his back and walks away. The girl asks Jongsu if he knows the guy, since Suhan completely ignored her. Thinking out loud, she wonders, isn't that Suhan Park, the fencer? Suhan stops walking when his name is called. With irony, Jongsu asks, are you ignoring me now that you've gotten a little successful? Suhan responds to Seunggu, I already warned you not to act like you know me. Seunggu, remembering how he used to follow him everywhere, hears Suhan say, I never played dirty like your brother. Smiling, Seunggu comments, I don't think people will care about that. Suhan admits that he used to hang out with Seunggu's brother, beating up other kids, and comments on how an athlete's past can quickly ruin everything. Seunggu suggests Suhan give an allowance to the freshman, mentioning he heard Suhan even got a sponsorship. He proposes Suhan stop by his brother's shop to buy some things, causing Suhan to clench his fist. Bidding farewell, Suhan warns, I'll see you again very soon. A flashback shows the boy in the middle of a fight, with people fallen around him. He walks through the area, maintaining a serious expression. The scene changes to the school building's facade, now in daylight. Ga-in questions the need to decorate the clubroom. Myungji enthusiastically states, we're going to have our own event. She points to a mural summarizing the year's events, highlighting the 2021 Gunsong Festival. Ga-in tries to turn on the camera, but notices it's out of battery. Worried about having so much to photograph, she hears Myungji offer to get the same type of battery she has at home. Myungji says, I'll be right back, and hurries out of the room. Watching her friend leave, Young-ho maintains a discreet smile. Now settled on the bus, Myungji fiddles with her phone. She asks Suhan about an interview for the festival. Suhan replies it could be tonight or tomorrow night. Myungji considers the situation, thinking they'll be busy with decorations and still need to finish the paper cutouts. She decides it's best to consult Young-ho before confirming a time. Surprised by the announcement of the next stop, Myungji realizes she's arrived. Stepping off the bus, a thought makes her pause. As she walks down the street, she wonders, when was the last time I used my fast-forward power? A subtle smile appears on her face as she calmly adjusts her hair. Reaching the apartment door, she takes off her shoes to go inside. Opening the shoe cabinet, Myungji looks for the battery she had promised to bring. Startled by a loud noise coming from inside the apartment, she recoils for a moment. Finding the sound strange, she remembers no one should be home at this hour. Pulling out a hammer, Myungji shouts, "Who's there?" A girl appears in the living room, reacting with a scream. Myungji recognizes Yeonji and hears her ask, "What was that noise? And why do you have a hammer in your hand?" Myungji questions what Yeonji is doing home at this hour and notices she's hiding an envelope. The envelope, stored in a drawer next to the bed in the bedroom, catches her attention. Pointing to the object, Myungji asks, "Is that our emergency fund?" Responding with irritation, Yeonji tries to grab the money back. Myungji stops the movement, holding her sister's wrist, while Yeonji insists, "We're not going to use that money." Myungji retorts, "Auntie gave us that money." Yeonji pushes her forcefully to the floor, breaking free. Holding her arm, Myungji feels the impact of the fall. She stares at her sister in silence for a moment, not reacting. Calling Yeonji's name, Myungji hears her accuse, "You're suddenly acting like an older sister." At another moment, Myungji's phone rings. The screen stays lit, showing that Yeonji's call ended. Myungji remembers her sister's bruises and wonders if she's being bullied. She reflects that she went unnoticed the previous year, admitting to herself that she was afraid to do anything. Myungji hears two boys commenting on the money the new cafeteria brought in and understands they intend to give it to Seunggu. A girl comments, "I feel bad for Yeonji. She became a target after saying something wrong to Seunggu's girlfriend." Other boys laugh, joking that one of them tried to go out with the girl before Myungji interrupts. Approaching the group, she demands, "Give back the money!" One of the boys asks, "Who are you?" while another recognizes her. He identifies her. "It's Yeonji's loser sister," he provokes. The leader orders, "Go away! You might end up crying like your little sister." The boy's eyes widen in surprise, realizing what happened. Myungji hits him with a quick strike, knocking him to the ground. She repeats firmly, "I said give back the money." The boy turns his face, surprised by what just happened. Myungji squeezes his wrist, maintaining control. Grabbed by another guy, she hears him question her actions. "Do you know whose money that is?" he asks, shouting. He warns her about Seunggu Jeon and compares her to his own sister. The first boy tries to take control, ordering them to hold her tightly. He moves to attack her, raising his arm. Myungji faces his move with determination, ready to react. Suddenly, the guy holding her hits the one who was advancing, changing everything. The attacker turns around, confused, trying to understand what happened. He had punched his own friend in the face, losing control. Falling to the ground, the young man is questioned by the other boy. Rubbing his face, he tries to understand what just happened. Myungji stands over the fallen boy, asserting her presence. "Don't mess with Yeonji again," she warns him. "Next time it won't end well." Grabbing the envelope with the money, Myungji secures what she came for. She turns and walks away, leaving the boys behind. Myungji wonders if she truly won a fight against those bullies. She assesses her own courage. Even though she used her powers in public, she believes Yeonji will be fine after this. Wondering what happened, the boy suspects she has superpowers. "We're screwed," he concludes. Worried about what they'll tell Seunggu, the boy feels the weight of the situation. Back in the club room, Myungji sits at a table with Gaeun. Gaeun asks her to fold a piece of paper. Myungji nods in agreement. A subtle smile appears on Myungji's face as she lightly holds the paper. Gaeun watches her silently for a moment. She seems intrigued. "You seem more cheerful," Gaeun comments. "Maybe it's because my worries are gone," Myungji replies. Gaeun hints that the reason is her handsome boyfriend, leaving Myungji confused. "Everyone at school saw you holding hands," Gaeun explains, shocking Myungji. Denying it, Myungji crumples the paper and announces, "I'm going to interview Suhan." A black car waits, parked in front of the school building. Walking down the street, Myungji remains bothered by Gaeun's comment. Myungji mutters to herself, believing Youngho is only walking with her because they're in the same situation. "He's not my boyfriend," Myungji grumbles, bumping into someone. She turns around and realizes it's her sister, Yeonji. Myungji approaches and tries to question her, but Yeonji starts to say she needed to talk to her. Myungji stares at her sister. Yeonji's face shows bruises and a serious expression, revealing her state. "What happened to your face?" Myungji asks. Yeonji grabs her sister's shirt collar and pulls her close. Gripping the fabric, she asks, "What did you do?" Questioning why Myungji got involved, Yeonji shouts, "Did I ever ask for your help? Those idiots are going to bother me for the rest of my life because of you," she asserts, tears in her eyes. Myungji tries to explain that she only wanted to help, but she's interrupted by Yeonji, who asks, "Did you think everything would end by just beating up a few of their goons?" Shoving her sister, Yeonji yells, "Leave me alone! I don't need your help!" Wiping away her tears, Yeonji notices the people around them watching. "Yeonji!" Myungji tries to get closer, but her sister runs off. Standing on the sidewalk, Myungji remains frozen as her sister disappears into the crowd. At a cafe, Myungji finally meets Suhan. "We should have met 20 minutes ago," Suhan points out, questioning her lateness. "Sorry, I'll get ready quickly," Myungji says, apologizing. "I'm busy too, and I made time for you," Suhan says, reproaching her. Suddenly, Myungji lowers her head onto the table and starts to cry. Surprised, Suhan turns to her, not understanding her reaction. With tears streaming down her face, Myungji continues to sob. Suhan asks what's wrong. "It's not your fault." Myungji denies it. Myungji explains that she's not crying because of him, but because of her sister. "My sister hates me. I only make everything worse when I try to help," she sobs, trying to compose herself. "I knew Yeonji was hanging out with the wrong crowd, and I think now they're asking her for money," Myungji adds, trying to control her voice. Do you know the boys' names? Suhan asks, trying to understand the situation. One of them mentioned the name Sungu-jeon, Myungji replies, recalling the moment. Myungji asks Suhan to call Youngho. What's Youngho doing? Suhan hesitates, stating that, as an only child, he can't help her with a problem between sisters. As an only child, I can't help you with a problem between sisters. But deciding enough is enough, Suhan declares, I'll teach Seunggu a lesson. In a dark tunnel at night, the scene unfolds in damp shadows. Seunggu and a girl walk. He laughs, satisfied that they scared off some boys who ran away. Suddenly, Seunggu stops. A confused expression appears on his face. Snack wrappers and an empty bottle are scattered on the ground, indicating the food is gone. Approaching Yeonji, he calls her an idiot. She repeats something in a low voice. He calls her cafeteria. Yeonji flinches shyly at the nickname. Who gave you permission to stop? He demands. He complains that it's her fault they're drinking under a bridge. As lunchbox, you should have used your allowance to help us, he states, letting the accusation hang in the air. Change your excuse, he suggests. The current one isn't working. He instructs her to say, I have no mother or father, so I don't know how to help my friends. Keeping his gaze fixed on Yeonji, he observes her hesitant silence. Taunting her about her lack of cooperation and her rude expression, he pressures her relentlessly. Forced by the situation, Yeonji begins to repeat the humiliating phrase. In the background, other students laugh. Before she can finish, she receives a hard slap that cracks through the air. Seunggu calls her the worst kind of person and laughs, saying he can't believe she actually obeyed. Bring the money by tomorrow, he orders. Otherwise, I'll come after you and your sister. Reprimanding the two boys for getting beaten by a girl, he warns, next time I won't go easy. One of them tries to explain, but she came out of nowhere. Seunggu interrupts him, telling him to shut up. Noticing Yeonji is still there, he questions, are you still hanging around the same places? Suhan, Myungji, and Youngho emerge at the spot, revealing themselves from the shadows. Yeonji is surprised to see her sister. The other girl then asks, how do you know Suhan? Turning around, Seunggu comments that he heard Suhan had turned his life around. Are you having fun with a bunch of losers? He taunts, throwing the insult without hesitation. Myungji! Youngho calls out to her, grabbing her attention. He states they can handle the bullies harassing Yeonji, but explains, you'll have to sort things out afterward. Myungji agrees with the idea and accepts the responsibility that's coming. You need to get involved if you really want to help your sister, Youngho declares, reinforcing the decision. Laughing at the situation, Seunggu says, I can't believe Suhan brought people who can't even fight to this showdown. Suhan, do you know how many people are here with him? He asks, ending his taunt dismissively. With a smile, Suhan replies, not that many. Attack! Seunggu orders his companions without a moment's hesitation. The thugs rush forward, closing in fast. Suhan comments, it seems we need to have a word with the big guy over there. His voice firm. He gestures briefly, suggesting, take care of the others first. Youngho's gaze activates, and tension fills the air. Suddenly, the three advancing thugs fall to the ground, collapsing without warning. Moving past them, Youngho watches their bodies move in slow motion. Yeonji and Seunggu watch the scene, uncomprehending, frozen in place. Why are you just standing there? Seunggu shouts at his companions, but one of them replies, I can't move. Suhan approaches Seunggu, closing the distance between them. Worry about yourself, Suhan says, the threat clear in his tone. The thug reacts with raw impulse, swinging a punch. Suhan, however, dodges and strikes him with a swift blow. Stunned by the attack, Seunggu stares at him, his expression unraveling. Aren't you tired of acting like a child? Suhan questions, his gaze firm. Suhan clenches his fist and tells Seunggu, apologize and end this. Lunging forward and shouting, Seunggu tries to regain his composure, but a silhouette appears behind him, hitting him again with a swift slap to the face. Suhan makes him stumble. Do you think you're strong just because you got a little bigger? Suhan asks, calling his bluff. The young man replies, going around in groups doesn't make you better, making his criticism plain. Slapping him again, he declares, you need to grow up too, Seunggu. Swearing, Seunggu starts running to escape the area. Myungji! Yeonji screams, trying to get her sister's attention as she chases the bully. Holding her arm, Youngho says, it's all right. Reassuring her, he states, no need to worry. Running breathlessly across a bridge, Seunggu tries to escape, his breath ragged. As Seunggu threatens to call his brother, Myungji suddenly appears and grabs him from behind. Startled as he's lifted by the collar, the bully loses control. Thrown over the bridge railing, he tries to grasp at the air. Screaming desperately, Seunggu plummets towards the water. Myungji watches his fall in silence, her gaze unwavering. Crashing into the water with a loud splash, Seunggu disappears beneath the surface. Surfacing, he screams and gasps for air, struggling to stay afloat. In his mind, a voice echoes, reminding him how reliable Myungji is and expressing pride in her. Climbing out of the water, Sungu coughs and spits out the excess water. The voice urges Myungji to keep looking after her sister that way, and she agrees. Looking around, Sungu remains breathless and confused. Approaching him, Myungji warns, "Don't mess with Yeonji again. I will protect her at all costs." Turning to leave, she leaves him behind. Running to her, Yeonji calls out, "Myungji! Myungji, are you okay?" Yeonji asks. Her sister smiles at her. Under the moonlight, Myungji invites her. "Let's go home." In a dark place, a dead person's hand and a bloody hammer lie on the floor. Screaming furiously for being tricked by Suhan and wondering where the kids with powers are, Hae-in loses control. Swearing she'll kill him, she starts walking down a dark hallway. Expressing disappointment, an unknown voice says, "I thought you'd be able to gather all the powers." "Who are you?" Hae-in asks. Trying to see the owner of the voice, he responds only with another question. With a snap of his fingers, he reveals himself as the person who will take her power. Falling over the apartment complex, night envelops everything in shadows. Myungji and Yeonji arrive together at their front door, sharing the same tired steps. As they enter, an uncomfortable silence settles. Myungji asks what happened, trying to break the tension. Yeonji replies, letting her frustration escape. "I didn't care how I lived before," and asks, "Why are you acting like this now?" Myungji remains quiet for a moment, feeling the weight of the words. Gesturing with her hand, she tries to find a way to explain. She remembers everything she saw, people trying to kill her, the possibility of having died. The memory tightens her chest. Myungji hesitates, wondering if Yeonji will understand. Yeonji stares at her expressionlessly, revealing nothing. Turning away, she says, "Myungji, you're being frustrating." But still, Myungji decides to speak. She thanks her for the help, letting her soft voice fill the air. Entering her room, Yeonji closes the door without looking back. Alone in the apartment hallway, Myungji remains still. She wishes Yeonji goodnight before entering her own room, trying to ease the mood. Lying in her bed, she seeks some rest. The next day arrives, and the start of the festival transforms the routine. The school is decorated with a banner announcing the event, gaining new colors. Climbing the stairs, Myungji remembers, Youngho was right. She needs to take it easy. She takes a deep breath, deciding she's happy her sister is willing to wait for her. She sees some boys ahead, including Youngho. The group is standing in the hallway. Approaching the crowd of students, she asks, "What's happening?" Suddenly, a teacher appears and tells everyone to go back to their classrooms immediately. She hears students asking themselves, "Did someone really die? When will the police arrive?" The discomfort grows. Pushing through the crowd, Myungji forces her way through. She continues to move forward among the students, insisting on seeing what's ahead. Myungji's eyes widen at what she sees. She loses her breath for an instant. Inside the classroom, a student is hanging from the ceiling. The image of the girl powerfully returns to her mind. A teacher tries to control the situation. He instructs the students from class 2 to go to the field and forbids photos. Myungji turns. She remembers Hyunju's power to go back in time and realizes she's dead. Back in her apartment, daylight streams through the window. Upon entering her room, she throws her backpack onto the desk, relieving the weight on her shoulders. Then she sits down, trying to organize her thoughts. Myungji questions, who could have done that? The doubt grows. Hae-in had limits to using her powers, but she could go back in time. She wasn't an easy opponent. Myungji weighs the possibilities. She remembers 2 other people, letting her mind scroll through their faces, but she dismisses the idea, recalling she was with both of them the night before. Then her phone rings. Myungji receives a call from Detective Du. She watches the name light up on the screen. Answering the phone, Myungji waits for an explanation. The detective apologizes for not answering sooner. She says, "My phone had run out of battery." She asks, "What happened? You called many times." Myungji says, "Hae-in is dead." The detective is surprised. The detective tries to understand, how did it happen? Was it them? Myungji shakes her head. Myungji explains that Hae-in intensified her search about 3 days ago. They used Suon's power to make her forget they had powers. She continues, Hae-in was found hanged at school this morning. Who would do such a thing? On the other end of the line, the detective doesn't understand the mention of 3 days ago. She asks, wasn't it last night? Confused by the question, Myungji narrows her eyes. She insists on what she remembers. I'm sure it was 3 days ago. How didn't you know? Detective Du explains, I felt time stop 3 days ago. However, the power to go back in time was used last night. She reveals that Youngho's timeline was reset. This would be impossible if time hadn't been reversed. The detective explains her shuffle power. It allows her to feel the flow of time when others use their abilities. She would have felt time reverse. Myungji recalls, it was around 10 last night. She didn't feel anything 3 days ago. She tries to sort out the facts. She remembers that Hae-in can't retain her memories when going back in time. That's why she understands why Hyein leaves a mark for herself. Myongji concludes that the detective also loses her memory. It's natural that she wouldn't remember the powers being used. Struck by the realization, Myongji loses her breath for an instant. Myongji reaches the final understanding. Hyein-ju was not the true power holder. She was killed by someone who can go back in time and remember everything. A meeting takes place at the police station. 4 people are seated around a large table in the conference room. A man in a suit slides a file across the table, presenting the requests regarding Detective Myeon-do. The superior officer questions the additional disciplinary action, but the man states that the situation is different. He asks why they're bringing this up after so long. The man replies that it's because someone was injured. The officer considers it an exaggeration, but the man insists, saying it's standard procedure. Detective Do observes in silence. An older woman also presents her testimony about the case. Outside, the officer comments on their rude attitude. He wonders why they're digging into something already in the past. Myeon-do remains silent. "Don't worry," she tells him. "I'll try to talk to them again." She takes the blame and thanks him for the help. The officer asks how work is over there. She replies that it's the same as always. The detective says goodbye. "I have a few things to do before I go back. It was good to see you. I know it wasn't out of obsession with the case, as everyone says," he states, watching her. The officer then advises her, "Take care." Myeon-do replies affirmatively to her superior and walks on. Then, she walks away from the police station building. A voice calls her, making her turn to see who it is. It's the older woman from the meeting, standing there. The two stand face to face on the sidewalk. Bowing, Myeon-do apologizes. "I'll accept my punishment," she says, but the woman stops her from leaving. "I never asked for the disciplinary action," the woman states, holding her gaze firm. Turning, the detective asks, "Who was it then?" The woman replies, "We need to talk." In a coffee shop, they sit down to discuss the matter. The woman begins by explaining she received a call about 2 weeks ago. She explains that a sophisticated law firm offered to take her case, claiming to do pro bono work from time to time. In a flashback, the woman appears refusing the offer over the phone, but while she was at home, the doorbell rang. Walking to the door, she peeked to see who was outside. In the end, some people from the law firm visited her. They insisted it was for her benefit, but the approach sounded almost like a threat. Sipping her coffee, Detective Do wonders, why would a law firm get involved in a closed case with nothing to gain? The woman explains she had no choice but to consent, but she felt uncomfortable with the situation. Then she hands the detective a business card from the firm. Reading the name on the card, Myeon-do sees the Gwon law firm. The detective comments, "I also have something to give you." She opens her hand, revealing a small earring. She lets the woman stare at the object. The memory of being held hostage, with a knife at her throat, invades her mind. Recalling Myeon-do pointing the gun at the assailant, she relives the scene. And the image of the detective walking with a police colleague that night returns. Appearing shaken after the incident, Myeon-do explains about the object. "That's the earring left on the floor that night," she explains. "I wanted to return it," she states. "It would make her feel a little better." "Thank you for everything," the woman says. She says goodbye and states, "It's better if we're not seen together." But she starts talking about that day, sparking the detective's curiosity. She recounts that she had cooked a stew for her family that morning, but not wanting to cook, she just reheated the leftovers before going back to sleep. The morning was the same as always, just like the day before. After being shot in the ear and undergoing surgery, she returned home. Upon seeing the stew her family had left in the pot, she just stared at it. She remembered her husband, who always shaved before leaving for work, and her daughter, who would rush up from the first floor after forgetting something. Nothing was different from the day before. She thought tomorrow would bring an identical morning, but realized she was foolish. Feeling grateful for receiving another day, she takes a deep breath. "The person who threatened me with a weapon was a killer," she says. "I would be dead if it weren't for the detective. If the price for that was just an ear, then I'm satisfied." Holding the earring, she comments, "I didn't imagine the detective felt this way." She promises to talk to the law firm one more time. Rising from the table, Myeon-do prepares to leave. As she walks away, she hears, "Thank you." Sitting at her desk, Detective Do begins to research. Analyzing the Gwon law firm's business card, she observes a small and recently established group of lawyers. Noticing there isn't much information about them, she also notes the absence of involvement in suspicious incidents. Deciding to investigate the lawyer who handled the case instead of the firm, she clicks the link on her computer. What she finds surprises her. Continuing her research, she keeps a close eye on the screen. It's already night, and she remains in her office, unable to believe what she sees. Realizing the weakness is linked to the power of going back in time, she stares at the screen. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. A voice from the other side says, "You're very clever," and calls her by name, Detective Do. From the other side of the door, a voice comments, "You've discovered a lot in a short amount of time." Naturally, the voice continues. It was strange for a law firm to investigate an already closed case. Myeon-do grabs her gun and asks, "Who's there?" The voice identifies itself as Rewind. "I am the person you were trying to eliminate." Myeon-do questions the reason for the visit. "Did you come to apologize for ruining my life?" The response is immediate. "It wasn't a mistake. Time was reversed the moment you fired and you described it as an incredible coincidence." He continues, recalling the assassin who took a hostage right in front of Myeon-do. "The shot went astray because time was rewound at that exact moment. Because of that, you were punished and transferred to Gunseong." The door opens. A man appears and states, "It was all part of the plan. You moved like a pawn." The man in the suit enters the office and asks, "Did you really think I came here to apologize?" Myeon-do points her gun directly at him without hesitation. She stares at his smile with a steady gaze. She fires several times, initiating the attack. The man in the suit falls to the ground from the impact of the shots, trying to regain his composure. Myeon-do keeps her gun firmly aimed, controlling the situation. He rises slightly, surprised. "You shot me as soon as you saw me?" Myeon-do replies, but no vital points were hit. She presses the barrel of the gun against his head, eliminating any distance. Myeon-do questions his claim that it wasn't a mistake. "Why do you say it wasn't a mistake?" A memory of her past as an officer flashes through Myeon-do's mind. She cries out in despair, "Why would you do that? Why couldn't you just kill me?" Bearing the weight of that incident, she has struggled with the memories every day since. The detective presses him, demanding an answer. He comments, "Everyone experiences sorrow at least once." Calmly, he describes the process: denial, anger, bargaining, and depression. In the end, everyone accepts reality. He adds a bitter reflection, "But losing something precious makes acceptance too cruel." Myeon-do asks, trying to understand, "What are you talking about?" He replies, "I'm not ready to accept reality yet." Time rewinds to the previous moment, putting Myeon-do back on her feet. Pointing the gun, Myeon-do states, "It's useless. My power remembers how time flowed." She pulls the trigger without hesitation, restarting the confrontation. The man agilely dodges the shot, moving quickly. The bullet hits the wall right behind him, missing its target. Myeon-do questions how he managed to avoid the shot. She recalls aiming at different vital points. Myeon-do tries to understand the situation, concluding that she would remember if he had used time reversal power. She fires again, trying to hit him, but he dodges once more. Suddenly, the man lunges forward and grabs the barrel of her gun. He strikes the detective's shoulder with a sharp object, causing her to recoil immediately. Myeon-do recoils from the impact, feeling the pain throb. He reveals the object is a pen, observing her reaction. "Your power is complicated, Myeon-do. You move during the pause and remember everything when time returns." He details Hae-in's ability. It wasn't about reversing time, but creating an infinite loop of a period. Memory was lost with each repetition. A single mark left behind was enough to nullify her power. He lands a kick against Myeon-do's fallen body, maintaining control of the situation. He watches Myeon-do fall to the ground, revealing, "Your trip to Seoul allowed me to take Hae-in's ability." Myeon-do's belongings spill from her bag, scattering across the floor. Standing still, he watches the detective lying on the ground. Myeon-do tries to process the revelation. If he took Hae-in's ability, then they were wrong. She remembers needing to tell them about the weakness she saw in the power, gasping for breath. Gasping on the floor, Myeon-do tries to regain some control. Time passes slowly, seemingly weighing down her body. The man continues to watch, maintaining his silence. He states simply, "You are dead." With that, any hope there vanishes. Beside Myeon-do's bloodied hand, the earring lies motionless. Elsewhere, the victim's mother is in the kitchen. Her daughter approaches and calls out to her mother. She asks, trying to understand the object on the table, "What is this? Did you buy it?" The mother explains it's the earring her daughter lost and that the detective returned it. She suspects nothing. The daughter says, "That's not an earring. I'm going to wash up." She walks away, leaving her mother confused. The woman turns her gaze to the object on the table, trying to understand what she just saw. The clock continues to tick, marking the time. Its hands spin endlessly, recording the passage of seconds. Heavy rain fell over the school. An ID card was swept away by the water in the courtyard. Inside the classroom, Young-ho watched the weather through the window. He tried to call Detective Do but couldn't reach her. Ma-young-ji confirmed that the detective wasn't answering and grew restless. Reading an old message about the Gwon law firm, she mentioned her concern. Staring at the rain through the window, she felt the weight of the situation. The rain poured heavily on the festival tents, dominating the atmosphere. Young-ho sighed. "I thought we were nearing the end, but now it feels like we're even further away." Ma-young-ji wondered if it was safe to keep going to school with Rewind chasing them. She wondered, is having a normal life too much to ask? Ma-young-ji suggested maybe they should run away, remembering what Record had said. Holding her hand, Young-ho called her name. He confessed, "I'm scared too, and I want to run away, but we'd live in fear forever if we did that. Don't you want your old life back? We're almost there." Agreeing not to give up, Myongji squeezed his hand. Young-ho voiced his concern. "Even though I said that, I know we're in danger if we keep going like this." He concluded that Rewind killing Haein proved something. They had information, even about Myongji and Young-ho. He tried to organize his thoughts. Wondering how they'd find Rewind, he stared into space. Approaching the school's bulletin board, he started looking for something useful. Scanning the announcements and news, his eyes darted over every detail. Young-ho called out to Myongji, "Look what I found." Pointing to an article about the NV Bio Group, he asked, "Isn't this Haein's parents' company?" Myongji confirmed, "They're Suhan's sponsors." She tried to understand the connection, but he said, "There's more." The school and NV Bio were connected in more areas than it seemed, forming a troubling pattern. Circling the company's mention on a festival flyer, Young-ho highlighted the connections. He also pointed out a note about a student sponsored by Company N, reinforcing the suspicion. "They're involved in a lot of things," Myongji commented, seeing the bigger picture emerge. Young-ho suggested a connection. Having a sudden realization, she unlocked her phone. The news confirmed her unease, showing that NV Bio had hired the Guan law firm. Young-ho felt the impact of the revelation. If the Guan firm is also affiliated with NV Bio, then the situation is more complex. Standing in the room, the two pondered the discovery. Young-ho agreed with the theory and took a deep breath. If it's true, everything makes sense. Looking at the board, they realized. All the clues led to the Guan law firm. They concluded that Detective Do was in danger. This alone explained why she wasn't answering her phone. The thought weighed heavily on both of them. Over the school's loudspeakers, an announcement summoned all students and teachers to the memorial service for Haein-ju and Seonju Lee. The voice requested everyone gather in the auditorium, maintaining a solemn tone. On stage, the school principal faced an audience of students and staff. Sitting down and bowing their heads in respect, Myongji and Young-ho attended the ceremony. Displayed on stage, photos of Haein-ju and Seonju Lee hovered over the silence. Myongji tried to understand the timing, asking herself, why would Rewind show up right now? She grew uneasy, wondering, why are they showing off instead of hiding their crimes? The principal continued his speech, expressing regret for the tragedy that befell the two students. Announcing his resignation and taking full responsibility for failing to keep them safe, he concluded his tenure. Can they do that? Myongji questioned. Young-ho replied, the school must be taking full responsibility. Someone tapped Young-ho on the shoulder, making him turn around. He stared at the person's face and his eyes widened. The principal was preparing to introduce his replacement. He watched as someone pulled Young-ho forward. The voice on stage revealed that the man had founded the school 14 years ago, creating a palpable tension. Holding Young-ho's hand, Myongji asked, "What's wrong?" She had just heard that the man was the chief director of the school's foundation. The man was also the chairman of the NV group. The revelation stunned Myongji. Ascending the stage steps, the new principal advanced slowly. Young-ho was shaken to hear that he was the representative of the Guan law firm. He barely reacted. Finally introduced as the chief principal, Noongdae Guan commanded absolute attention. Reacting to the number 300, Myongji held her breath. Addressing the students, Noongdae Guan said, "It's a pleasure to meet you all." Noongdae Guan introduced himself to the students and remarked that the former principal had given an excellent introduction. He stated he felt an immense responsibility and would assume the position for the time being, assuring them that everything that had happened at the school would now come to an end. He left the auditorium in silence. He pledged to take responsibility for everything that would happen from now on, reinforcing his stance. Noongdae assured them that no one would ever harm another student again, and as he said this, he met Young-ho's unwavering gaze. Continuing his speech, he maintained a firm tone. He said he saw the sparkle in everyone's eyes, attempting to comfort the audience. He vowed to restore the precious moments buried by fear and promised help to anyone who needed it. Finally, he said he would be waiting in the principal's office, concluding his address. After the speech, the memorial service concluded and students were instructed to return safely. Walking out of the school together, Myongji and Young-ho shared the weight of the moment. Myongji commented, "He knows we have powers and is deliberately provoking us." Young-ho added that his timeline numbers were completely different from Haein's, concluding that he had used his power multiple times. Myongji decided to call Detective Do again, taking the initiative. Young-ho agreed to call Suhan, as they couldn't solve this on their own. Called by a voice, Young-ho turned. Standing nearby, a young man with short, light hair watched them. Myongji recognized him as Detective Do's colleague and noted that he looked different. The young man asked Young-ho to accompany him for a moment, maintaining a serious demeanor. Myongji intervened. "We have nothing to do with Haein, and we have an alibi for that day." He clarified, "This isn't about that." He then mentioned the incident that occurred in Bundang a year ago, the disappearance of Jingyu Bai. Hearing Jingyu's name, Young-ho reacted, losing his breath for an instant. The scene shifted shifts to the Gangdong police station. In an interrogation room, the officer explained that they had found new leads and that this was an additional investigation. "Were you investigated last summer for Jingyu Bei's disappearance?" he asked, requesting his testimony again. Images of past events flooded Young-ho's mind as he tried to compose himself. "I was supposed to play basketball with Jingyu that day, but he didn't show up or answer his phone. I just went home," he recounted. "Wasn't that why he was reported missing?" the officer questioned, following protocol. The officer delivered the final blow. "We believe we found Jingyu Bei's body at the river pier." Visibly shaken by the news, Young-ho felt the ground drop beneath him. "The time of death coincides with the time of his disappearance," the officer estimated. "Was Jingyu drinking or depressed?" Young-ho denied it. "Did anyone hold a grudge against Jingyu?" he asked, receiving another negative response. Concluding the questionnaire, the young officer took a deep breath. He stood up, lamenting the loss of a close friend. "Young-ho, you can leave once you've composed yourself." Remaining seated in silence, Young-ho stared at the table. Exiting the room, the officer found Myongji calling out to him in the hallway. She hurried toward him, trying to understand the situation. He reassured her. "Don't worry, we're just taking Young-ho's statement. But I also have something to ask you," he said, his tone shifting. Hesitating for a moment before speaking, he seems to weigh his words. He reveals, "Detective Du was murdered." The news completely stuns Myongji. He continues, "She was killed in Seoul last night. We haven't found the culprit yet." Myongji reacts firmly. "It was Nungdae Gwan. The detective was killed while investigating him." Touching his own arm, the officer tries to collect his thoughts. "Was there something going on between you and Sergeant Doe?" he asks, seeking clarity. A memory surfaces. He comments, "It was strange for her to keep in touch with you since the case was closed." He remembers, "You were the student nearly killed by the serial killer Seol Shin. I believe the detective was just following up on the case." He takes a deep breath. "Now I need to know the truth." Pulling a plastic bag with a watch inside from his pocket, he displays the evidence. Myongji recognizes the object as the watch the sergeant wore all the time, and the impact hits her. The officer declares, "My personal feelings might be involved, but I want to catch the killer more than anyone." He explains, "The victim's mother came to me to give me the watch. She didn't know how her daughter had it." "Do you know what the watch means?" he asked Myongji, awaiting a response. Understanding that this was the last item Detective Doe left behind, Myongji clenches her hand tightly. She realizes the detective was killed for investigating Nungdae Gwan and used her power to leave that clue. The truth clicks into place. Having a sudden realization, she holds her breath. Still sitting at the interrogation room table, Young-ho stares into space. He pieces things together, concluding that Rewind found the body on purpose to pressure and shake him. Recognizing that he was responsible for Jingyu's death, Young-ho's stomach churns. He decides he can't let it affect him and shouldn't stop to think, forcing himself to stay focused. The weight increases as he knows Rewind is the CEO of NV Group, the Guan law firm, and the chief director of his school's foundation. Over Nungdae Gwan's image, the number 300 stands out and occupies his mind. Suddenly, he questions if someone's timeline can stop perfectly at a number, trying to understand. He realizes it's almost as if it can't go past 300 and feels a chill. Myongji shares the strangeness, noting that the watch is broken and keeps ticking at the same point. Together, they wonder what it means. In the school changing room, Suhan tidies his things in his locker. A classmate approaches from behind, calling his name. He asks if Suhan has time before practice to eat and play video games. Suhan politely declines, explaining he already has other plans. The classmate asks if it's a date. "Something like that," Suhan replies. He promises to go next time. Later, Suhan walks alone down a busy market street. He moves through the crowd, passing between stalls and following the narrow vendor aisle. An older vendor greets him. Suhan approaches the stall. She asks if he came from practice. "Take it easy," she says. Suhan, holding a box of goods, asks, "Mom, rest. I promise I'll get you out of this neighborhood when I win a gold medal." His mother smiles lightly and replies, "I like living here," she explains. "I raised you this way, and I've kept the shop since your father was alive. We don't need anything bigger." Suhan asks, "Why did you mention Dad? We can take him with us when I earn a lot of money." His mother asks, "Don't get into fights and keep practicing. I'll support you until you win that medal." "I don't fight anymore," Suhan assures her. The scene moves on. As he prepares to leave, Suhan hears a voice calling his name. He turns sharply, facing the direction of the call. Across the street, a sturdy young man watches him in silence. Recognizing the face, Suhan asks, "Is that Seung-tae?" Suhan's mother greets him joyfully. The visitor smiles, but Suhan interrupts her. Suhan states, "Seung-tae should leave." He tries to get him away from there. Suhan steps back a few paces. He reminds him of their agreement to live separate lives and asks, "Did you come because of Seunggu?" Seung-tae takes a deep breath, confirming he heard what happened. Suhan questions him, "Did you come to avenge your younger brother?" He challenges him to a fight. In response, Seung-tae lets out a loud laugh. Suhan is confused, surprised surprised by the reaction. Seungtae shakes his head, saying, I didn't come for that, he explains. I knew my brother was acting out of control. I was too busy to interfere. Not understanding, Suhan asks, what are you talking about? Seungtae shows sincerity, thanking him simply. He recounts, in that neighborhood, everyone was beneath me. When I came to Seoul, nothing went my way. Seungtae thanks Suhan. I wanted my brother to finally come to his senses. I thank you for making that happen. He concludes the explanation, saying, the fight with Seunggu started because Suhan tried to stop him from stealing money from a schoolmate. Seungtae concludes the matter, advising his brother, stop bothering young people who are just trying their best. He explains, I came to the city to take care of some business. I took the opportunity to visit you and your mother. Mentioning that he sometimes reads about Suhan in the news, he asks, don't avoid my calls. Suhan smiles slightly and simply nods. Seungtae says goodbye and goes on his way, asking, call me when you're in Seoul. Elsewhere in the city, a man in a suit answers a call in a fabric shop. He quietly informs the person on the phone, I found who you were looking for. The scene changes to the front of a large modern gym. Moments later, Suhan enters the changing room and looks for his spot. A classmate asks, have you eaten yet? He comments that Suhan arrived early. Suhan remains silent, offering no response. Turning to his classmate, Suhan asks, what's wrong? Did something happen? Down the hall, other students slam a locker door without looking at him. Suhan questions, what's wrong with everyone? He feels his phone vibrate in his pocket. He answers a call from his manager. He needs to talk about his sponsor. The man sighs on the other end, informing him, NV Bio canceled the sponsorship. Suhan argues, Hyen should support me. He is interrupted before he can suggest an alternative. The manager reveals, a problem related to school violence has come up. He falls silent for a moment. The scene cuts to Myungji and Yongho standing in front of a police department. Turning to Yongho, Myungji asks, are you okay? Yongho replies, yes, we need to gather all the information we have. He explains, Rewind's timeline stopped exactly at 300. I've never seen that before. He mentions the watch the detective left using her swapping ability shortly before she died. He looks at the object. Myungji suggests, the watch might be broken since the second hand doesn't go past 12. Is this related to Rewind's ability? Yongho admits, I still don't know what it means. He is interrupted by a call from Suhan. Answering the phone, he hears Suhan ask, are you two okay? Suhan explains, someone is spreading rumors. All my sponsorships have been canceled. Yongho asks, do you think it was Seunggu-jun? He receives a firm denial. Suhan states, it's not just rumors. Several media outlets published the articles deliberately and in sync. Myungji turns serious, commenting that because of what happened before, things are tightening around them, one by one. She observes her colleague, remembering Yongho's friend's death and the pressure on Suhan's athletic career. In a hospital, a person is hastily pushed on a stretcher down a lit corridor. Myungji feels the past return, recalling another event. She faces the memory with a heavy heart, remembering the moment she was carried away injured on a stretcher. At night, the facade of a large hospital remains lit. Rushing down a corridor, Myungji searches for the right room. Entering the room, she calls her sister Yeonji. Lying with her leg in a cast, the girl greets her casually. Myungji asks what happened. Yeonji replies that she was crossing the street. I never go to the library. This is a sign I shouldn't study, Yeonji jokes. Myungji calls her sister's name again and stares at her, holding a firm gaze as Yeonji falls silent. Clenching the sheet, Myungji says, no, Yeonji. Elsewhere, an older man states it wasn't an accident. He assures them that Rewind was behind it. Yeonji asks why her sister is overreacting so much. Myungji simply wipes her face and replies, I'm just happy you're safe. Watching her sister in silence for a few moments, Yeonji takes a deep breath. She calls Myungji and prepares to continue. Until recently, I hated you, Yeonji confesses, leaving her sister confused. Remembering that day, Myungji relives the funeral scene. Before her parents' photograph, Myungji remembers she couldn't believe it. Losing them both overnight seemed impossible. They were always by our side, Yeonji continues. Myungji stares at the floor when Yeonji asks, what was even harder? Recalling how she used to stare at Myungji in the room they shared, she breathes heavily. The worst part was seeing you become a completely different person, she explains, revisiting the past. Remembering Myungji sitting silently on the bed, Yeonji narrows her eyes. For her sister was the only person she could lean on. I know everything, Yeonji cries out, regretting her stubbornness that day. She is interrupted. Myungji says, it wasn't your fault. It was an accident. Clutching the fabric between her fingers, Yeonji replies, it would have been better if you had blamed me and hated me. Anything would have been better than being left alone. No matter how much I screamed, you never answered. That's why I resented you. In the present, Myungji continues listening in silence. The person I truly hated was myself, Yeonji admits, lowering her gaze. That's why I couldn't accept it when you tried to get close. She hugs Myongji and says, "It's okay if you hate me." Returning the hug, Myongji apologizes to her sister. "I'm sorry for leaving you alone and for making you go through all of that," she continues. "I'm sorry I couldn't get closer," Myongji says, her voice trembling. Clutching her sister's clothes, Yeonji takes a deep breath. "From now on, please don't leave me alone again," Yeonji asks. Later, outside the hospital, night had already fallen. Myongji steps out onto the terrace. Youngho asks, "How is Yeonji doing?" Myongji replies that her sister needs to rest. Suhan assures her, "She'll be fine soon." Myongji asks, "Are you sure he's Rewind?" Youngho confirms and explains, "Otherwise, he wouldn't have dug up Jingyu's case with such precision." Youngho adds that the man purposely put his hand on his shoulder to expose his timeline and then takes a deep breath. Suhan says firmly, "I suggest we gather all the facts we have." Grabbing Youngho's arm, he says, "I've already made up my mind. Why should we wait?" Youngho tries to curb their haste. He warns that 2 people have already died, and that means Rewind possesses at least 3 powers. Suhan, however, interrupts him. "Rewind declared war on us. He threatened your career and even tried to mess with Myongji's sister," Suhan asserts, taking a step forward. "Youngho, can you guarantee he won't do anything worse?" Suhan asks. Myongji agrees. He's right. Myongji realizes that at this rate, Yeonji will be in danger. She remembers that Rewind knows her sister is all she has left. Youngho asks where they're going to look for Rewind, leaving Myongji silent for a moment. Myongji inhales slowly, remembering the principal. He told them to find him in his office if they were going through a difficult time. "He already told us where to find him," she states, lifting her gaze. The scene cuts to the principal's office door plaque, where the name Nungdae Gwan is prominently displayed. Entering the room moments later, Myongji finds the man with his back to her, looking out the window. He turns partially and says, "You understood what I meant." The man turns completely and states, "I wanted to meet you." Advancing in time, the scene shows Myongji standing in a silent corridor. Remembering her sister's promise in the hospital, she recalls the request to never be left alone again. Myongji admits to herself that she doesn't know if she can keep that promise, as the shadows of the corridor envelop her. Gwan knew Myongji would come, but didn't expect her to arrive alone. Myongji responds with a firm gaze. She states that he doesn't want to fight there, but to take everyone's powers all at once. Smiling, Gwan calmly confirms her suspicion. He slides a small map across the table, pushing the paper toward Myongji. Gwan explains it's a private property, a secluded place 30 minutes away by car. He asks if Myongji understands what he's saying. Myongji narrows her eyes. She asks why he's going so far with his plans. "You're a billionaire president, capable of traveling back in time. Do you really need more powers, even if it ruins other people's lives?" Myongji questions. Gwan tilts his head. "Are you telling me to be content with the life I have?" He takes a deep breath. "It may seem like I lack nothing, but even those who have everything always hold on to something they wish to recover." Stepping away from the table, he states, "You and your friends are just in my way." He pours a cup of tea. "You have one day to resolve everything. There will be things left behind." Gwan calmly raises his cup. "Since you came all this way, you surely already know this. I know what's important to all of you. If you decide to flee, I'll destroy that first," Gwan threatens. Myongji exits the principal's office and carefully closes the door. Back at the hospital, Yeonji is sitting on the bed, writing in a notebook. "I don't understand this subject," she sighs. The room door opens and Myongji enters silently. "You arrived early," Yeonji comments. She asks if her sister can help her with math, but Myongji states she's not very good at it. Laughing, Yeonji says, "I thought you were smart," but she is interrupted by her sister's seriousness. Myongji wrings her hands. "I need to go somewhere. It might take me a while to return," she adds, staring at her sister with hesitation. Yeonji frowns. "What are you talking about? You're scaring me." Myongji lowers her voice. "What happened yesterday was not an accident. Someone did that on purpose." With a clenched fist, she tries to control her breathing. "They did that to provoke me. They might do something worse if I don't get involved." Yeonji remains motionless, staring at her sister without understanding. "After our parents' accident, I lived without any motivation," Myongji confesses. The weight of the words spreads through the room. "I ran away. I didn't try to solve anything on my own, believing that all that time meant nothing. But now, things no longer work that way. If I want to change something and protect what is important, I can't keep ignoring the situation or run away again," Myongji affirms. "No one should mess with you again. A partir de agora, I will protect you at all costs. I need to face everything head on and fight," Myongji concludes. Yeonji watches her, unable to react. Soon after, she questions, "What were we talking about yesterday? You promised me you would never leave me alone. Now I can't explain anything properly," Yeonji laments. "Just now that we could finally be together, you can't come back. How am I supposed to live alone again? She asks. Then Yeonji reaches out her hand to her sister. Why do you need to get involved with something like that? Myungji embraces her sister and makes a promise. Myungji repeats the words while Yeonji calms down in her arms. I will return, she assures. Later, a taxi parks on a rural road. The driver warns, we've arrived. You'd better get back home early. The car leaves, leaving Myungji alone on the road. At that moment, Young-ho calls her. Suhan and I were waiting for you. As they walk together, he asks, were you able to talk to your sister? Myungji replies, I couldn't explain anything properly, so I just promised I would return, but I'm afraid something might happen. Young-ho tries to reassure her, don't worry. Regardless of Nungdae Gwan's abilities, it's still 3 against 1. Holding the card, Suhan takes the lead. The way is this way, he indicates. They arrive at a large abandoned industrial complex. It's just an old factory, Myungji comments. Young-ho adds, the place is perfect for covering up any accident. The 3 enter the spacious interior of the building. Young-ho observes, there's nothing special in here. Suhan asks, what will the plan be since we only have a few hours? Suhan notes, there are many things scattered around, but Gwan hasn't installed any devices. That shows enormous confidence. Young-ho begins to explain that Gwan intends to connect their abilities, but Myungji cuts him off. She announces, I have a plan. Myungji raises her cell phone toward the 2 of them. Young-ho observes the device, curious. On the screen, a news item appears about NV Bio's new research related to Alzheimer's medication. The scene cuts to Gwan's face. Myungji states, that's the key to defeating Rewind. The scene begins on the facade of a modern corporate skyscraper. The building is lit up. A black car waits silently in the street. Inside the office, Nungdae Gwan turns and heads for the exit. Already seated in the car, he receives the new NV Bio medication from the driver, but Nungdae refuses the bottle. He comments that he won't need it anymore and asks to return. The vehicle leaves without delay, moving away from the building. In a busy gambling hall, several people are sitting at tables. A man, sitting with his back turned, dominates the space. He has a large pile of chips in front of him. It is Nungdae Gwan. He asks for the bill, holding a cigarette between his fingers. Someone approaches from behind and places a hand on his shoulder. The man congratulates him on the big win. He suggests Nungdae go home discreetly to avoid danger. Nungdae recognizes the voice. He identifies the newcomer as Hongsu Shin, the steward of the Yuljiro clan house. Then, Nungdae comments, your wife, who works in a restaurant, will have an accident the day after tomorrow. I recommend you go home early. The other man asks Hongsu Shin, do you know Gwan? He hears a negative. Irritated, Hongsu Shin grabs him and demands to know, how did you find out my wife's profession? A young man is forcefully thrown, falling in front of them. The scene cuts back to a protest. The same young man appears fallen, while a man in a suit observes him. Stepping away uncomfortably, Hongsu Shin comments, that guy gives me the creeps. The young man stares back at him, maintaining a serious expression. Recalling the past, Nungdae remembers. He discovered his abilities by chance, like rewinding a cassette tape. Walking down the street with headphones on, he snapped his fingers to the rhythm of the music. Suddenly, a speeding car rushes toward him. He sharply turns his body, realizing the imminent danger. In an instant, Nungdae snaps his fingers again. He is thrown backward, falling to sit on the asphalt. The car zips past the spot where he was and drives on. Nungdae remains unharmed on the ground. After that day, his life completely changed. The ability began to consume him. He could get anything he wanted with ease. He even enjoyed winning hands in poker. But although he achieved everything he desired, he found no happiness at all. Life became monotonous. This leads him back to the image of him fallen on the ground during the protest. Still on the ground, he asks himself, should I go back in time? A voice calls him as he slowly gets up. A young woman holding a small flag observes him closely. She leans in a little and asks, you are okay? He stares at her for a suspended instant. He feels time stop around him. For the first time, he looks toward the future instead of the past. He calls out to Sangmi. She greets him with a smile, saying hello. Nungdae! Running up to him, she apologizes for being late and asks, where will we go? He takes her by the arm. He leads the young woman to a busy amusement park with a large carousel. She says she always wanted to visit that place. Nungdae replies, it's still too early for surprises. Later that night, they arrive in front of an elegant restaurant. Inside the venue, he hears the young woman comment, I had only seen an environment like this on television. Sitting at the table, Nungdae announces, I made the reservation a month ago. I have something to give you. He offers a box with a set of necklace and earrings. Happy birthday, he wishes. Surprised by the gift, she asks, how did you know? She whispers his name, ensuring he knows everything she likes. Nungdae states this with conviction and adds, I can give you anything you want. Sangmi closes the box slowly and takes a deep breath. He asks, "Didn't you like it?" She replies that she loved it. The young woman says she loved everything that day. "It's as if you had prepared everything, knowing exactly what I wanted," she comments. Gently accusing him, she comments, "You went back in time again." She states that she knows. She thanks him and explains that she understands his intention to give her what she wanted. Continuing in a low voice, she says, "You don't need to be perfect. I want to love you as you really are." Nyungdae is speechless and stares at her expression. Apologizing, she asks, "What was the gift you would have bought before changing time?" She asks what he had chosen before going back. She warns him, "You're going to be disappointed." The scene changes. He gives a striped scarf to the young woman. In a snowy street at night, he asks, "Was it this?" She confirms, "Yes, it's cold." Admitting the scarf is a little tacky, he lets out a smile. He apologizes for not understanding fashion. He watches the young woman take the scarf and affirm, "It's warm." With a gentle smile, Sangmi says, "I loved the gift, Nyungdae. Thank you." In that instant, he makes up his mind and whispers her name, Sangmi. Under the lamplight on the snowy street, he proposes marriage to the young woman. Decided to spend the rest of his life by her side, he begins to strive. He wants to live properly. He quits gambling. He transforms into an honest and hardworking businessman for his wife. They live a long life together. He uses his abilities less and less. On an ordinary afternoon, Nyungdae remains in his office on the phone. Suddenly, the cup slips from the desk and shatters on the floor. He receives a call from the hospital. The voice asks about his wife, Sangmi. Walking down the corridor with a bouquet of flowers in his hands, Nyungdae Gwon advances in silence. A doctor cautiously informs him that she has stage 3 pancreatic cancer. He explains the severity. The disease has spread too much, and she only has a few months left to live. Approaching the hospital room door, Nyungdae takes a deep breath. Lying on the bed, Sangmi calls him. He wonders how that could have happened. Sangmi responds, "I was surprised too." With a gentle look, she then asks, "Did you bring flowers?" She adjusts her body on the bed, commenting, "It's nice to receive them, especially now that I'm sick." Nyungdae promises to bring a different bouquet every day and mentions the surgery, but he is interrupted by Sangmi. In a weak voice, she admits, "I have a favor to ask." The scene changes to a cemetery on a clear day. Nyungdae stands before a gravestone. The name Sangmi Yoon is engraved on the stone, and the image weighs in the air. He presses his lips together, stating to himself that he cannot accept that. A memory surfaces. The light had disappeared from his life, but she saved him. He recalls the snowy night, remembering how she taught him to love. She was his life. Nyungdae clutches the handkerchief he holds next to the gravestone. He closes his eyes, stating that he cannot let her go like that. The doctor's words come up. There would have been a chance for treatment 5 years earlier. He decides to change everything, thinking of going back 5 years in time so she can be treated. Asking for one more chance, he snaps his fingers. Suddenly, Nyungdae finds himself in a hospital lobby and tries to understand where he is. He checks his cell phone. He hears nurses talking about an accident from a year ago and finds it strange. Checking the date on the device, he realizes he only went back 1 month in time, not 5 years. A scream in the corridor calls his attention. He immediately raises his head. Running hurriedly, he calls out to his wife. Arriving at the room door, he repeats her name. Inside, Sangmi tosses and turns in bed. Her face contorted in pain. She struggles to breathe. Nyungdae rushes into the room. "Get out of the way," he demands of the nurse. "Is my wife okay?" He realizes his ability has failed. He understands that no matter how hard he tries, he can never go back more than a month before Sangmi's death. Forced to witness her final moments, he watches Sangmi die over and over again. Back in the hospital room, Sangmi asks, "Are you okay?" Nyungdae simply apologizes. She suggests he go home and rest. "You look tired." He denies being tired. "You brought the same flowers as yesterday," she observes. Confused, he asks, "What do you mean by that?" On the bedside table, a vase of white lilies catches his eye. "You must really like these flowers," she smiles. Nyungdae suddenly asks, "What day is it today?" Realizing he can't remember, he puts his hand to his forehead. At home, he knocks over photo frames and doesn't recognize when or where the pictures were taken. Turning to the bookshelf, he stares at several empty photo frames. Holding one of the frames, he realizes he's losing his memories. Understanding the truth, he realizes the more he uses his power to try and save her, the more memories of her he loses. A voice states, "Your brain has begun to exceed its limits." He spins around suddenly and asks, "Who are you and what are you doing in my house?" Another voice calls him Rewind because of his power to go back in time. The young man nods and invites him to talk. The scene shifts to an industrial complex at night. Nyungdae appears before the building. Opening a metal door, he steps into the dark interior. Finding 3 young people, he thanks them. "Thank you for for not running away. How could we not have come? One of them questions, mentioning all the commotion Nungdae caused. Assuming they have a lot to say, Nungdae comments, "There's one more person I want to introduce." The girl in the group crosses her arms and asks, "Who would that other person be?" In a flashback, Nungdae tells the young man, "I used too much of my power when I was younger." Reacting to the revelation, the young man in the group raises his eyebrows. Emerging from the shadows, a female voice comments, "It's been a long time." Greeting her powerful friends, the woman observes each of them. Tossing a photo onto the table, the mysterious figure asks, "Nungdae, do you want to save your wife?" Then, she proposes a deal. Staring at the newcomer, the young woman asks, "Who are you?" Revealing her face, the woman is identified as Record. Nungdae, Guan, and Record appear together at the entrance. Myungji stares at them, asking what they were doing there. His friend then questions who the woman is. Youngho asks if the two of them planned all of this together. Without hesitation, Record confirms. Calmly, Record reveals that people with powers didn't come together by fate. She was the one who gathered them all. She also reveals that she gave them nicknames so they would believe there were others with abilities. Calling Record a wretch, Youngho questions, "Was everything we went through your doing?" Running towards Record, he charges, but Myungji shouts his name. Activating her eye, Record unleashes her power. Coldly, she warns him, "Don't do anything foolish. Even if you kill me, my ego will steal your body." The young man then collapses to the ground. Record states that she won't interfere directly in the fight. She merely put the pieces together to make this encounter possible. She explains that her objective is to gather all abilities into one to protect the time dimension. She declares that it doesn't matter who wins the fight. Myungji observes the scene. Record prepares to initiate the confrontation, but Nungdae grabs her from behind. Questioning the gesture, Record demands, "What are you doing?" Nungdae states he was expecting this and decided to eliminate any variables. Turning to face him, she tries to react. Closing his eyes, he surprises her. He reveals that he discovered how her ability worked and prepared a female body for a situation like this. Attempting to warn him, "My ego will possess you." Record is interrupted. He injects a syringe into her neck. Nungdae explains that it's an ultra-secret sedative that won't kill her. He stares at Record and says, "Just as you said, after I collect all the abilities, I will take your power last to become the master of time." Her body goes limp. Confident, Nungdae states, "Now I am ready. You can begin," he declares. Without hesitation, Myungji and Suhan agree. Suhan Park asks firmly, "Was it you, Nungdae, who told the press about my past?" Confirming, Nungdae replies, "Don't worry, you will go back to living your life without powers." He promises that Suhan and his mother will have a comfortable life, but the young man retorts, "I'll take care of that myself." Suhan adds, "If that were to happen, the life I live now would disappear. And these days, I like myself more." "Fool," says Nungdae Guan, showing contempt. Retorting firmly, Suhan Park states, "We'll see." The word Alzheimer flashes in his mind. A cell phone screen reveals something important. News about new research by NV Bio for the treatment of Alzheimer's. Showing the cell phone to the others, Myungji exposes Nungdae Guan's condition. A technical analysis states, Nungdae's timeline does not exceed 300 years. Concluding logically, the girl with her hair tied back explains, because he collects more memories than an ordinary person, he cannot exceed this limit. Understanding the meaning, Youngho realizes that the watch sent by the detective was a message about his time limit. With conviction, Myungji declares, "The only key to winning this fight is the fact that Rewind loses his memory when using his ability. They realize they need to make him use his power to have a chance, even if their attacks don't work." Snapping his fingers, Nungdae dodges Suhan's blow aimed at his head. Snapping his fingers once again, he evades another attack directed at his left shoulder. Coldly, Nungdae explains, "I can simply go back in time to avoid your movements." Suhan realizes that won't work. Deciding to change strategy, Suhan pauses time with his own attack to impede Nungdae's reaction. Arrogantly, Nungdae comments, "You only knew a world where victory was instant because you fought against people without powers." Activating his ability, Suhan says, "Even if it's difficult for both of us to move, your power won't work." Nungdae hesitates for an instant. Completing his sentence, he states, "The ability doesn't work on her." Myungji appears behind him. Raising his hand, he realizes he needs to go back in time. Several fragmented memories flash through his mind. Dazed, he stumbles forward as Myungji charges at him. Taking him down with a powerful body blow, she completes her move. Falling hard, Nungdae hits the ground. Then, Suhan yells, "Youngho, now!" Preparing his attack, Youngho focuses to charge. Still down, Nungdae looks up. Plummeting from the ceiling, a large metal structure descends towards him. Trying to escape the impact, he attempts to snap his fingers. Colliding violently with the ground, the structure shakes as it hits the floor. Turning to his friends, Suhan asks, "Did it work?" Then he comments, "Nungdae seemed to struggle after using his power. Exactly as we planned." Warning cautiously, Young-ho says, "It's too soon. We need to be careful." The next instant, he's hit by a blow. Young-ho collapses to the ground, surprising Myungji. Yelling in despair, Suhan calls out, "Young-ho!" Emerging from the dust, Nungdae Gwan attacks Suhan, shouting, "Suhan! Young-ho!" Myungji tries to react, but suddenly stops. In a memory, Suhan questions the plan's validity. Asking insecurely, he says, "Is this all we have to fight with? What will we do if it doesn't work?" Back in the present, Myungji lunges forward and challenges him. "How dare you?" Stumbling and screaming in pain, Nyungdi furiously repeats, "How dare you tamper with my memories of Sangmi?" Realizing the new situation, Myungji understands. The situation has changed. She concludes that they are all dead. Young-ho and Suhan lie on the ground. Nyungdae glares at them, questioning how they dared to tamper with his memories. He grabs Myungji by her hair, overpowering her. He violently throws her to the ground, treating her like a mere object. Lying there, Myungji wonders if it's all over. Approaching, Nungdae grips her neck. "You've attacked me nonstop." Pressing her against the crates, he continues, "You did this to make me use rewind, so you'd have a chance." Nungdae expresses disbelief. "I can't believe your preparation. You wouldn't have executed this plan without being sure." He stares at her suspiciously. "How did you discover Rewind's weakness? It would be hard to guess just from news articles." Nungdae questions. "Myungji, did Detective Do tell you?" From Myungji's reaction, he deduces he's right. Nungdae didn't expect the detective to give this information to the shuffle. Either way, it was useless, he declares. Myungji in turn realizes they could have discovered Nungdae's memory capacity on their own. Silently, she wonders, why did Detective Do send her that watch? In a memory, the detective asks, "Don't you think you're using your powers the wrong way?" Firmly, the detective continues, "Other powers can reach yours." An intense focus settles on the scene. Nungdae Gwan apologizes. "There's someone I need to see." Myungji warns him seriously. "Even if you go back to the past to see that person, you'll just go back in time again when she dies." Nungdae replies curtly, "I know." Screaming in pain, Myungji declares, "I lost someone precious too, but I finally realized something. Even though I lost my parents and went through an irreplaceable time, a period that can't be turned back and faced terrifying moments. Now I know what to do. If I want to protect what's important, I can't ignore it and run away. I need to face the situation head on and fight, because I promised Yeonji I'd return." Nungdae tells her to stop with the nonsense. "It's all over." Firmly, Myungji asks, "Did you kill Detective Do and steal her ability?" Myungji remembers the detective's words, "Your power can be reached by others." Myungji activates the ability to use her power in conjunction with other abilities. She transforms instantly. Nungdae notices the change. He understands that although the rapid advance doesn't affect those around it, he can be caught by the shuffle. Firmly, Myungji asks, "What would happen if the power were used on someone with deteriorating memory, like you?" Myungji understands the message. The watch was meant to use the rapid advance on rewind. Trying to reverse the situation, Nungdae forces his fingers to press the time trigger, but Myungji snaps her fingers in response. The two powers clash, colliding in a massive explosion of energy. Deciding she needs to advance as much as she can to defeat him, Myungji maintains the advance. Nungdae is caught by the accelerated time flow and loses control. Time begins to fracture, rapidly distorting around them. Observing the scene, Myungji notices that space-time is being distorted. Trying to resist the distortion, he screams, "Stop!" Hearing a voice call out to him, Nungdae looks to the side. Dragged by the distortion, Nungdae is transported to a memory, beside Sangmi's hospital bed. In the memory, Sangmi says, "I have a favor to ask you." Nungdae asks, "When did this happen? What favor would that be?" Starting cautiously, Sangmi says, "Even if I die, I don't want you to go back in time." Confused, Nungdae asks, "What are you saying?" Explaining sincerely, Sangmi states, "Even though we didn't do everything we wanted, and we made mistakes, we were slow and clumsy, but we did the best we could in every moment. Each one of them was filled with love. I hope you keep these memories forever. I ask that you keep them exactly as they are." In a soft voice, she pleads, "Please don't cling to our past. Don't end up ruining your future." Back in the present, Nungdae turns amidst the clash of powers. Myungji remains immobilized, still trapped in her own power. Staring at her in silence for an instant, Nungdae hesitates. Then, an intense light engulfs the area. Myungji's eyes snap open. She finds herself floating in a dark space. She wonders where she is. She realizes she's back, and things are going to be tough for a while. She can't believe he dared to do it, knowing the consequences. A sound makes her turn sharply. Record appears before her. Myungji questions, "What are you doing here?" Calmly, Record explains, "As the dimensions distorted, I entered your subconscious." Myungji shows immediate concern. "What happened to Nungdae Gwan? Are Young-ho and Suhan okay?" Record clarifies that Myungji's fast-forward power conflicts with Nungdae's ability. While one accelerates time, the other rewinds it. She continues to explain, "Past and future cannot coexist," causing causing their powers to collide. In that moment, acceleration and rewind repeated infinitely. Myungdae's brain exceeded its capacity to handle time. Record concludes that, ironically, the strongest power to stop him was the one Myungji considered useless. Myungji then asks, "Where is Myungdae now?" Record reveals that after the collision, his mind collapsed. Trapped in the last memory he had, he remains locked away. Record explains that he left to be with someone. She shows him kneeling in front of a gravestone. Myungji then realizes that Record had been helping him all along. Revealing the truth, Record explains, "In every outcome I showed, Myungdae Gwan was always the winner." Suspicions grew among the young people. Without the courage to face the truth, they couldn't unite their powers. If that happened, Myungdae would gain all abilities. He would repeat time with his wife infinitely. Record continues, explaining that the only way for them to win wasn't through a superficial alliance, but with complete mutual trust. Record emphasizes Myungji's inner strength. You learned to never give up. You fought to protect the people important to you. That was the only way for the future to exist. Record then declares, "Myungji, you won the battle." Record's hand begins to flicker. She warns, "We don't have much time." She asks, "Are you okay?" With a steady gaze, Record warns, "Just like before, you might end up alone, and Yeonji will get hurt because of you again." Reminding Myungji that she was just starting to enjoy school, Record creates a heavy silence. With a final warning, she adds, "The people around you will have changed." Myungji remains silent for a moment. Then she says, "It's okay." Myungji explains sincerely, "The reason Yeonji hated me and I had no friends was because I had given up and done nothing about it. I won't run away anymore. No time is without meaning." Record watches her. Slowly nodding, she accepts Myungji's decision. The scene shifts to the facade of a flower shop on a sunny day. A news report on TV announces that Mr. Guan has been found guilty of terrorizing the citizens of Gunseong. The news reveals the details. He was responsible for the serial murders. He was arrested in front of his wife's grave. Officer Tai-soo Ham, who contributed to the investigation, will receive a promotion. Sergeant Myeon-do, who died during the case, was also posthumously promoted. Sitting at a table, Myungji says, "I can't solve this question." The shop door's bell chimes. She turns to greet the customer, but is surprised by who it is. Myungji greets him. Suhan says, "I was just passing by." Complaining about how difficult math is, Myungji listens to Suhan. He encourages her. "You've been doing great." Myungji then congratulates him for winning a medal. He downplays the achievement, trying to change the subject, but Myungji insists, "That's amazing." Suhan changes the subject. "Have you heard from Youngho?" Myungji replies, "No," imagining he's busy. Suhan comments, "I thought you two were dating." Myungji asks, "Are the flowers you're holding for Gayan?" Suhan looks surprised by the question. Lightly, Myungji explains, "All of Gayan's friends know she has a boyfriend." Handing him the bouquet, Myungji advises him, "Be nice to Gayan." Myungji says, "Say hi to Gayan for me." Suhan asks, "Where are you going?" Myungji smiles and says, "I have important plans." The scene shifts to a sunny beach. Sitting on the grass, Myungji and Yeonji rest. Her sister comments, "What a beautiful place." Yeonji says sadly, "Our parents aren't here to see this. Everything would be different if I hadn't been so stubborn." Myungji tells her sister, "Don't act that way." But Yeonji replies, "I know, I just can't help it." Yeonji suggests, "We can come back here with Auntie next year." Myungji jokes, "We could even go to the same college." Yeonji calls out to her sister, who responds promptly. Myungji thanks her. "Thank you for waiting." Yeonji apologizes, "I'm so sorry for making you go through that time alone." But Myungji says, "Forget about it. Suhan told me everything." Admitting she can't say she wasn't upset, the older sister vents, "I needed to understand the whole story about the power of time." Continuing sincerely, she says, "The important thing is that you're back, Myungji, and you're not avoiding me like before." Myungji smiles. "That's enough for me." Yeonji then asks, "Are you really okay?" Myungji looks confused. Clarifying, Yeonji comments, "I'm asking about Youngho since he hasn't called." Myungji says, "I just wanted to thank him." Calmly, she states, "I was able to overcome all the difficulties thanks to him." Myungji confirms, "It's okay. Youngho has his own path to follow, and I'll root for him from afar." Yeonji smiles fondly. She comments, "Youngho's lesson of never giving up will stay with you." Joking, Yeonji says, "Enough of this talk. I'm so sentimental, it's making me sick." Yeonji calls Myungji's name and Myungji responds. Yeonji then comments, "It's summer vacation. In American series, students always seem so busy." Myungji asks Yeonji, "Do you know why I'm telling you this?" A voice asks, "What took you so long?" Both turn around. Yeonji tells him, "You should have heard what Myungji just said." She finds the situation embarrassing. He calls out Myungji's name, grabbing their attention. The scene pulls back, briefly showing the beach. Approaching, Youngho says, "It's been a while." She simply greets him in return. This story is just different. I can't even decide on a score. What would you give it from 0 to 10? Make sure to hit the like button and leave your rating in the comments. Consider this in order.